Welcome to Minecraft 100 Days, 30 Ages, a compilation of my 100 days in one video, where I go from InfDev all the way to 1.20. So that's technically 400 days, so I misled you all with more content. For all the people that have seen these videos, it's nothing new, just a full movie video. For the new viewers, I hope you enjoy, and the individual videos are in the description below. So without further ado, let's get right in. Welcome to 100 Days in Minecraft Alpha Edition, where I try to survive and thrive in the ancient versions of Minecraft. I plan to do more in the future, like 100 Days of Minecraft Beta Edition, but that's still up in the air. There will be 26 versions, one of which being InfDev and the other 25 being Alpha. I did that because I wanted to showcase a little before the Alpha versions, which leads to my next point. Before each version, I'll be doing a brief overview of the version and the versions between the previous version to show the features and what got updated. This took a lot of time and planning to execute, so consider leaving a like or even subscribing and maybe even ringing that bell. Anyways, enjoy the show. InfDev was the most world-changing update in Minecraft history. It added infinite world generation. Mostly. InfDev introduced the first Secret Fridays, Secret Friday 1 and 2. It added golden apples, signs, ladders, doors, buckets, rails, minecarts, dungeons, spawners, saddles, and 2 stair types, oak and cobblestone. InfDev improved on terrain generation and fluid mechanics. Brick pyramids and obsidian walls were added, but were removed in later InfDev versions. On the other hand, the farmlands wouldn't be removed until Beta 1.8. On day 1, I went over to some trees and swiftly broke them down, made some tools, and started mining. I crafted a bunch of stone tools and made my way to scout a location for my base. I found one, but I got distracted by some sheep. I promptly confiscated their wool. Night was falling, so I hastily made my wooden box, of which I called my home. Then I did some interior decorating, placed a new floor, and lit up my roof. Since I had nothing else to do, I went mining. But before going down further, I made some wool armor. From Alpha 1.0.0 through 1.0.4, there were 2 Secret Fridays, Secret Friday 3 and 4. Secret Friday 3 added iron doors, levers, redstone dust, redstone ore, redstone torches, stone buttons, and 2 pressure plate types, oak and stone. This replaced cogs, which were removed in this version. Secret Friday 4 added ice blocks and snow with a chance for a winter map when creating a world. On day 2, I went hunting, punch shearing, and gathered some wood. I made some more armor and cooked a single piece of food. I started to expand my house by terraforming around it, as well as making the new dimensions of the house before demolishing the old walls to build the new ones. I gathered some sand from windows and placed in the new floor. I rearranged my house and went mining for more stone. While mining, I found a cave, killed some mobs, and found some iron. On day 3, I continued to cave more and found more iron. I went back up to see sheep inside my house and stole their wool. I finished my floor, broke the old roof, chopped a bunch of trees, and went on a hunting spree. I made some iron tools, more wool armor, then went back to continue mining. I continued mining on day 4 until it was nighttime outside. I came back up and made a bunch of furnaces to process all the ore I mined. I crafted some iron armor and cooked a bunch of food. From Alpha 1.0.5 through 1.0.5_01, snow blocks and snowballs were added. Snowballs now require a shovel to harvest and stack in 8 instead of 64. On day 5, I gathered a lot of sand for glass to build my second floor, as well as exterminating the local wildlife. I started to construct the floor and walls of the second floor. Then I went down to mine and found some animals in the caves. Man, mob spawning in Alpha is weird. I mined until night of day 6. When I went back up, I smelted my iron and reorganized my chests. On day 7, I cooked food that would just not stack, as you can see. After that, I gathered a bunch of wood and started to build my roof. By day 8, I finished my roof and went to explore. Though brief, it was quite nice and different from building. To finish the day, I cleaned my inventory. From Alpha 1.0.6 through 1.0.11, there were 2 Secret Fridays, Secret Friday 5 and 6. Secret Friday 5 added cactuses and boats, which can be ridden on and broken. Cows, leather, and milk buckets were also added, though milk buckets had no use or way of obtaining. Leather armor is now crafted using leather instead of wool. Secret Friday 6 added reeds, clay, paper, books, and bricks. Slimes are also added and drop slime balls upon the depth of the smallest variant. A recipe for bookshelves and bricks were added. Cactuses got an updated texture, causes damage only when collisions happen, and can only be placed on sand. On day 9, I gathered some seeds and made a tiny farm. I went down into the mines to get more iron and coal. Also got some gold in the process. Slimes were also in the cave, so I got some slime balls too. I kept mining into day 10 and went back up to smell my iron and gold. By the time I was finished, it was nighttime, so there wasn't much for me to do. On day 11, I gathered a ton of wood and started to make an elevated wooden bridge that started from my house. This build will be my main focus for most of the 100 days. On day 12, I continued to build the bridge further and further and elevated the bridge 10 blocks to keep space between the bridge and the ground. This would cost me dearly in materials in the future. From Alpha 1.0.12 through 1.0.14, slimes got a new look and new sound effects. A temporary logo was added in Alpha 1.0.13_01 to celebrate 1,000 sales in the last 24 hours. Secret Friday 7 added jukeboxes along with the music discs Cat and 13. Chickens and eggs were also added, as well as new variants of minecarts. Cactuses can now grow up to 3 blocks. Prior to this, they wouldn't grow at all. The textures for cows were changed and slime spawning reduced. Through days 13, 14, 15, and 16, I kept building the bridge and into the mountain. Alpha 1.0.15 was more of a minor version. Lava can now set blocks on fire, and items appearance in third person got changed. Through days 17, 18, 19, and 20, I continued to build the bridge. On day 17, I broke through the mountain and saw the other side. I had to gather tons of wood to build this ever lengthening bridge. The bridge is approaching water, which would be a challenge for me in the following days. Alpha 1.0.16 and its minor versions mostly contained updates for multiplayer and not any for the game's content. On day 21, I continued to build the bridge, but by day 22, I made an expanded platform on the bridge to make a new mine. When I started to make the staircase, it was already nighttime, but mods were much of a problem. On day 23, I went back home to get some coal for some torches and then continued to mine out the staircase through the daytime of day 24. By nighttime, I went back home to reorganize. Since there was animals outside, I hunted them down, as well as harvesting my tiny farm. That's a weird animal. This overview would be for the following 2 versions or 8 days. From Alpha 1.0.17 through 1.0.17_04, there was only one Secret Friday, Secret Friday 8. In Secret Friday 8, fences were added, though they were a little different from fences in modern versions. First of all, the recipe is different, but that lasted until far into the release versions. The really weird things were their properties. They were considered full blocks, didn't connect to other blocks that weren't fences, could only be placed when a block was below the fence, and couldn't be placed on top of each other. There could be more, but those are the ones that I found out. Jockeys were also introduced, but for now they're only spider jockeys. There's a new animation for right-clicking to match with the third-person animation. Chickens no longer take fall damage, instead they slowly glide down. On day 25, I went strip mining, but I don't really know how effective it was. But I did find my first diamonds. It only took 25 days. By day 26, I went back home to smell my auras and did not harm those animals. On day 27, I wanted to see if fences looked good on the bridge, so I gathered some wood and made a bunch of fences. At first, I tried to place them down on dirt and broke the dirt later to see if they looked better floating. But eventually, I just placed wooden planks under the fences because I liked that look more and it was easier to build. I continued building the fences on day 28 up until the mountain passage. Then continued to build the bridge further, and at this point, we made it to the water's edge. On day 29, I gathered more wood to continue to build the bridge, but I went back home to take all the cobblestone in my chest because I wanted to switch it up a little bit. I used stone slabs for the pillars and cobblestone for the path. I kept building through day 30 and half of day 31. I went back home to make some iron armor because all my previous armor had broke. By day 32, I ran out of cobblestone, so I had to go into the mines and get a bunch more cobblestone. I started to strip mine for some reason. Then my game started to lag and I saw mossy cobblestone above me. It was a spider spawner. I explored the cave a little bit more and realized it was a little too much for me, so I took whatever I found and left to continue mining for cobblestone. Alpha 1.1.0 was the last Secret Friday, Secret Friday 9. The addition of the compass was the only update that was pertinent to the gameplay. Through day 33 and half of day 34, I kept mining, but by the second half of day 34 and into day 35, I went back home to process all the iron ore and made a sword. For the rest of day 35 and all of day 36, I just mined to gather as much stone as possible. From Alpha 1.1.1 through 1.1.2, there was a Secret Saturday, but there would only ever be one Secret Saturday, and this would be the last secret update ever. In Secret Saturday, a relatively game-changing feature was introduced, crouching. I mean, there were other things that got added, like fishing rods, 5 new paintings, as well as changes to 2 paintings, and 2 new settings, mouse sensitivity, and volume. On day 37, I moved my cobblestone up to the bridge and then continued to build the bridge through day 38 and half of day 39. It was way easier to build because of crouching. On the latter half of day 39, I went down to the mines to get more stone only to die from being burned alive. I had to walk back home to grab some food and a bucket and then went back to get my stuff. I filled my bucket with water and then continued to mine for stone. Alpha 1.1.2_01 is the oldest version in the current launcher that still has sound. On day 41, I continued to mine and build a bridge into day 42. I grabbed my stuff and went back home to reorganize and went back to mine for the rest of the day. By day 43, I went back up to continue to build the bridge and actually made it to the other side. Since I ran out of stone, I went back to mine until the end of day 44. Alpha 1.2.0, otherwise known as the Halloween update, introduced a new dimension, the Nether. With the addition of the Nether, it added netherrack, soul sand, glowstone, carved pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns, and the Nether portal. New mobs are added, such as the ghast and zombie pigmen. There was also an unused texture for pigmen in the files. The clock was added too, as well as new biomes such as the desert and tundra, the latter of which removed the winter worlds. Fishing was added along with cooked and raw fish. Furnaces now face the same direction as the player when placed. Grass blocks and leaves are now a darker shade and are dependent on the biome it's in. The HUD is removed when F1 is pressed, and pressing F1 in third person will now make it view the player's face. On day 45, I gathered some obsidian to make another portal. I opened the portal and went into it and spawned into a cave. I went back into the portal to check where I spawned at. It wasn't at the original portal. I went back into the nether to explore and found an exit to the outside, where ghast were everywhere, so I quickly gathered as much glowstone as possible and left. I exited the nether and broke the second portal. From days 46, 47, and 48, I continued to build the bridge even further, and now that we're on land, it would be way easier to build. In alpha 1.2.0_01, gravel now spawns in the nether. Through days 49, 50, 51, and 52, the bridge continued into the mountain. On the other side, I realized it was a chunk error. There was another huge ocean on the other side. The place where my tunnel popped out was a huge sheer cliff from the chunk error. I gathered some sand for the glass for the tunnel and waited the whole night for it to smelt. Alpha 1.2.0_02, 1.2.1, and 1.2.1_01 only had minor updates in them. On day 53, I built the glass protection around the tunnel that is on every exit and entrance to a mountain. I gathered some wood and built the bridge up until the water. From day 54, 55, and 56, I made another mine to gather stone for another ocean path, my least favorite thing to build. On day 57, I continued to mine more stone, and by day 58 and 59, the path made it to the other side. At the end of day 59, I lit up the area around the end of the bridge and packed up my stuff to go back home by day 60 to reorganize. By the nighttime of day 60, I came back to the bridge to further extend it. From day 61 and 62, I continued to work on the bridge. Since there was new terrain, I decided to explore. I went to the mountain to gather some snow and pelted a chicken. There were some amazing mountain views. I went back to the bridge by nighttime so I wouldn't be stranded. I lit up the bridge and gathered some sand to build protection for the bridge. On day 63, I gathered more wood, extended the bridge, and gathered more sand. By day 64, I was in the process of digging through another mountain. The glass finished melting, so I started to build the protection for the mountain entrance. Alpha 1.2.2a was a debug version which added the ability to spawn nether portals by pressing F4. On day 65, I finished building the glass tunnel and went back to finish a previous glass tunnel. I continued to mine through the mountain until I made it to the other side. There were some gaps in the mountains and overhangs that made it weird to build in. On day 66, I was building the bridge on the other side of the mountain and saw more water. At least this would be the last over water part. A skeleton trespassed, so I led it to the outside, where it promptly walked off in the pursuit of killing me. I filled the gaps in the inter-mountain tunnel with some glass and harvested more sand in day 67. I put them in the furnace and boated out to explore the land. I found a desert and immediately harvested some cactus and left when night fell. While trying to build the glass protection, I was ambushed by a creeper. And another. This damaged the bridge a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. I repaired the bridge and saw another creeper coming, but this time the bridge was left unscathed. And another creeper. On day 68, I continued to build the bridge until the water. Then I started to mine to get stone for the last overwater part of the bridge. In Alpha 1.2.2b, lava now flows up to 8 blocks in the nether. From days 69, 70, 71, and 72, I mined for 4 straight days. Yeah. In Alpha 1.2.3, coordinates now show in the F3 menu. On day 73, I finished the wood part and started on the stone part. After another day of building on day 74, on day 75, I explored the surrounding area to see if it would be a good place for a base. It looked pretty nice, so I decided it would be a good place for my new house. At night, I made an intersection on the bridge so I could connect the bridge to the new house. I continued building and almost died in day 76. I made the offshoot from the main bridge, lit up the surrounding area, and started to make the foundation for my new house. From Alpha 1.2.3_01 through 1.2.6, there are many updates to multiplayer. Otherwise, all the other updates were just minor changes. On day 77, I terraformed around my house and started to install a floor in my house into day 78. Since leaves don't decay on their own, I had to break them manually. I started to build the frame and walls for the house, then stairs that go to the entrance from the ground level. I continued to build the walls in the nighttime and started on the second floor. By day 79, I replaced the slab staircase because I didn't like how gradual it was, and replaced it with just a cobblestone staircase. I gathered more wood for the frame, continued to make the rim for the second floor, dug more sand for the second floor, and started to connect the bridge to the house. Then I went back to the original base to bring back precious items and any other things I had space for. I came back and filled the second floor with glass and lit up the house. I continued on the second floor by building the frame and starting on the walls. On day 81, I gathered more wood to continue on the third floor. I lit up the house, made some stairs, and installed windows. Then I started to build the connection from the bridge offshoot to the house. After that, I built the pillars for the roof. On day 82, I dug up the sand to make glass for the third floor. I redecorated the first floor and cooked some food. I filled in the third floor with glass and it got snuck upon by a creeper while I was outside. Then I did a little repair job, gathered some wood for the frame of the roof, and finished the third floor. I made fences for the third floor because I wanted the top floor to be open. On day 83, I gathered even more wood to finish the wood portion of the roof. After that, I started to fill in the glass roof but ran out and started on a basement. I had to do some terraforming work because the stairs poked out a little bit. But by day 84, I got some more sand to finish up the roof. While that smelted, I continued on the basement. I kept digging until I felt the sand and water above me wouldn't annoy me anymore. I wanted a big basement, so I mined for a while until I felt like it was big enough. On day 85, I kept digging out the basement, but the sound of mobs really annoyed me, so I stopped mining and tried to find the source of it. It took me a little, but I found a cave which had mobs in it where I promptly slayed them. Then I went back up to continue on with the basement. I lit up the basement more and patched holes in the staircase to the basement. Then I started to stylize the staircase walls. I don't really know why, but I placed more dirt here, probably something about placing slabs. Then for the rest of day 86, I replaced the walls of the staircase with stone slabs. On day 87, I did a whole redesign of my house. This also meant I had to clean up all the crafting tables, furnaces, and chests that I left in the mines and on the bridge. It took me until day 92 to finish bringing back all the stuff. Walking back and forth from the new house and the old house took around half a day round trip. It took forever. My fingers were literally sweating because of how long I held the button down. At the end of day 92, I smelted all my iron and fixed the creeper explosion that happened at the base of the bridge intersection. On day 93, I dug up some more sand to fix the hole that was created after making the staircase to the basement. I hunted for some animals until nighttime, where I retreated back home to cook my wild game. A skeleton tried to break in, but I blocked him and then finished him off with my iron sword. I was going to head down to the basement, but then I realized the roof wasn't finished. I grabbed some glass and went up to finish the roof. After finishing the roof, I went down to the basement to start a mine, which I don't think I ever used because we're already at day 93. I worked on it until day 94 and got some diamonds in the process, 4 to be precise. I cleaned up my inventory and got ready to adventure on day 95. I bested wild cows, pigs, sheep, and even chickens, which is somehow more useful than sheep because beds don't even exist. I came back home and cooked my food and went straight to making the basement look better. I made the borders of the basement stone slabs and gathered wood on day 96 to fill in the floor. Then I went to light up some caves so I would make sure that I would never hear any more mob sounds. After that, I made the entrance to the mine look a little bit cleaner. On day 97, I made some iron armor and went exploring. I killed many animals and a creeper. Then I harvested some sugarcane and continued to explore. I found some coal and mined it. By the time I was finished, it was nighttime, so I quickly went back home. I lit up the surrounding area a bit more and then went to the basement to redecorate the ceiling. By day 98, I had finished mining out the stone and started to replace it with wood planks. On day 99, I chopped some trees to get wood for a dock. Before that, I had to light up the surrounding area. Then I started to build a dock and light it up. I placed some boats down to fill up the space. On day 100, the final day, I hunted some animals and made a bigger farm. To get the large numbers of seeds I needed, I had to till half the hillside. It took a long time. And that wraps up my 100 days in Minecraft Alpha Edition. Playing in Alpha was a totally new experience for me. I wasn't old enough to play Minecraft then, but even still, I felt a little nostalgic even though I never played this version of Minecraft then. Minecraft at its core has never really changed, and that's what makes it fun. A sandbox game with no one way to play and infinite possibilities even showed then. Comment down below on if you liked the brief overviews of each version. I felt it enhanced the video a bit by being more informative, but that's just my opinion. I want to hear yours. I really hope you enjoyed this video. This took a really long time to make, and if you watch it through and hear this, thank you. Welcome to another 100 days in Minecraft. This time we've graduated from alpha to beta. Also, happy holidays. I hope you all are having a great holiday season. We have a lot more people on the channel now than before because of the previous 100 days blowing up, which is amazing. So, welcome. Since there were so many requests for a world tour last time, I will do a world tour at the end of the video. I will also put downloads to the worlds, which also got requested many times. There will be 26 versions, 25 of which would be in the main 100 days, and the 26 would be during the world tour. This took a lot of time to make, so consider leaving a like, or even subscribing, and maybe even ringing that bell. Anyway, enjoy the show. In beta 1.0, chests now close when the player is too far or when the chest blows up. Leaves now naturally decay again, and eggs can be thrown with a chance of spawning a chicken. Capes were introduced. When hovering over an item in the inventory, the name shows up. On day 1, I crafted some tools and torches and then went down to mine. I found many ores and then proceeded to go back up to process them. Then I organized my inventory and went up to the bridge to take a look around. I made some axes so I can gather wood on the next day. In the meantime, I stole the wool off their backs and killed their friends, and worked on their house some more. On day 2, I went down to the dock, hopped on a boat, and went to chop some trees. I returned home by nighttime, organized, and took what I needed to continue the bridge. I stupidly tried to build during nighttime from the bottom up, so I continued building the top first. Day was coming soon, so I jumped down to build the pillars, but the paparazzi had different ideas. On day 3, I continued to build the bridge supports and path. This tree was in the way, so the logical course of action is to build through it. Don't question me. Building into the night has consistently been a bad idea because I was ambushed yet again. Thankfully, I escaped and then waited till daytime. On day 4, I made my commute to the end of the bridge and started to collect more wood, which coincided with clearing out the forest that was ahead of the bridge. I went back to the bridge to continue, but then decided that it was a bad idea, so I retreated back home to continue the top of the bridge. Beta 1.0_01 only contained minor changes. On day 5, I crafted some wood and then continued to build the bridge. I built a dirt staircase down and then chopped some trees. Got some coal and then continued to chop more. I went back home to cook my food and reorganize, made some axes, and then brought tools to the basement. I changed the walls of the basement to cobblestone, but daytime was coming, so I went onto the bridge to make my commute. On day 6, I went to farm more trees until nighttime. Then I trekked down into my basement to finish the walls. I reorganized and then made my commute to continue building the bridge. On day 7, I continued to build the bridge path and supporting pillars. Also, kill the pig. By the time night arrived, I made sure not to repeat mistakes and not build during nighttime. I returned back home to reorganize and then went out to light the surrounding area. I fended off mobs, killed some helpless pigs, and got some stone to add onto the house. On day 8, I killed even more trees, continued on building the pillars and path while placing some torches to keep things lit up. I went back to chop trees until night fell, made more planks, and got ambushed. I built more of the walkway and then returned home to make more axes. When I left my house, the sun was rising, so I took a second to watch it. It was pretty nice. Beta 1.0.2 only contained minor changes. On day 9, I made my commute and then broke the temporary stairs. I continued to chop more trees with a little between time for some building. By nighttime, I returned home to get more axes and then went back onto the bridge. I tried building more but ended up almost getting exploded and shot. By day 10, I built this single girder for a pretty long time. I hit a hill and then continued some more. Then I jumped down to start the pillars but then ran out of wood. So I gathered some more wood until it turned night. I continued to build pillars and then at some point just decided to wait out the night. In the early morning, I went back down to start gathering more wood. By day 11, I continued to build a bridge more with a mix of chopping trees. When I got to the mountain, I just built more of those holders or whatever they're called. I started to walk back home while it was starting nighttime. I made it back home in one piece to reorganize my inventory. I crafted even more axes for tomorrow. Jeez, at this point, my axe kill count is through the roof. By day 12, I took a boat and voyaged to a new area with trees and started some mass eco-terrorism. In the game, not in real life. By nighttime, I made my return voyage and then went down to my basement to decorate. I added some chairs, tables, and started on a fireplace. Found out that iron bars weren't a thing yet, so when I made it, I just resorted to using slabs. Actually, I didn't like how it looked, so I changed it a little bit by making it wider and adding some stairs. From beta 1.1 to 1.1_01, from December 25th, 2010 to the 26th, players who played received a Christmas themed cape. People that played on the 31st also got a cape with the number 11 on it to celebrate the new year. The font actually didn't work on this version because it was missing the font file. It was fixed in 1.1_01 though. On day 13, I organized my stuff and took a boat to chop more trees. I was left stranded when it became nighttime, but I somehow found another portion of my bridge. I got home safely and brought some coal with me to go back onto the bridge. I continued to build the holders with mobs under me for the whole rest of the night. On day 14, I built more of the bridge pillars and continued on the bridge path. During the night, I lit up the bridge to avoid having mobs spawn. Ironically, I was shot off and died while trying to fight a skeleton. I had to walk the entire bridge for the rest of the day and into day 15. I got my stuff and continued to build the bridge until nighttime. Then I made my way home to make shovels. Since day was on the horizon, I went out and started to dig my large amounts of sand on day 16. I continued to dig until I literally ran out of shovels and then went back to smelt down all my sand and make more axes. I waited the whole night for sand to turn into glass. Beta 1.1_02 only contained minor changes. On day 17, I took out the glass and put in the rest of the sand. I made my commute to the end of the bridge and started to chop down trees in the forest. I went back onto the bridge and finished the bridge path during the night. I also started to build the wooden archways for the glass protection and started to place in the glass. Then a creeper trespassed onto my bridge but then walked off. I continued to build the glass protection while getting shot many times by skeletons, which heavily degraded my armor to negligible at best. On day 18, I continued the glass protection until I ran out of glass, at which I went back home. I made a bajillion shovels and dug up the whole desert until nighttime. I went back home to stock up on some food so I wouldn't die. Continuing the glass protection, I finished this section and went on to the next. I built more arches and then started to build the glass and almost got blown up in the process. I got shot again, which got me pretty low, hence the emergency food. I built a little more on the glass and then went back home by day 19. I first threw all my stuff in the chest and then proceeded to make even more shovels to dig even more sand, for even more glass. That was a mouthful. Also a lot of sand. While the sun was rising, I made my daily commute again to start gathering more wood until nighttime. I returned to the bridge and walked back home to craft more planks to smelt the sand. In beta 1.2, cakes, dispensers, lapis, snow blocks, and sandstone were added. 2 new tree types were added, spruce and birch. Spruce only spawns in taigas and birch spawn along oak and forests. Colored wool was reintroduced with crafting recipes. Items that were added include bones, bone meal, cocoa beans, ink sacs, charcoal, dyes, and sugar. Sheep can now spawn naturally with a gray, light gray, and black coat of wool, and they can also be dyed. Squids were also added and dropped ink sacs upon death, but there was a bug that actually let you milk a squid. I don't know how. Skeletons now drop bones and spiders can climb up walls. The furnace now has a top texture and spawners show a rotating model inside. Reeds are now called sugarcane and workbenches are now called crafting tables. All tools got an increase in durability except gold tools, but they are faster than diamond. Coal, iron, and diamond ore now spawn more often. On day 21, I took the glass out of my furnaces and then went on my way to the end of the bridge. I finished up making the wooden arches and started on the glass part. I then lit up the bridge after finishing the glass. I went to the next part of the bridge and started building the glass protection. I built the arches, then went home because I was running out of glass. I cooked the rest of my sand, and by daytime, I gathered my smelted glass and was making my commute again. By day 22, I finished the glass protection with some glass left over. I made a staircase down so I can have quick access to the ground. I took some time to explore what was ahead and then went back. By the time I made it back, it was turning night. I arrived at my home, reorganized, and made a bunch of pickaxes and armor, and got some food. Then I went back onto the bridge. It was a nice little walk. By day 23, I made it to the end of the bridge. I was having no success, but then I found a chunk area where I could find a cave. I started to probe around the area and found a small little cave. I was greeted by a creeper and got some coal from it. Since the cave wasn't too big, I tried to find another one, so I started mining down. Again, with a less than welcoming greeting, I swiftly dispatched the skeleton and then continued with my capitalist exploitation of the ores. For the rest of the day and day 24, I mined a lot and got many resources while facing many foes and persevering. In beta 1.2_01, a new painting was added, but there was no texture for it. On day 25, I continued to mine and got many ores including some diamonds, as well as defending myself from many mobs. By the middle of day 26, I mined a lot of stuff and got a good number of diamonds. I started mining up to get out and then marked where I came out of. I then looked around for my bridge and lo and behold, there it was. I just had to fjord a river and climb a mountain. Light work. When I got home, I reorganized my inventory and started to process my ores and cook some food. Then I went down to the basement to make the fireplace bigger. As more decoration, I dyed some wool and made a mock bed. It took me a little to figure out where to place it, but after walking back and forth from my house and basement, I ended up placing it on the second floor. Since my ores were finished smelting, I made some swords out of the iron and started to slaughter the local cattle population. That's not a cow. It wasn't all cows though, but sheep and pigs too. You know, inclusive murder. On day 27, I cooked up the meat I got from last night and waited for my iron to finish smelting. I made some more axes, then proceeded to traverse my bridge. I made a pit stop to change the dirt into cobblestone. Then I continued on my way to the forest in front of the bridge. The forest was at my mercy, and I gave no mercy. By nighttime, that forest was decimated. I went back to the bridge and waited, and I did the exact same thing on day 28. In beta 1.2_02, lapis lazuli ore now drop anywhere from 4 to 8 lapis lazuli instead of 1. Ink sacks got renamed to ink sacks and cocoa beans were renamed from cocoa beans. That sounded ridiculous because it sounded like I said the same thing twice. There was a function where if you press Shift F2, you would get a TGA file that was 1.8 gigabytes big. While taking it, the game would freeze and experience major graphical distortions. Notch confirmed that this was test code and it would be removed in later versions. On day 29, I chopped like 2 trees. I don't know why. Then I destroyed the stairs down and continued to build a support beam, or girder, or whatever it is. I stupidly fell down, but at least I could collect the wood that dropped. I went back up and continued to build the beam. The bridge became dangerously close to the ground, which will haunt me later. But since it was night, I went back home. I reorganized and brought a ton of coal with me. Actually, all of it. I walked back until it was day 30, where I built the holders and continued the beam. Then I built the pillars until it turned nighttime. I finished destroying the remnants of the stairs and placed in the last pillar. Since I couldn't really do much at night, I just kind of sat there trying to figure out what to do. I ended up just building the top portion of the bridge up until the hill. Lastly, I moved my stuff up to the end of the walkway. On day 31, I finished moving up my stuff and went to kill more trees. Wow. Since when did this become Factorio? I did this until it turned night, at which I went back to my chest and made most of the logs into planks and waited for the night to be over. On day 32, I started to build the path all the way to the other end of the bridge. I finished building the walkway and then started to build the wooden arches for future glass protection. I was ambushed by a zombie and spider and was shot by a skeleton during all of this. At some point, I just had enough of building and just waited for the night to go away. But I did get to watch a sunrise though. Beta 1.3 introduced beds. Finally, you can sleep away the scary night. But if your surroundings were improperly lit, mobs would spawn. Redstone repeaters were also added, so you didn't have to use redstone torches to extend the signal. New slab types were added: cobblestone, wood, and sandstone. A new painting was added: the burning skull, which is the same painting that previously did not have a texture. Redstone dust gets darker the farther it is from the source. Sandstone now spawns under the sand, and double slabs drop both slabs when broken. Sulfur was renamed to gunpowder. Smooth lighting was added with the help of Mr. Messiah, and a new chunk storing method was implemented, which is based on the mod McRegent by Scavalus. In world creation, now you can customize the name and create more than 5 worlds. On day 33, I went to gather, but mobs would keep attacking me. After those were dealt with, I continued to chop more trees. By nighttime, I continued to build more of the wooden arches and lighting things up. At one point, I was shot off the bridge and had to run for my life. Walk for my life. I continued to build the arches until I was done. While returning home, I was shot at a lot, but none landed. I made it home after a safe walk and reorganized my stuff. I made a bed to bring with me on my adventures. I also made paintings because I thought it would make my basement look better. And it did kind of spruce up the place, but no time for relaxation. I got to manifest destiny my way to victory. I made it to my chest to put away all my stuff and made some shovels. I went down to the beach and started to harvest as much sand as possible. By night, I walked back to the bridge and made some furnaces to smelt my freshly dug sand. I organized and then waited for the night to go away. While walking on the bridge, I stupidly, and I don't know what was going through my brain, walked off in the stupidest way possible. I made it to the beaches but caught the attention of some skeletons. Thankfully, I evaded them and continued to dig more sand. I continued to dig until nighttime of day 35, at which I went back to my bridge and stored all the sand into chests. I took out the glass from the furnaces and somehow there was one sand left, so I smelted the remaining sand. Then I turned the wood into planks to cook the sand I just got and then proceeded to wait the night away. On day 36 I did the exact same thing as yesterday. I dug, therefore I smelt, therefore I wait. But this time I added even more furnaces because I was impatient. Beta 1.3_01 contained only minor changes. On day 37 I did one more day of extensive sand excavation and processing before on day 38 where I started on the glass protection. I finished installing the glass of the walls on both sides but ran out and went back to restock. I went back to collect the smelted glass from the furnaces and continued to place glass, this time on the ceiling. I returned to my little outpost and then waited the night away. On day 39, I made my way to the end of the bridge and made a staircase down. I went down to scout the area ahead. I got some pumpkins and continued forwards. I saw a vast body of water and had my cortisol levels rise. Then I walked back home and chopped some wood so I wouldn't think about that blasted body of water. By the time it was night, I returned to the staircase and up the bridge. I started to move over everything to the new end of the bridge. Surprisingly, the hardest thing to move was my furnaces. Those suckers took forever to mine. I eventually moved everything, but by the time I was finished, it was day 40. I went down to chop more trees to continue the bridge. I returned by nighttime and put all my stuff away. I tried to sleep many times, but mobs kept spawning. It was so infuriating, so I just stopped because I kept getting attacked. These old bed mechanics are so annoying, so I just waited the night to go away. In Beta 1.4, locked chests, otherwise known as Steve Coast supply crates, were added. They would spawn around the world, and when opened, there would be a GUI that had a button that would redirect to the Minecraft website. They couldn't be destroyed unless exploded. Sneaking on a ladder will now make the player stay in place. Cookies got added and replenished half a heart and can be stacked up to 8. Cocoa beans can now be found in dungeon chests. Wolves are added and could be tamed. Sheep can now spawn in pink or brown variants, and spiders can no longer trample crops. Infrastructure for achievements and statistics have been added, and the default hotkey for inventory is now E instead of I. Lastly, a new Mojang and Minecraft logo was added. On day 41, I went down to gather more wood. I had to kill off some creepers. Keep that in mind. Then I started to chop a tree and got snuck up on by a creeper. I was down to half a heart and then died from fall damage. Somehow, I was just on the right amount of health to die. Not from the creeper, but from fall damage. I spent the whole rest of the day walking back. I got my stuff in the end, but a whole day was wasted. By day 42, I went back to Logmore and made sure that I wouldn't die from a creeper again. I got a couple stacks of logs and walked back to the bridge by night. I had a creepy crawly follow me, so I had to put it down. I put away the wood and broke the staircase. I took the wood back and started to build a bridge. I continued until I made it to the hill and stopped because of the risk of having mobs get on my bridge. I built the holders, lit the bridge, and started to build the path. On day 43, I made more planks and continued on the walkway. I added one more section of the bridge before installing the pillars of the bridge. After that, I continued to build the bridge into the mountain. By nighttime, I was on guard for mobs, especially creepers. I started to install the glass protection until the next day. On day 44, the glass kept being placed, but mobs were all over the place. And more creepers. Too many of them. After I finished, I went back to get some coal and started to mine. I continued to mine until the end of the day and made it to the other side of the hill. In Beta 1.4_01, the locked chests were partially removed but were still obtainable through cheats and exploits, and beds now function as spawn points. On day 45, I continued to dig the tunnel, though I had to defend myself from many mobs. For the rest of the day, I kept building this weird semi-tunnel bridge section. I don't know what to call it. It's like cheese, but no animals were harmed in the making. I returned to my chest and put away my stuff. Then I walked back further and got some glass, and then walked back to start the glass protection. Many mobs fell through, so I tried to quickly finish up the glass. By day 46, I finished up digging the tunnel and changed out the dirt to cobble. Then I made a little port for the tunnel and walked around for a little. Next, I built the bridge up until the water and started to make an intersection on the bridge. While looking at the place, I got the idea to make a lighthouse. Hence the intersection. I couldn't really continue more, so I just put all my stuff into a chest. I went back to the previous chest, took some coal, and walked back home. By day 47, I took all the wool and roses and made a set of iron armor. Then I went to tax the sheep outside my house in wool. After that, I traveled back to the end of the bridge and started to install the pillars of the intersection. By the time I was finished, it was night, so I just waited it out. On day 48, I scouted around the local area to find some trees to chop. I gathered some wool, killed a pig, and went back to the bridge to start the bridge offshoot. I finished building the top section by night, and then proceeded to wait out the night. Beta 1.5 added saplings for birch and spruce trees, which drop from their respective types of leaves. Cobwebs are added but unobtainable until beta 1.8. New rail types are added, detector and powered. Detector rails would detect when a minecart rolls over it and outputs a redstone signal. Powered rails would make the minecart go quicker when powered and stop when unpowered. Sleeping through thunderstorms is now possible and fire spreads slower. Grass blocks now have consistent side grass colors instead of neon green. Pigs turn into zombie pigmen and creepers turn into charged creepers when struck by lightning. Inventory management was improved with the addition of shift clicking, which would bring the whole stack between inventories. Weather was introduced. Now I can hear rain without the sound slider. The alternate ladder glitch no longer works. The GUI cannot be changed from small, normal, large, and auto, which today I still don't know what it means. I always guessed that meant automatic. On day 49, I brought some of my stuff from my past chest and started on the lighthouse. But first I had to finish up the bridge. I finished up the pillars and started to terraform the little bump. I went back to get the wool and flowers and made some red wool. I had to look up some reference images because I forgot what a lighthouse looked like. I decided to make a classic red-white lighthouse, but since I didn't have enough red wool, I went out to gather more dye and wool. I didn't think flowers would be hard to find, but I was so wrong. I was literally searching for flowers until nighttime, at which I hid in a hole until morning. On day 50, I made a mad dash for my life and did collect some flowers and wool on my way, and also made some red wool. I made it back to the base of the lighthouse and started to experiment and built it. I built the first section fairly quickly, but then got stuck at the second one. Not only did I run out of wool, I reached a dilemma on how to make something square, round. Anyway, I traversed the land some more in search for more wool and poppies. I did also get some wild game on my journey. I continued to search for dye and wool until nighttime. I returned to the outpost and continued on the lighthouse. I made a couple revisions and ended up on something that didn't look too bad. Then I started to install a wooden floor and stairs so I can go up and down the lighthouse. On day 51, I continued the stairs until I reached the top. I went back down to gather more wool and dye to continue the tower of the lighthouse. Who knew that trying to make a lighthouse was this hard? Since I didn't have enough wool to finish the third section, I just built a little marker so I can imagine what the end result would be. Since animals didn't spawn at night, I just waited it out. On day 52, there was a thunderstorm which confused me because of how dark it was. I knew it would be cloudy, but it was almost as dark as modern Minecraft nights. I still attempted to gather wool with little success and almost died to the spiders. I used what little wool I had left to build more. Then I went back out with a little bit more success of finding sheep. I came back and lit up the lighthouse and almost finished the tower part by literally cutting corners to conserve wool. I had to be really creative with these stairs to maintain ascension. Honestly, the lighthouse ain't looking too bad. Beta 1.5_01 consisted mainly of minor changes. On day 53, I gathered the last bit of wool I needed to finish up the tower. Then I looked up some references for the top and then just made my own. I went back to get some cobble to plant and smelted some for stone. I started to plant the top and continuously go back and forth to check whether it looked good from below. Then I started to change the cobblestone to stone because I was satisfied with how it came out. On day 54, I continued to build a top out. At this point, I was just trying to get some walking space on top. After that, I placed a wooden deck so I can walk around. It took a little bit of messing around, but I ended up with making the staircase just head up straight. I marked the center and then went down to get glass. I then started to install the glass window so I can see out of it and the light can shine through. I went down to see how it looked and it looked alright, so I finished up the glass. Then I traveled all the way back home and made a diamond pickaxe and got all the glowstone I had, which wasn't much. I was hoping that it was a 2x2 crafting recipe, but internally I knew it was 3x3. Since I didn't have a nether portal here, I traveled back to the old house where my nether portal resided. I continued to walk through day 55 and entered my nether portal. I spent the rest of the day and into day 56 gathering less than half a stack of glowstone blocks. Since they only dropped 1 dust, it was 9 blocks broken to 1 block crafted. How annoying is that? Eventually, I made the 27 blocks and walked as quick as my blocky legs can move back to the portal. I had an epic battle with gas which resulted in a tie. I made it back to the overworld and started to travel back to the lighthouse for the rest of the day. Beta 1.5_02 contained minor changes. Beta 1.6 introduced new foliage, grass, ferns, and dead bushes. Trapdoors are also added, although there were only wooden ones. Maps are also added which let the player see more of the world. Beds now explode in the nether when slept in, and fire has been heavily nerfed and don't cause extreme forest fires anymore. Ice regenerates even when it's not snowing in colder biomes. When missing a swing, the 10-tick cooldown has been removed. Shift clicking now also applies to crafting in bulk. Fun fact, this is the first version of a trailer. On day 57, I continued to walk to the lighthouse. Once I made it to the lighthouse, I made a placeholder for the light. I went back down to see how it looked like from below. It looked good, so I smelted more stone and started to make the roof. I was almost finished with the roof, so I started to make the center light. Then I went back down to get more stone, finished up the roof, and started to light up the place like crazy. I replaced the cobble under the deck for continuity's sake. I broke the pillar and then left it floating for some reason. I reorganized and cooked up some food. Then while eating, I realized my food was broken. My meat was infinite. I had infinite meat. I never thought how weird it was until I said it. I then finally placed a stone slab pillar under the light in the lighthouse. On day 58, I started to make a mine to gather stone and found some diamonds in the process. I went back up to make a chest to put all my stone in and then went back to continue mining. Through day 59 and 60, I continued to mine for stone and found many other ores in the process. I ended up with almost a full double chest of stone. Beta 1.6.1 through beta 1.6.5 mainly consisted of minor changes. On day 61, I opened the world and saw a surprise. My steak went from infinite to 119 in a single stack. That's still a lot, so I took it. I made some axes and started to chop trees. I crafted them into planks and started to smelt a bunch of cobblestone. After the addition of cobblestone slabs, I needed smooth stone to make stone slab, which made it a lot harder. I got a couple stacks of slabs and then started to build a support beam. I continued to build into day 62 until I made it to the other side. I went back and all my stone exploded out of my furnaces. I picked up the mess and made some stone slabs. Since I was finished with the beam, I started on the holders. I built until the next day while lighting up the bridge. On day 63, I walked back and got all my wood and cobble to start smelting. Every time I tried to put stuff into furnaces, they would just explode out and I would just have to feed the furnaces twice. It was very repetitive and already annoying enough. I made some iron pickaxes and went down to mine some more. I mined out a bunch of stone out and then went back up to start to collect my stone. Slowly. I made some slabs and by day 64 I started to build the pillars. I kept building but I ran out halfway through. I went back to make even more slabs and continued to make even more pillars. Placing slabs is infuriating because you're basically placing twice as much at half the progress. I kept building until nighttime, but it still wasn't enough. I walked back all the way and started doing the same old smelting cobble again. On day 65, I continued the bridge by mining because I still needed stone. Can you tell that I don't like making the stone bridges? I went back up, put my stone away, and then went back. I found some diamonds while mining, a nice plus. As I was almost up the stairs, I saw more stone on the ground. What is going on here? I reorganized and made some slabs to continue building the pillars. I built and built and built and almost got exploded by a creeper. I finally finished and started walking back to my outpost. On day 66, I grabbed all my cobblestone and continued to build the walkway. I had 6 stacks and could barely finish one of 3 rows of cobble. Meaning, after I finished lighting the bridge, I had to go back down and mine even more stone. I am a dwarf and I'm digging a hole. I finished mining just to finish another row and start on the 3rd one. By day 67, I was going to mine again, but since I depleted my iron so much, I had to smelt more iron for more picks. Diggy diggy hole, diamonds! After clocking out, I finished building the bridge and went back just to put a couple things away. I went back to the other side and waited the night until a beautiful sun arose. On day 68, I scouted around the mountain for a spot for my new base, and decided that it would be a great spot for my new home. I continued to look around and got some pumpkins on my way, as well as some sugarcane. I found some grass, which is still rare for me because I still live in old chunks. I returned to the bridge and walked back to my house by the end of the day. I grabbed some armor and some precious materials with me. Can't forget food on a trip, that's always important. Then I started to go back. On day 69, I continued to go to my chest and organize. Then I walked to the end of the bridge and made stairs going down. Since I was done with the stone section of the bridge, I needed to get wood. I was a little late to gather wood, so I had to go back, but there were skeletons camping my way back. I had to loop around them while getting shot a lot. Eventually, I made it back to the bridge and made a new outpost at the new end of the bridge. I waited through the night because it was too dangerous. On day 70, I walked as quick as possible through the mobs so I can continue to chop more wood. I chopped more trees until it turned night, at which I returned back. I made some planks and continued the bridge. It went all the way until the mountain face. While on the bridge, I got knocked off by a skeleton and had to use my extensive food supply to survive. I went back up to start the tunnel section. Then I finished the wooden part first until morning, though I didn't make the pillars because it was nighttime. On day 71, I made iron pickaxes and started mining. I scaled the mountain to mark an approximate spot for the future base. I continued to mine afterwards until I felt like I was close enough to the marker. Then I started to make an offshoot for a ladder hole. I recessed it a little bit so it would be more independent from the bridge, and then I dug up to see where I would end up. It wasn't too bad of a location, so I lit up the place. I returned down to continue making the tunnel up and had a short break where I got some torches. Then I finished up the hole, but it was missing ladders. I went back to make ladders and then placed them in. Since it was still night, mobs were still around and bugged me every so often while I was trying to change the dirt into cobble. Lastly, I lit up the tunnel. On day 72, I started my new base. Construction was started for a castle of epic proportions, or at least as epic as a beta castle can be, I guess. I first demarked the border and started excavating. Since the castle is a little bigger than the area I placed it in, there were some hanging spots and I almost died while trying to mark the border. After that, I spent the rest of the day digging, through sun and night, dry and rain. By the time it was morning, I made huge progress on the terraforming. I continued to dig through all of day 73. It took a while, but not as long as I expected. I built a little bit of the wall and then went back to get wood. On day 74, I returned to the foundation and made a lot of planks. I destroyed all of the torches so I can start building the first floor. I finished the floor and then used my leftover cobble to start building the walls. I continued until I finished the the first floor walls and then built a marker for the rest of the floors. I went down to see how it looked like and I could already imagine how it would come out. I returned to the old outpost to get whatever I needed. I took some random stuff like wool, but food. You always need food. By the time I returned back to the castle, mobs had started spawning. I killed them off and then started to light up the place so they don't come back. I continued to build the first wall until it was at the height I wanted, which was apparently at the clouds. Since I was on the verge of running out of cobble, I made some iron pickaxes and crashed my game. What I did was I attempted to shift click an item into a chest that was full, which led to a crash. Now I had to be careful not to overfill a chest. I encountered a skeleton, so I led it to the ladder hole. The skeleton fell down and I just helped it a little to die twice, since it was already a skeleton, so already died. I returned to the mine by day 75 and mined for the majority of the day. Then I returned to the castle to continue placing the walls. I reorganized, and since the walls were high enough, I started to place the second floor. On day 76, I went down to the local forest to log because I ran out of wood. I logged until nighttime, at which I returned to keep making the second floor and making sure it was lit. Once I was finished, I started on the third floor and continued until morning. On day 77, I finished up the third floor. Then I made the battlements and then lit up the place. Since the walkway from the bridge to the castle has been neglected, I thought it would be a good time to make it safer and then proceed to neglect it again by moving items into the castle. I walked back and forth and so on, destroying outposts and bringing the materials. The lone chests, crafting tables, furnaces, and even checking the mine shafts for items. I also went back to the now old house to collect any items of importance. Unlike last time, I didn't move everything. This took me until day 80 and still they weren't even organized. Beta 1.6.6 changed the material of glowstone from glass to stone, which makes it now require a pickaxe to mine. Redstone, torches, and levers can now be placed on glowstone and they drop 2 to 4 dust when broken instead of 1. Crafting cost was reduced from 9 dust to 4. Same change affected wool. This version was also the first version to be released on console. On day 81, I spent like half the day making a grand staircase. It had 4 different stairs on 2 sides. I ended up making the stairs more block-like by filling under it with wood. I also planned another fireplace because I just loved them. Then I went up to start setting up the new chests. First, I placed the furnaces around where the chimney would be. It's just that I would never make a chimney. Then I placed the chests and crafting tables and made it symmetrical. I spent the rest of the day and into day 82 to organize all my chests. It was a pretty annoying ordeal. I made some paintings to decorate some more, kind of reminiscent of the old house. I started on making the fireplace and doing some fire prevention measures so it doesn't burn down the floors. I made a ladder up to the roof so I can access it. While organizing my chest, I had smelted clay so now I can make bricks and use it for the fireplace. Then I added fire and tried to make it as realistic as possible. Not even a minute passed and fire almost broke out, so I used slabs to stop it. On day 83, I explored and tried to find more clay. I did find out that clay was extremely rare and completely disregarded it. I should have paid attention. I did not find any clay in my day of exploration, so instead, I just conserved the bricks and placed it where it looked the best. I finished up and cleaned up the place. Then I just waited until the next day. On day 84, I grabbed a couple pickaxes and shovels and started to make a new mine. I mined down for what felt like forever and then went back up to restock and organize. I made more tools and continued to mine down more. Beta 1.7 introduced pistons, which is from a mod made by Hippopotamus, who gave code to help Jeb in implementation. Bricks and cobblestone got a texture change. Cobwebs require a sword or shears to break and drops 1 string. Also, shears were added. It's required to obtain leaves and wool from sheep, which drop 1 to 3 wool. This also coincided with the removal of sheep punching for wool. Punching no longer lights TNT and requires a flint steel. The silverfish texture was added, but currently there was no mob. Beta 1.7 also had a trailer for it. On day 85, I started to make a piston door because I was kinda sick of regular doors. I made some pistons and other things, then went down to build it. I was just planning to make a 2x2 piston door. First, I placed the pistons and then wired it up. Since the castle was hanging over a cliffside sort of, I dug through the floor. It worked, so I hit all the machinery, and yes, I know mobs can log in because of my pressure plates. This is probably the most fun thing I did all video. I started to smelt some sand and built the arches on the bridge. Since it wasn't too big, I had enough to build the arches but not enough glass. One section takes like a stack and a half of glass, which is a lot of glass. I made a couple of shovels and stealthily gathered sand in the night. It didn't work, I got recognized anyways. I went back and smelted it for the rest of the day. On day 86, I collected my glass and went out to put in the glass. After I added a little pizzazz to the mine, I continued to mine the tunnel. It didn't take too long. Then I made some axes and went down to gather some wood. I went back to the bridge and continued to build through the night. I started to build the holders, but I went back because of the skeletons. I didn't want to die again at the end of the 100 days. Before the morning, I started to head out and collected wood through day 87. After that, I continued the holders and started the path. I finished building the path and then lit it up. I continued another couple of sections and then started to build more wooden arches. By early morning and into day 88, I started to place the pillars. Since it's right next to the mountain, I went to get more glass. I went up to smelt it and then waited for it to be finished. Then I climbed down to finish up the glass protection. Beta 1.7.2 consisted mainly of minor changes. On day 89, I got some tools that went down to mine. I strip mined for 4 days, making trips back every so often to put away my findings. I found many diamonds through my expedition. I also found a lot of coal, iron, gold, lapis, and redstone as well. I also mined into a dungeon. It had some good loot in it, but nothing special. All my stuff got replenished to a good level. Beta 1.7.3 fixed some piston duplication glitches. On day 93, I organized a little and went down to gather wood. Then I returned back home to smell a bunch of cobblestone. This will be important later. On day 94, I went back and placed the pillars on the mountain entrance before the castle because I apparently forgot. After that, I continued to smelt more stone and started making spots for the towers. The stone I've been smelting all this time are for the towers, but not yet. Don't mind the floating tower spots. They are completely stable. I returned home after finishing the areas and cooked some food. Then I just waited through the night. On day 95, I made another expedition to explore the lands. I made some boats to travel faster on the water. The land is really becoming livelier with more variety. I hunted some pigs on the way. Since the sun was starting to set, I started to return back home. I hopped on my boat and not even a second later, a creeper snuck up on me and exploded. At least I only lost my diamond pickaxe. Well, actually, I also lost my glitched food, which might have been more of a loss. I spent the rest of the day walking back. On day 96, I made a pit stop at my old house and raided the food chest and grabbed a set of armor and some other stuff. I made it back home and put away all my stuff. I grabbed my diamonds and made a whole set of tools and armor. It evoked a feeling of accomplishment that was different from modern versions. Diamond armor is no longer hard to obtain, but this was hard. I processed some ores and collected my stone. Apologies if I missed anything in this version because Beta 1.8 was a pretty big version. One of the most controversial updates in Minecraft. Beta 1.8, otherwise known as the Adventure Update, introduced many major changes. First and foremost, the new hunger system. Food now replenishes the hunger bar instead of health. Most food can stack up to 64 and the food level goes down when an action is performed. When hunger is above 90%, it heals the player half a heart every 4 seconds, and when it's at 0%, the player loses half a heart every 4 seconds. Sprinting was also introduced and diminishes the hunger bar. Sprinting now allows the player to jump over 4 block gaps now. Previously, it was 2. This greatly enhanced the gameplay since now you can traverse quicker. Raw chicken restores 2 hunger and has a 30% chance of giving the hunger effect. Cooked chicken restores 6 hunger, raw beef restores 3 hunger, cooked beef restores 8 hunger and uses the old pork chop texture. Melons were added and slices restore 2 hunger. They are harvested from melons and are used to craft melon seeds. Pumpkin seeds are used to grow pumpkins and can be found in dungeon chests. Raw flesh restores 4 hunger with an 80% chance of giving the hunger effect. Cooked pork chops got a texture update because of the addition of cooked beef. Mushroom stew now restores 8 hunger instead of 10 health. Golden apples restore 10 hunger and gives regeneration for 30 seconds instead of 20 health. The new experience system added XP that dropped from mobs on death. Right now, there's not much usage to it. Many blocks were added. Stone bricks, slabs, and stairs were added with mossy and cracked variants. Infested stone was also added with variants of stone, cobble, and stone bricks. Regular brick slabs and stairs were also added. Mushroom blocks, both red and brown, and mushroom stems were introduced and obtained from a tall mushroom. Tall mushrooms are grown from bone mealing mushrooms and don't naturally spawn. Leaves don't decay when placed by players, and shears can be used to obtain grass, as well as vines, which is also added. Chests now have a new model and are a little bit smaller than a full block. Pressure plates can be placed on fences and textures for mossy cobblestone change. Glass panes and iron bars need 6 of the respective materials to craft, and fence gates require 4 sticks and 2 planks. Beta 1.8 added many mobs and changed some. Cave spiders are smaller variants of spiders and they can give the player poison. Endermen are 3 blocks tall and use zombie sounds as a placeholder. They can teleport around the map and are able to place and pick up blocks. Pre-release versions of 1.8 had Endermen with black particles and green eyes instead of purple eyes and portal particles. When looking at their face, they will start to get hostile and attack the player. They cannot go into water, otherwise they'll start to take damage. They also drop an ender pearl when killed. Silverfish were added with the texture that was previously added. They spawn from infested blocks in strongholds. Skeletons now drop arrows as well as bones. Since bows now need to be charged to shoot, it also applies to skeletons. They also now hold full-size bows instead of the item texture. You can now block with a sword and do critical hits, which deal more damage. They also changed many passive mobs. Pig snouts now protrude, chickens now drop 1 chicken, and cows drop 1 to 3 beef. They both drop the cooked variation of the meat they drop when killed with fire. New biomes were introduced. They include new oceans that replace the old ocean. The new oceans are now bigger, deeper, and the ocean floor is composed of dirt, clay, and sand. Clay is now more common. Plains and deserts increased in size. Extreme hills had a mountain generation update. Tigers no longer spawn snow because of generation problems. Swamps were added with oak trees that spawned with vines. Rivers are also added and spawn flowing through biomes. The farlands were removed, as well as many other old biomes. They include seasonal forests, rainforests, shrublands, savannas, tundras, and ice deserts, though ice deserts never spawn. The old beaches and gravel beaches were also removed. New structures were added. Mine shafts spawned underground with wooden supports and chests strewn around that contained loot. Ravines were added and were huge crevices in the ground that had exposed ores. Strongholds were added and contained loot, but there wasn't any end portal room yet. Villages are composed of houses, but as of right now, they do not have any inhabitants. A new game mode was introduced, Creative. Creative mode let the player obtain most items in the game. The player can fly and cannot be killed unless they fall into the void. They can also break previously unbreakable blocks like bedrock. When transitioning from night to day and day to night, the light no longer updates in waves, instead updating more gradually to look less harsh. Beta 1.8 also added status effects. Regeneration increases health slowly and is gone from golden apples. Hunger decreases the hunger bar quicker and is gone from raw flesh and raw chicken. Poison deals damage to the player every so often and is gone from cave spiders. The main menu background is now a panorama of a world instead of a dirt background. These are the details for the world and where it was at. Beta 1.8 had a trailer as well. On day 97, I fixed the lighting issues and put all my food into one stack. I grabbed my stone and went down to make it into stone bricks. I started to build the towers and they actually looked good. There was a skeleton, so I killed it with subpar juking skills. I continued on the other 3 towers, which took me most of the day. By the end of the day, I made some iron bars and changed the slabs to bars. And then I slept through the night. On day 98, I made some boats and went on another exploration. I walked on my bridge to the staircase that goes down to the ground. I traveled for a long time while killing some animals. Since there's actually clay now, I can finish my fireplace. I killed the local animal population and found a taiga biome. I chopped a couple of trees and grabbed the sapling for safekeepings. I also found some exposed ore in the ground, which I took. I kept killing more animals and found a giant slab of ice and skated on it to the other side and saw a swamp. I ran around the swamp doing the usual and started to head back to the base. It was a rough journey since it was nighttime, but I had animals company. Oh wait. By day 99, I was close to the bridge because the land started to be flatter. I found the bridge and walked back to my brooding castle. I cooked my food and the few iron ore I got. I put away my stuff and smelted my clay as well. I collected some stuff and made a clock. I made some bricks to fully convert the fireplace to bricks and also changed the slabs to brick stairs. I went outside to light my surroundings, but I had some uninvited guests on my property. I added edge slabs on the fireplace and made a little table and couch, though the couch is wooden. Then I put away my stuff and went to bed. On day 100, I used the then new bow mechanics on a skeleton. It felt weird even though I've been playing on those mechanics for years. I went back to my chest and grabbed some cacti and sugarcane for a farm. I walked onto the bridge and jumped into the water to grab some, but the water was a little weird. It didn't make the block I took into a source block, just left it flowing. Then I made an infinite water source and started to flatten the ground for the sugarcane farm. I only made a couple rows before I started to make the cactus farm. I made sure to space the cacti so it wouldn't destroy each other when broken. I went back to the sugarcane and extended it a little. For my sanity, I also made all the water into sources and not flowing. By nighttime, I realized that mobs could spawn on the towers, so I lit them up. And as quickly as it started, it ended. And now the 100 days are over. But now we can get to the world tour. So this one will be split into 2 parts, a beta part and an alpha part. We're going to do the beta part first because I'm already here and it's easier to do that instead of doing the alpha first. So firstly, the castle, or technically the castle's made last, but we can gloss over that. Basically this castle is my new base of operations. I got my chests, furnaces, and all my items in here. All my good stuff, and I have a lot of good stuff. A full set of diamond armor and a full set of tools. We got our paintings. They are a little bit off because of the lighting from changing versions so quickly. And we got our fireplace. It is completely fireproof, I made sure. Got my chair, I don't know what it's called, and my table to sit here. I don't know who would sit here, but it's whatever. Got my stairs, and then this is my way of exiting. Just do it. This is my front entrance. It's a nice piston door that I made in 1.7. Got a sugarcane farm and a cactus farm. And then you have a nice view over everything. I keep forgetting that you can run in 1.8 now. You have a great vista, a grand vista of all the lands below. It's a little bit of old generation, but you can see a little bit of grass from the newer versions. And the way to go to the bridge from this castle is through here. So let's go down to the bridge, and we got a nice little tunnel here so we don't get shot at or exploded at or hit at during nighttime. We go down the ladder, and here we're at the bridge. Going here, we're going to the end of the bridge, which there's nothing exciting over here because it's just a bridge. Now we're gonna head over to the other parts. Okay, so the lighthouse is right over there, and see what's happening. And we have our glowstone light, which does not project light at all because if you unless you look up, you won't see the light. The stairs are a little cramped up here, but it's fine. And then we got a little watchtower. We can watch over the bridge and the water and a little bit up here on the mountains. And that's pretty much it for the lighthouse. There's not really much over here. Well, now it's raining. The rain is loud. I don't know why. As we go down here, I never actually finished the lighthouse because I just left it here as here. Originally, I was gonna put some stone and some staircase here, but I guess I never got to that. So that's the lighthouse. The lighthouse is nothing important, nothing very like big or like influential to this world, but it's a nice landmark that is a little bit different from the 100 Days in Alpha, because in Alpha I only built houses. In this one, I built actually a lighthouse. I don't know what I'm saying. And here's another mine shaft to get stone or whatever for the stone portion of the bridge. Okay. I almost ran past this, but this is also kind of it's not as important as anything else, but it's just a little notable point because instead of breaking this tree down, I just placed the bridge directly through the tree. There's nothing special with this. It's just because I wanted to just dig through the tree instead of breaking it down. I thought it looked better if I just made the bridge go through the tree. And now we're approaching the last Alpha house. So now we're going to the Alpha tour. So now that we're back in the Alpha portion of the world, this is a little offshoot for this house. This house is like the first house, but a bigger version. You got this bed. This was made because there was no beds in Alpha, obviously. So I made a representation of a bed, and it just for decoration. I don't know. The chests look all ugly because of lighting, but my food is all, or my stuff is in here. I never brought over all the stuff from this house to the castle because too much stuff. And honestly, there's not much of a point of bringing all this stuff. Out here, we have a little lit portion of the area. I lit up this area around my house. I have the dock, which has a couple boats in it. I don't know if there's any boats left. I think there is. I never used all the boats, and I did replace some of the boats, I think. So there's a couple boats in there. There's a little drifter. And then we have this farm. It's since been trampled. This zombie is stuck in this like whirlpool of water. Yeah, this farm has been trampled, I think, by spiders, because I don't know. I mean, mobs are a little weird in the previous versions, and yeah, in previous versions you could walk and trample your crops. So I don't know. But that's basically it. There's a basement, I think. Yeah, there's a basement to this house. If you look outside from this house, you can see like a hump right there. That's because of this. This staircase coincided with because the house is on a hill. So if I put a staircase through the hill, it'll pop out the hill. So I have to cover it with some dirt. And this is the basement. It is a lot smaller, and it's kind of like the first floor of the castle, but a little different. We got paintings and we got a fireplace. And I like making fireplaces because it's interesting. It's nice to have. It makes it feel like cozy and like warm and stuff. And then this is go down, and then you see the mine. Okay, so that's that. That's this house. This house is, you know, nothing special, but it is bigger than the previous house. Here's another mine shaft for the stone for the bridges. And we have like the weird generation of world and like the reassignment of biomes. It creates this like weird like half iced up oceans. Okay, so this is, if I'm not mistaken, the first, or okay, is it the first mine shaft on the bridge? So this mine goes down. It's a little bit different. It's like a little platform offshoot from the wooden bridge. I already hate this. You know what? Basically just to get stone. I mined out a huge room just for stone and some mine shafts. There's nothing in this anymore because I took all of it out. I hate the mist. I hate it. And now we're heading over to the first tunnel. And now we're returning to the beginning, the start of all of it. And yeah, this actually has wooden like fences. It was because I was experimenting with fences when they were added, and I was seeing what I could do with it. It was a little weird, so I just stopped it, and it was too expensive to keep on going. And this is the original house. So furnaces are a little weird. They place a little weird, that's why it's just a sideways. The chests, there's not many chests here, and I took everything out when I moved to the second house. There's not much stuff going on here. This is the first mine shaft, if I remembered. I think there's another one maybe, but I think this is the first actual one I made. This goes down. I think there's a mine. I think there's a strip mine right here, or a single tunnel one. Let's see. Yeah, there is one. It's basically it's one line. Oh no, it's a cave. Oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot it was a cave. Alpha caving was scary. So let's go outside. I mean, there's nothing special about this. This is just alpha terrain. We have our little bit of farm. This is the nether portal. I'll go inside it, like I guess to show like the beginning part, but I'm not gonna go too far. Okay, so we're in the nether. I don't know where I went. I think it was this location. There was nothing special in the nether. All it had was glowstone and pigment and netherrack. And I don't even know if there's soul sand in this version. But yeah, this is the nether terrain. It's kind of barren. I'm going out here because there's gas everywhere. But there was so many gas when I first entered the nether. I have no idea why. But I think as far as I know, that is it for the world tour. I don't know if I'm missing anything. I don't think I am. Well, if you want to know something, the spawn is over there somewhere. I walked over here. The spawn is in that direction. I don't know where the spawn is. There's only so many things I can remember after so long. But I'll leave the download for the worlds for all the versions of the world because I kept backups of it. You guys can download it and check it out and see what happens. But that is the end of the world tour, and I'll see you later. Well, that's it. Another 100 days in Minecraft. We made a lot more progress. A lighthouse, a castle, and that damn bridge. While making the tour, I realized even that was brief, and then an idea popped up. Would you guys want me to stream a fuller breakdown / Q&A of the world? I feel like I'll be able to explain more in a stream and maybe give some behind the scenes stories. I don't know. You decide. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and who knows? Maybe an epic battle will ensue next. Welcome to the final 100 days of Minecraft. This time the game has finally been released. We will be going from 1.0 all the way to 1.20, though it will be split into two parts. The first part, this one, will be from 1.0 to 1.10. The second part will be from 1.11 to 1.20. Each version will be composed of two parts, an informational / overview part, and then the gameplay part. The world tour will be on a separate stream on Friday, August 18th. There will also be channel announcements on that stream as well. Thank you for all the success on the previous two parts. I really do appreciate it. And if you're new here, please do consider subscribing and maybe even check out my other stuff. Without further ado, here we go. Minecraft 1.0 was released on November 18th, 2011. Apparently it was also called the Adventure Update Part 2, which I actually didn't know that. 1.0 was the first full release of the game and was released during Minecon 2011, where Notch flipped a huge lever down marking the release. The end dimension was the third dimension to be added. The main end island is made of endstone with huge obsidian towers circling it. There is a dragon, and when the dragon is killed, it will spawn an ender dragon egg and an exit portal. Once the player enters it, it will play the credits and the poem after. The Ender Dragon is the first, quote, boss mob and gives Minecraft an end, sort of. Strongholds now generate a portal room which requires Eyes of Ender to open the portal. Endermen can not only carry some blocks and actually have sounds instead of zombie placeholders. Originally, the end was supposed to be the sky dimension, but it was later scrapped. There were many reasons to its change, from Notch wanting to work on other parts of the game, and to its similarity to the Aether mod. But in a statement by Jeb, he said that, quote, it didn't work so well because of how light is calculated. The sky dimension originally had this top-down light that the overworld has, so you get like shadows in caves and such. But performance-wise, it didn't work. It was extremely slow, end quote. Nether fortresses are huge structures with many rooms and quarters that spawn in the nether. It is composed of nether bricks, stairs, and fences, and in certain rooms, netherward spawns. Blazes spawn from spawners and drop blaze rods when killed. Those blaze rods can be used to craft Eyes of Enders and to brew potions. Potions are brewed in brewing stands with bottles of water. Magma cubes spawn in the nether and are like slimes. Gas also now drop gas tears upon death. In the overworld, many new biomes are added, one of which, the Mushroom Islands, are rare biomes that generate with mycelium, which are kind of like the nemesis of grass. Giant mushrooms naturally spawn, and mushrooms, a cow variant, also spawn. When milked with a bowl, they give mushroom stew. Lily pads now spawn in swamps. Cauldrons were added and can be filled with water. Snow golems can be made with 2 blocks of snow placed on top of each other, pumpkin on top. When walking, they leave a snow path and throw snowballs at mobs. Villagers were added and spawned in villages. They had the same AI as pigs and couldn't be traded with. 9 new music discs were added. 11 blocks, chirp, far, maw, mellow high, stall, strad, and ward. Animals can now be bred with wheat, and heart particles will come out when breeding. Tools and armor can now be enchanted with enchantments via the enchanting table, which gives special properties to the tools like mining faster or more durability. They can also be repaired in the crafting menu by combining 2 of the same item. In world creation, hardcore mode was also added. When in a hardcore world, the player only has 1 life, and when the player is killed, they are forced to delete the world. The health bar also looks a little bit different in hardcore. Many textures were changed. Beds no longer spawn mobs, instead the message, you may not rest now. Fences now connect to solid blocks, and the hitbox is no longer a full block like glass panes or iron bars. When a tool breaks, it plays a sound effect. Golden apples has an enchanted effect, and milk resets all effects. The moon now has phases which change from night to night. The armor system has been improved and armor has more durability. Tooltips for rare items are also pink. On the screen, there is a rare chance for Minscraft to show. It's around a 1 in 10,000 chance. Minecraft 1.0 was originally supposed to be Beta 1.9, but after 6 pre-releases, it was changed to Release 1.0 and pushed back to Minecon 2011. On day 1, I wanted to explore the new features of this update, specifically the Nether. Well, since I didn't have a Nether portal, I went to grab some water and then went down to my mine to get obsidian. I didn't even check if I had any spare left, I just went straight down. In the tunnel I mined through previously, I found some lava and tried to make a spot for me to get obsidian. I didn't know there was a cave above this. It took me a little, but I got the obsidian necessary and ran back up. A flint and steel was needed, so I just got one for my chest. I made another portal and then went in. It was not good. As soon as I entered the Nether, I was greeted by a gas. Good thing I still had my flint and steel in case this portal got blown up. I took out my bow and started to shoot the ghast. It not only successfully shot the fireball back, but also killed it. I made a quick box around the portal and marked my coordinates before I started to adventure in the dangerous environment of hell. It was not the most riveting adventure, but I did make towers to try to mark where I've been. I kept wandering with my dirt crumbs and broken clock until I saw another fortress in the middle of lava. I made the unwise decision to make a treacherous dirt bridge to the fortress. Then I realized that there was a safer exit, but I never used it. Some blazes spawned in the tunnel, and to be honest, the only real reason I was there was for blaze rods. But I did find some nether wart. Throughout the rest of day 1 and into a little bit of day 2, I continued to get blaze rods while also trying not to die from fire and explosions. I didn't die, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. While trying to get back, I ran as quick as I could through the bridge, but when I got to the first part, a gas spawned at the other end. I hid and hoped that they would go away, but they didn't. And I also didn't neglect to mention that there wasn't only one. When I thought the one that was near the bridge was gone, I sprinted, and before I made it, it was back. I proceeded to kill it, grabbed its tears, and ran as quick as humanly possible back home. Well, not really. I took a detour for some mushrooms, but I got home. But not safely though. After I got back home, my inventory was packed, so I cleaned it up. Since I got these new resources, I wanted to experience potions for the first time. I made a brewing stand and a nether wart farm, but kept one to brew awkward potions. After I finished those, since I had so many blaze rods, I made blaze powder and added to the potions, which ended up being strength. You learn something new every day. Well, I have these potions, so let's make these better, by making them last longer. I actually never got to drink these potions in the end. Foreshadowing. The sugarcane farm was fully grown, so I harvested it and looked at my home that I haven't seen in months. It was sort of good to be back. In the early hours of day 3, I left to explore and hope that there was something new. I made a boat and also got 2 achievements. Oh, achievements. Too bad they're gone now, at least on Java. While on this trek, I made sure to go perpendicularly from my bridge so I don't load chunks in front of my bridge. Since boats are still stupid, I had to keep making new boats when I encountered water. Oh hey, the rain stopped. After I went through the taiga biome and killing some pigs in the process, I saw the chunk line and found new terrain. I traveled into the new terrain for a little bit and then followed the chunk line until I reached some new plains. I collected some seeds and past the plains there's a snowy tundra biome where I dug some snowballs for safekeeping. There were many animals in the snow, so with sword in hand, I went ham. No pun intended, it just sounded nice. There was also a ravine nearby, so I descended into it and mined some coal and iron, but during that I made a little hole to cook my game. After I finished mining, I returned back and refined my iron until day 4. But on day 4, I had enough of the snow, so I started my return journey. During that journey in the snow part, I wanted to keep food on stock, so yeah, and more. The tundra was big, but eventually I saw the plains and half retraced my steps through the chunk line and old terrain back to my castle. But by the time I made it back, the day was already over. So I did what every sensible person would do. Clean up and cook. Not everyone does that, but the night was dangerous, so I also slept. Sweet dreams. What I neglected to mention was I also took bones out last night in the hopes that today I will find myself a dog. I didn't even make a boat this time, which in hindsight was probably a bad idea. I'm pretty sure I saw dogs before my trip, so I knew that dogs spawn pretty commonly in taigas, so I just went back to the taiga I found before. I found not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 dogs. And yes, I had to say all of that. My heart couldn't take leaving one of them alone, so I befriended all of them, and good thing I had enough bones. I made the harrowing journey back home, through land and water, thick and thin. When I got to the base of the castle mountain, I tested my dog's ability by punching a sheep. I kinda felt bad for the sheep. It looked scared. Who am I lying? I don't care. All 4 of them came back with no serious injury. Not all. I brought them upstairs and made them some dyes, only to realize that dyeing colors wasn't a thing yet. No biggie, I just named them with science and assigned colors I wanted. Their names were Buddy, who would be blue, Ukulele, who would be orange, and that was about it. I didn't know what to name the rest, so I gave them random names and assigned colors based on their names. Oh, Buddy and Yuki will always be in my heart. Sunny? Lavender? Never heard of them, and that knocked out cold. On day 6, I went back to my old friend Nemesis, my friend Mrs. The bridge, or whatever you want to call it. I crafted some axes and went outside to scout a good location for my tree chopping. Going back home, I realized that there was a missing block on the tower, so I grabbed a stone brick and plugged the hole. After that, I went back to my old regular tree chopping ways to keep expanding the bridge. but I did replant the trees. I'm not that evil. I did this for the rest of the day and into the nighttime, which is dangerous because of all the occasional mobs. I also tried to get an ender pearl, but the enderman would just not die. He was a pain and kept teleporting, and in the end, I didn't get one. I sadly went back home and made more axes. For a little bit of day 7, I chopped even more, but I got sick of it and stopped. I realized at the end of the beta video, I never added a sign demarking the end of the bridge, so I made one. Right after the sign, I started to build more of the bridge, up until another body of water. And at this point, bridge plus water gave me trauma. So what I did, instead of going into that, I tried to build the pillars and hopefully not die from mobs, because at this point, it was night. I returned home and got some stone and smelted it. Still don't know why I try to continue this style of stone slabs, even with the knowledge that it makes everything way harder. But I did keep some cobblestone with me to build the pillars that extended underwater because that's just how I built them. But I pushed through, and by day, got the rest of the wood I needed and finished the section of the bridge. Just the supports though. I looked longingly into the sea, trying to reduce my cortisol levels, and then, screw it, I just finished the path section. Well, sort of. I had to get some more wood and then swam out like an idiot to finish it. Lighting is key, kids. Don't forget. I took out the stone out of my furnaces and made slabs, then got more cobble for the next day. When I woke up on day 9, I went down to the end of the bridge to face my enemy, the water. It was nothing special, in fact, extremely infuriating. Look, if people want me to upload the whole raw footage of this, what's wrong with you? The slabs took forever to place because there were half blocks, and every time I went down to place the pillars, I would always run out of air because the water is so deep. I basically ran out of everything, so I just watched stone smelt. It was a nice break from this back-breaking labor. By day 10, I built like there was no tomorrow because I wanted to explore the village ahead. I sped around the supports that took forever, the path which sucked to place, and the lighting that I surprisingly got used to placing. After that, I built a little staircase down and went down to explore the village. By exploring, I mean ransacking, and by ransacking, I mean civilly ransacking, by not just destroying everything. You could say I was helping. By the time I was finished, it was nighttime, so I went home and hit the hay. Minecraft 1.1 was released on January 12, 2012. This version was relatively small and had no minor versions. Spawn eggs are creative items that can spawn a specific mob. These are the following mobs that have eggs. Fence gates now match collision boxes with regular fences and are openable with redstone. Oak leaves have a 0.5% chance of dropping apples. Bows are now enchantable. All music discs, except disc 11, are dropped from creepers that are killed from skeletons. Magma cubes now drop magma cream. Sheep now eat grass to regrow their wool. Super flat is a world type that is completely flat and composed of grass, dirt, and bedrock, with the occasional village if the option is on. Blacksmiths in the village now have chests that contain loot. On day 11, something I wanted to try to get were music discs. So I made some pistons and then went outside to set the trap and then test it. But there wasn't really a way of getting out without breaking. Then I broke it down completely because I want to set up when it was nighttime, so in the meantime I gathered more wood. The bridge and its omnipresence demands more materials. I have to give it what it wants. By nighttime, the time was now. Wait, hold on, there's spiders. I quickly assembled the traps and lured the skeleton in. That was easy. Too easy. But creepers. Oh, creepers. Those are a lot harder, especially when there was a skeleton following it. And then it was apparent that the skeleton was too far away from the creeper, so I built a little tunnel and lured it through it while not being exploited by the creeper behind me. It took some more patience and time, but soon enough, the skeleton was shooting the creeper. Not always though. And finally, after so much work, it died! I got a disc. It was Strad. One of my favorites, actually. I didn't care for another one, so I just wanted to play it, but the mobs wouldn't lay off. I made a jukebox and then played with my dogs. It was great, but a new day was already here. I was still in the mood to get more discs, but I couldn't since it was day. But I have an excellent pastime, and no, it's not guns. Actually, it's really boring, chopping more trees. At last, nighttime. I cleaned up the previous trap, and learning from last night, I put the traps closer together, but I lost one piston because I didn't pick up the broken one. Unlike last time, this skeleton was way harder to trap. It kept walking around my pressure plates instead of going through. I couldn't take any more of it, so I made another piston and replaced the cobblestone with the piston. I caught a creeper, but that was a mistake. While trying to capture a skeleton, I walked between the traps, and the creeper blew up. Again, I was left with one less piston, but I didn't make another one this time. I eventually got the skeleton to be trapped, and with my luck, I looked at an enderman by accident. After one hit, it disappeared. Weird. I caught a creeper finally after so much luring. At least this night isn't a total waste. It died and I was trying to get the disc, but the skeleton wouldn't quit it. It was Maul. It was now day 13, but I saw an enderman and wanted its ball. I tried killing it, but again, it teleported so many times that I lost it. So I went back home and played Maul. I wanted to make an enchantment table, but didn't have the obsidian, so I took some from my nether pearl on the nether side, where it was dangerous. I tried making a book and didn't realize that paper had to be in a certain way and not just 3 pieces of paper. Finally, the enchantment table was made and I enchanted all of my armor and tools. They were all sort of mediocre, but how much could you ask for when they were all low-level enchantments? I made some torches and ran out to the end of the bridge to continue the bridge onto the village. It's the same old, but I thought it was really cool that my bridge was going directly over a village. By the time I made it to the end, it was nighttime, so I placed torches while building supports, so it doesn't become a monster-ridden bridge. But there were already mobs, and there were skeletons. One of the worst mobs to spawn on a one-block bridge. I accidentally looked at an enderman and it teleported, which made me fall all the way down. I didn't have my sword out, which made it way worse, so I ran to a big body of water and it killed it. No pro though. I finished the supports and then the path because I correctly assumed that the ground was too dangerous. But then I started on the pillars and broke the dirt staircase I made. I continued to build through day 14 until I ran out of wood. So I went to the local forest, which was a lot greener than the forest next to my castle. I gathered more wood, and by nighttime I finished the path. After I finished, I still have time left, so sprinting down the path, caught a skeleton and 3 creepers. The first one dropped chirp, the second blocks, and the third another strad. But actually, on day 15 there were still creepers, so I got more. I trapped another creeper, which dropped another blocks. What were these duplicates? The last I got dropped ward. I walked back home, put away the dupes, and played the new ones. I played through blocks and ward, but I like chirp the most, and then I put the discs away. Since I still needed more wood, so I chopped until it was nighttime. Again. Before sleeping, I ordered my inventory and slept like a log. Minecraft 1.2 was released on March 1st, 2012. Jungles were added and are composed of very dense forests of jungle trees, which also means there's a new tree type, jungle, which also brought a new set of logs, leaves, saplings, and wood planks. Wooden planks for birch and spruce were also added. Ocelots spawn in jungles and can be tamed with fish to turn into cats. A spawn egg was added with it. Desert wells now spawn in deserts and are pretty useless. In villages, iron golems can spawn but can also be made with 4 iron blocks and a T formation and a pumpkin on top. They will attack any hostile mobs. Chiselstone bricks were added but were exclusive to creative. More sandstone variants were added with previously unused textures. Redstone lamps were introduced and are crafted with redstone and glowstone. Some textures were changed, vines can be climbed, and lava now makes a faint rumbling sound with occasional particles popping out of it. When shift-clicking applicable items, they will go into the respective slot in the furnace. Bottle of enchanting were added and can be thrown to get experience, but were creative exclusive. Fire charges can be used to set fire and can be fired out dispensers. Zombies can now break doors on the hard difficulty and has a rare chance of dropping tools, armor, if wearing, or an iron ingot. They will also chase villagers, sometimes even ignoring the player. Skeletons can drop their bow, and zombie pigmen can drop gold helmets, ingots, or swords. The world file format has been updated again from Make Region to the Anvil file format. Height limits were increased from 128 blocks to 256 blocks. Worlds in the alpha level format will no longer show, and the message "must be converted" pops up. On day 16, I left my castle and went to the end of the bridge. My main goal was to find a jungle because I love jungles and I wanted to make a treehouse. I ran through the desert and found a ravine and actually almost fell into it. After I made it out of the forest, I saw a jungle. I was ecstatic. As I went closer, I realized it wasn't as it seems. It was like a chunk era jungle and not a full jungle. I went further to no avail. It was the smallest jungle I've ever seen, but that doesn't matter. I still found a jungle. I picked a spot where I wanted to start my new treehouse and then walked in a straight line back to my bridge. As I continued back to my bridge, I realized how far it is and I realized how much of an investment it would be. When I got back up on the bridge, I marked a spot where I'll be making the offshoot from. I made some simple calculations and realized internally that this was expensive, really expensive. So I went to see if there was a closer jungle on the other side, going past old chunks into a swamp and then continue into another plains biome. When I saw the coordinates, I realized that there is not a jungle here and we're already as far as we would be on the other side. Demoralized, I returned to my bridge as quick as possible with mobs following. I can't really tell what I'm doing here, but I was probably weighing my options with what material type I should build with. Stone. The obvious option was stone. It was the most plentiful and quickest to gather in large amounts because wood was a terrible idea. I returned home, placed some chests, and literally made a ton of pickaxes and torches. Throughout day 17 and 18, I gathered around a double chest of cobblestone, and since I didn't have stone, I had to smelt it for smooth slabs. I still really don't know why I continued to build like that, but I guess I did. Maybe I wanted to keep the style. By day 19, I left to make the offshoots at the spot I marked and then make a bridge girder until the jungle. This was a horrible mistake, but I still did it. When I came back, I took some cobble and smooth stone with me to start fleshing out the bridge branch. I started with the pillars, and by daytime, since there was a skeleton following me from below, I had to kill it. And a creeper. Literally for the whole of day 20, I built all the pillars through the danger of mobs. They were so annoying. After finishing those pillars, I returned to my little outpost and waited for the night to end. Minecraft 1.3 was released on August 1st, 2012. In fact, the trailer made for this had cameos from now big YouTubers and also YouTubers that no longer exist. Trading has been introduced. To trade, the player will interact with villagers and exchange emeralds for different items, or vice versa. Emeralds can also be obtained by mining, though they are exclusive to mountain biomes only. They can also be made into blocks. 6 sand logs can be obtained but not in any normal way, such as creative or survival. Slabs and stairs for all of the different wood variations were added, along with the stairs for sandstone. Ender chests are linked to each other, meaning that they share the same inventory. When destroyed, the items are still safely stored, even if all existing ones were destroyed. They are crafted with 8 obsidian and 1 eye of ender, and can only be picked up with a silk touch pickaxe. If broken otherwise, it will drop 8 obsidian. Tripwire hooks can have string attached to it, and when a player trips it, it will send a redstone signal. Some textures are changed. Logs can be placed facing different directions like pistons. Slabs can be placed on different halves of a block. Dispensers will place minecarts and boats where applicable. Book and quills were added and allowed the players to read and write. When signing it and giving it a title, it will finalize the book, making it a written book. And written books are not editable. Enchanted golden apples take the old golden apple effects, and now there are 2 different kinds of golden apples. Books now require leather to craft, and when tools break a block that are otherwise instantly broken with a hand, they will not lose durability. Boats are not broken by lily pads anymore, instead running through them and breaking them. Both boats and minecarts, when getting out of them, the player will be moved away from them. Desert villages are variants of the regular village that are in deserts. Desert pyramids are made of various sandstones and has an underground compartment that contains chests with loot in it. The underground part is also trapped with a pressure plate hooked up to TNT. Jungle temples are made of different types of cobblestone and spawn in jungles. They are also trapped with dispensers that shoot arrows when the player goes over the tripwire line. There is also a semi-hidden room behind these levers that has a chest that contains loot in it. During world creation, a bonus chest can be selected to spawn which contains some starter materials. Also, in world creation, you can choose different world types, large biomes. Biomes in that world type are 16 times bigger. Big oak trees now have logs that go sideways. Single player commands have been baked into the game now. Adventure mode is a mode that is accessible through commands. It stops the players from building, breaking, igniting things, or using buckets, though the player can interact with mobs and inventories. The creative menu is now organized and has a search tab. Items cannot be destroyed by shift-clicking the items into the creative menu. A tab that goes into the survival menu was also added and has a slot to destroy items. When spawning in creative, the player now spawns with an empty inventory. Experience cannot be collected in more ways now. Some ores, taking smelted items, and breaking mob spawners will result in experience. The experience progression has been adjusted. The enchanted level limit in the enchantment tables have been locked to 30 with 15 bookshelves. Items on the ground that are the same will now group up. The demo world now lasts for 5 in-game days. 1.3 is the last version to have no official name or promotional images. On day 21, I traveled back to the village, and now since villagers can now trade, I wanted to trade. There was no way down, so I made a weird wooden staircase going down. Their trades were pretty bad. What is this? 1 emerald for 7 melons? Not even a full block's worth. After I was thoroughly disappointed by their trades, I went over to the grassy area to kill some more cows. Sorry cows, blame the villagers. I got all my anger out on them, so back to the bridge. Well, first I need some more stone slabs. And here starts again draining my sanity with this dumb bridge. Throughout the night, I was really hoping I didn't fall because I didn't want to get caught with those mobs. I was almost finished, but yes, so far, so I had to go back and get more. By the time I traveled back from the branch bridge, it was already sunshine. Day 22 wasn't much different, but instead of more slabs, it was more cobble because the supports were almost done and the path was just cobble. I finished up the remaining supports and started on the path. I saw some endermen and thought that would be a good idea to go on an enderman dispatching spree. Hey, it did work out. I got 3 pros out of it. Well, after that adrenaline rush, I completed the path and now road to the jungle was clear. Then I went home and remembered that there was still a lot of ores in the place where I got all the stone from. So I mined all of it and got a good amount. Coal was really what I was looking for because I needed a ton of torches for that bridge. After that, it was day 23 and I returned home to clean up and make torches. I used those torches on the new branch extension even though it was more than excessive. Now that the branch was completely finished, I went to explore what new terrain there was. Past the tiny jungle, there was a lot of mountains with too many lighting areas and a jungle that seemed fuller. But at this point, I didn't feel like building any more bridges. I wandered the jungle in the hopes of finding a temple, to no avail. But hey, look at this chunk area. Day was closing, so I made a bed with the sheep I killed and slept. But I went straight to work next day, chopping the huge jungle trees. Since I wanted to make a tree house, I also wanted to build it with the wood of the jungle. I chopped countless trees, or it was probably around 5, and then went back where my bridge was to start the beginning of my house. The tree house. There was not that much planning, but the planning was just basically to build an amalgamation of wooden platforms around the tree. Actually, around multiple trees. I made a nice little platform and some fences, but I wanted to expand again. What I tried to do is make a quasi-realistic bridge by making it droop. It wasn't that good looking, but I still liked it. I built more platform on the other side and on top of the tree branch and lit everything up. I finished the droopy bridge and made another one, but it goes up. Kinda more like a staircase. I kept making more platforms and stairs until I reached the top of the tree. This is where the last one will be, and the biggest one. It spans over 2 trees and actually hangs over a little bit because I wanted to make it bigger. I went down and made more fences because I wanted to make some fences around my platforms. While building these fences, I saw a fire and knowing how this could go so wrong, I tried to put it out as quick as possible. Then I tried my best to fence the edges because it's not as easy, especially with the stairs. The platforms were easy though, since they were flat. After finishing fencing up the place, I started to make my new base of operations. At this point, it has just been an empty house, but I still need to live in it. I made sure to place chests, and since I didn't have stone for furnaces, I actually just mined the smooth stone I had. Look, I was desperate. From now until the end of day 27, I ran back and forth from my castle to the treehouse to bring all the items I wanted. And I didn't bring everything because that would have taken longer. It's a couple hundred blocks one way, and I think I probably made around 10 or so trips back and forth, and then I started to organize him. But I did bring one of my dogs. Buddy. You will always be my buddy. Finally, moving is over. Sheesh, even in Minecraft it's stressful. Well, with any life, it's back to work. Bring home the bacon and going to work. But it's unpaid. I chopped a lot of wood, and I mean it. I spent around 15 minutes chopping the jungle trees, and when I got home, it was the next day. The extreme hills wasn't the most forgiving place. On day 29, I went back to the hill to try and find a cave to explore and mine. It took a little bit, but eventually I found a cave that actually went somewhere. There was a lot of creepers, and I don't even know how there was this many creepers. The caves had some iron and coal, but not enough, so I just started mining one direction and following mob sounds. This cave had some iron and coal, but that was basically it. So I continued in search of more caves and eventually found one because I heard water. But this one was special. It had lava and diamonds. I made sure to mine the diamonds safely and got 2 diamonds. I followed the lava down and found a huge cave complex. Instead of procedurally mining, I explored through a good amount of the cave and then went back to mine. This time, however, instead of just coal or iron, there was also gold, lapis, and redstone. There were surprisingly little mobs. Few and far between, which is how I want to keep it. We were heading into day 30 and I was still in the mines. I was really hoping I would get more diamonds, but I only got 2. But luck has it, after I started strip mining for some reason, I ran straight into diamonds. It was an 8 vein. What a miracle! I continued to mine an assortment of ores, and almost cutting my life short, I found my last diamonds. I now have 15 diamonds in total and started to leave the cave. After coming up to the surface, I marked where this was for future use, which I never came back. Killed some pigs and trekked back home through the stupid hills and idiotic trees. Since there was no way of actually getting back up, I just water bucketed my way up. Apparently, Buddy teleported me, which almost gave me a heart attack. I completely cleaned out my inventory and then went back to my castle because I forgot something. During the move, I only prioritized my items but neglected other things, like my brewing stand, jukebox, and enchanting table. I returned back to the treehouse and placed those blocks down. And since I forgot where my past spawn point was, I made a bed and decided not to sleep in it. Minecraft 1.4, aka the Pretty Scary update, was released on October 25th, 2012. 1.4 added the Wither, which is made like an iron golem, but with soul sand and instead of a pumpkin is 3 Wither skeleton skulls. Wither skeleton skulls are dropped on occasion from Wither skeletons which spawn in nether fortresses. Wither skeletons use stone swords and also drop coal, bones, and their swords. After spawning a Wither, the Wither will glow blue as it gains health until full. Then, it will explode and start to attack mobs and players by shooting Wither skulls at them. If hit, the player or mob will get the Wither effect, which damages the player every so often, but unlike poison, it can actually kill the player. After the Wither is lower than half health, it is immune to arrows. When killed, it drops a nether star which can be used to craft a beacon. Witchers are like villagers, but instead of trading or farming, they throw potions. They can also drink potions to give them a buff. When killed, they drop items and have a chance of dropping the potion it's holding. They spawn exclusively in witch huts. Beacons can be used to give the player certain effects. It needs a pyramid of either iron, gold, emerald, or diamonds and requires access to the sky to work. There are different levels of the pyramids unlocking different effects. To activate, an iron, gold, emerald, or diamond is required. Anvils are used to repair, combine enchantments on tools, and remaining any item/block. Enchanted books start with 1 enchant and can be applied to items through the anvil. They can also be found in dungeons. To do any of those actions, it requires experience. Costs depend on the amount and rarities of the enchantment, and is limited to 39 experience levels. Any higher, it would just be too expensive. In creative mode, there is no limit though. Anvils are affected by gravity, and deal more damage the more blocks it falls. Cobblestone walls are like fences but a little bigger and different shape. Flower pots let the player plant in it, purely decorational though. Command blocks run commands when powered and obtained through commands. Mob heads have been added. Wooden buns are like stone buns, but they can be activated with an arrow. Nether brick slabs are added and stairs now connect to form corners. Repeaters can be locked when another repeater is aimed at the side while powered. TNT can be activated from flame arrows. Doors, trapdoors, levers, and buttons can no longer be activated with left mouse button. Potatoes and carrots were added and don't have any separate seeds. Potatoes can drop poisonous potatoes, and potatoes can be baked. Carrots can be made into golden carrots and can be used with fishing rods to make carrots on sticks. A carrot on a stick controls the pig that the player is sitting on. The carrot on a stick loses durability, and when it runs out, it becomes a regular fishing rod. Maps are not crafted as empty maps and need to be right-clicked for the map to start drawing. Maps cannot be extended with crafting with more paper, and crafting with an empty map makes a copy. Item frames display blocks, items, and maps. The music disc weight has been implemented. Originally added in beta 1.9 pre-release 2, it was named Where Are We Now, but since the name has spaces, it couldn't be added. The wither painting was added. Fireworks are non-destructive explosives that shoot up in the air. Baby mobs can be spawned with right-clicking the same mob with the spawn egg. Whole stacks can be dropped with Control and Q. Pressing keys 1 to 9 will switch the item with the respective hotbar slot. In adventure mode, blocks can be mined with the proper tools. Chickens now use seed to breed and pigs now use carrots. Experience is given when breeding and fishing. F3B shows the hitboxes around entities. F3P's toggles pausing when the Minecraft window loses focus. And F3H will toggle a detailed item description. Super flat worlds are now customizable. Biomes can be changed and there are many different default presets. On day 31, I took out my iron ore and then split up to be smelted. For some reason, I split up based on ore per coal instead of just evenly. Also, I brought my gold, but that reminded me of golden apples, specifically enchanted ones. Since I forgot whether it was ingots or blocks since recipes were different, as you can see how golden apples are made, I tested all levels of gold. Found out it was blocks and made one because that's all I had. And then I placed up on my tree to show off. To myself, because there's no one else in this world. Then I made the rest of my gold into regular golden apples. And they were cheap, only using gold nuggets. I finished up the rest of my iron smelting and then tested out how to make a book because I wanted to make a full enchanting table. I also made a sugarcane farm, just in case. Since this was a new version, I also wanted to test whether dog colors could be dyed. And they can! Buddy is now actually blue! So I ran back to my old castle to dye the colors of my dogs that I didn't bring. The only reason I didn't bring them is because I wouldn't be able to differentiate them before colored collars. Ukulele is now orange, Lavender is now purple, and Sunny is now yellow. Now I can actually tell which one they are. While running back, these dogs sometimes fell off the side of the bridge, which also almost gave me a heart attack because the bridge isn't that short. They could have died if they fell enough. So what I did was, at the branching path, I sat one of them down and then brought two of them so they wouldn't accidentally die. It was sort of because of how they teleported and how they pushed each other off the edge. I sat Sunny and Lavender down and then went back for Ukulele. Now it's good to note that I wasn't really paying attention to where I left him. That scared me because I thought I missed him on the branch section. But I found him in the end. He was just further back on the main bridge. I brought him over and then updated the sign to have all their names. Now that it's 1.4, scary. Meaning it's time for the nether again. I cleaned up my inventory, took out iron, put meat, and then take some stuff with me to the nether, like dirt and golden apples. I didn't have a portal in the treehouse, so I proceeded back to my castle and used that portal. The gas problem was still a thing, so I tried my best not to die while going to the nether fortress. It was pretty difficult, and this was probably the worst moment for a gas fireball. When I got to the fortress, I was slaying mobs left, right, and center, and also lost half my health in the process. Now, a sane person would wait, but I became too cocky and then died from wither skeleton. I died many times in Minecraft before, but this is an especially horrible spot to die in because there was lava over the edge. And if you remember, I did not set my new spawn point, so I literally spent the next half of the day going back to the treehouse and then setting my new spawn point. Day 33 and I have nothing. So I grabbed the food that I was cooking, some armor, a pick, a sword, and some blocks to hopefully retrieve my lost stuff. Keep in mind, it was already dangerous enough to go into the nether, and now I have been reduced to leather armor. I went back to the nether fortress, and once I got up, I was immediately shot with fire. Running over to my stuff, I grabbed it, and danger was everywhere. I locked myself in and recuperated as I was on the brink of dying again. It was a heavy loss. I lost half of my diamond stuff, and this is kind of where everything starts to head downhill. After I situated myself, I still made the dumb decision to keep on killing more mobs. It was for the content, I said. For the content! Well, that didn't last too long because I left because I didn't want to die again. When I returned to the overworld, I harvested all my farms outside the castle. Well, all but the cactus farm, because who cares about the cactus? While going back home, my tiny brain thought it'd be a good idea to kill some endermen. With reduced armor, having mobs aggroed on me the whole time. And I didn't even get any pearls! I went back home and then cleaned up. That was a horrible idea. Since I wasn't going to use leather armor, I made some iron armor and enchanted my iron stuff. You could argue I'd make more diamond stuff, but I don't think it was worth it. On day 34, I thought about repairing my damaged diamond stuff, so I made an anvil, and dropped all my iron while doing that. I never actually repaired anything because I realized how many diamonds I'd probably use. So I did the next best thing, was to make an enchanting station. I broke my enchanting table and placed it on the top floor for room. Then I got some wood, sugarcane, and leather, and made some bookshelves. There were some more steps, but we can gloss over that. I finished up building the whole enchanting station in another spot since I thought it looked better that way. Well, It wasn't that useful because I died and lost most of my levels. So for the rest of the day, I killed anything I saw. Pigs, slimes, cows, chickens, mobs. Well, mobs actually give you the most XP. I learned something new every day. Suffice to say, I didn't get enough levels, but I was close. And you know how I said this is where everything goes downhill? Oh, I had no idea what was about to come. On day 35, I made more swords to get more XP and also cook up my food that I got. In the meantime, I went up to play with my doggies and thought some music was needed, so I broke my jukebox. And that was when everything broke. My game crashed, and hoping nothing was wrong, I loaded the world back. The chunk where I loaded back was different. It had almost been like it was overwritten. But worst of all, this happened on the chunk where most of my chests were. I was in shock, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't access what was left on my chest. What did make it better was that my dogs did survive the chunk error, because it was not in the same chunk. That would have made things way worse if they did not survive. I chopped a tree for some wood and then went back up to see the damage. The enchanting station survived and some chests survived. What survived was some miscellaneous blocks and my music discs. I was so lost for words that I actually thought about going back to a previous save, but I didn't. I thought to myself that life happens and sometimes you just have to live with it. So I brought my dogs and went to the bridge and said goodbye to the treehouse. It was actually super depressing to build this whole bridge and house to eventually have to abandon it not too long after. I could have stayed, but it wouldn't have felt the same. I didn't want to go back to the castle, so I tried to stop shopping in the village. Before I went down, I sent my dogs on the bridge. I couldn't sleep in the village because of the constant mobs, so I tried my best to hold off until day. We were more than a third into the 100 days, and we were basically starting back at square one, but with tools. Over the next 5 days, I rebuilt as much as I could. Through 36 and 37, I made a new house. A humble one. I gathered a bunch of wood and made it on the bridge. At this point, the bridge was all I had. I spent day in and day out trying to make a house that would just work for the time being. I tried making it look nice. 4 walls, some windows, and a roof. I also furnished my house with chests and other things, but it's not like I even need to use them. I lost all my items. Well, almost all my items. I brought my dogs in and then it was day 38. Throughout the next 3 days, I went on an insane mining spree to hopefully recuperate the losses. I stripped mine for probably hundreds of blocks, found ravines, mine shafts, and ores upon ores. Tons of iron, coal, redstone, gold, lapis, and some diamonds. I was getting back to where I was before, but it was difficult. While on these 5 days, I was actually really worried that I ruined this world. That this, basically a reset, reversed so much progress that I thought I wouldn't be able to do some of the things I wanted. But for your information, the video never got scrapped, so it wasn't ruined. Minecraft 1.5, aka the Redstone update, was released on March 13th, 2013. Redstone comparators take 2 inputs and depending on the mode, outputs different signal strengths. If A is greater than B, then it'll output a signal of A. If A equals B, then it'll output A. If A is less than B, then it'll output nothing. When subtractor mode is turned on, it will output a signal of strength A minus B. If A minus B is less than 0, then no signal will be produced. They can get signals from inventories with items in them. Daylight sensors output a signal with a strength depending on the time of day. Droppers can face 6 directions and drop items in front of it. If a chest is in front of it, it will input the items into the chest. A hopper can transport items. They can take items from the top and can transport it in 5 different directions. If a hopper is on top of another hopper or any inventory, it will take directly from it. A redstone signal can lock a hopper, which stops items from moving out of it. Both droppers and hoppers can emit a redstone signal based on the number of items in the block via a redstone comparator. Redstone blocks are just solid blocks of redstone made from 9 dust. Trap chests are chests that will emit a redstone signal when opened. Signal strength depends on the amount of players opening it. Trap chests can be alternated with regular chests for compact chest placement. Weighted pressure plates have 2 variants. Activate rails trigger TNT in minecart. Minecarts with TNT actually blow up more violently the faster it goes, and it does not destroy the rails or supporting blocks. Quartz spawn in the nether and drop experience. Currently, you can make blocks of quartz, slabs, stairs, chiseled, and pillar. Nether quartz ore is affected by fortune and silk touch. Snow stacking is now fully implemented. Layered snow can be crafted and placed on top of each other, eventually forming a block. Dispensers can now put armor onto players. Like TNT, use bone meal, lava moves faster in the nether. Nether brick was added to craft nether bricks, which were pluralized to reduce confusion. Double clicking items will fill up the stack as much as possible, while dragging them across multiple slots will evenly split them. Pressing Q in the inventory will drop the item being hovered over. Minecraft Realms are currently in preview. Realms are a Minecraft subscription-based vanilla server. It can't be modded and is a whitelist mandatory. On day 41, I was done on my mining expedition. While I was mining upwards, I heard a bunch of sounds and then I was piled with sand. Since I have a handy dandy bridge to help me get back home, I just walk in a straight line until the bridge. That's the perk of having a huge bridge, is that you basically just have to remember the Z coordinate and the X coordinate, but we can skip over that. I got back home and then organized my ores and tried compacting the ones I could. I also needed to smelt the iron and gold ore I got so they can be used. Since I didn't have a flint and steel, I made one and then went to build the portal. When I went through the portal though, it spawned me at my previous portal. Now what I realized is that there would be ambiguous portals now because 2 overworld portals are now linked to the same portal in the nether. I traveled back through the portal and ended up being in my castle again. I was kind of curious why I left behind, so I searched the chest and found some redstone. After compacting all the redstone, I went back into the nether. This time, it wasn't for the nether fortress, but with my luck, I somehow found another fortress. What I was trying to find was the new ore, nether quartz, and I did. I tried to get closer, but as soon as I did, a ghast started to shoot fireballs at me, and this is not a good spot for that. There was lava surrounding most of the portion I was standing on, and I completely failed at sending those fireballs back. I lost a bunch of health and tried to get more, but you know what? Screw the nether. You know what? Screw the nether. I did make it out of the nether and make sure to break the portal on the other end so I would not teleport there next time. It was day 42 and I was returning back to my home. I organized everything, sort of, and then took the smelted ores and blockified my other precious items. Even though I knew coal wouldn't have worked, I still tried it and was disappointed. After that, I went back to the old jungle house to retrieve the enchanting table and bookshelves. It was sad to see that place again. When I returned, I got some cobblestone and made a little platform for my enchanting station because I didn't have enough room for it. I also didn't have enough wood, so I had to go to the nearby forests to get some. I made the bookshelves and placed everything on that platform. The gold finished smelting, so I took it out. And while I was scripting, I kinda remembered. I also lost that enchanted golden apple in the trunk area. Man, that sucks. Anyway, I made a diamond pickaxe because I had 30 levels. I clicked it 3 times for luck, then got a fortuneless pickaxe. To be honest, it was still pretty good, but I didn't have fortune. I also made a diamond axe and sword and got knocked back on the sword for 7 freaking levels. Now that was outrageous. I never enchanted my axe though. It was probably because I wanted to save up levels. After that enchanting session, I prepared some materials to go mining since I had this new awesome fast pickaxe to use. I started to strip mine and it was quick. It was like cutting through butter. Well, not that smooth, but almost. There were other ores, but diamonds were what I was really looking for. And I did find them. Not too many at first, but this one had to be one of the most satisfying. I spent today and day 43 mining and got a grand total of 22 diamonds. And not that much iron, but still a good amount. After putting them in the furnace, I ran around like an idiot and killed some sheep. Sometimes seeing myself do these things, I really wonder what was going through my head. Since my mob murder spree probably failed, I just harvested 3 crops in the farm. I finished harvesting and took out all of the items in my furnace, giving me a grand total of 30 levels. Now I can enchant my axe and I got Fortune 3? Are you kidding me? At least there was efficiency, but that still sucks. I really wanted Unbreaking, not Fortune. I tried to make an anvil and combine them, but it was still too expensive. Well, I cleaned up a little bit and I made a bed because I didn't know what else to do. On day 45, I went to the direction of the old treehouse for wood. I continued until I passed the old house and mountains into the next jungle. Since jungles is the easiest type of wood to gather lots of, that's what I'm gonna get. I chopped for the next half of the day and then returned home to get ready for the next day. On day 46, I started elongating the bridge. WikiHow, how to make a bridge. Step 1, build a bridge girder with logs demarking the pillar spots. Step 2, on the spots with pillar markings, expand it into supports for the path. Step 3, construct the pillars so your bridge doesn't fall over. Still could though. Step 4, add the path so the plebeians can walk and not fall over. I still fall over anyways. Well, I kinda ran out of wood, so I had to get some more. Step 5, sprinkle on some light so the mobs will not spawn. Step 6, rinse and repeat until satisfied. I still wanted to expand the bridge, but still needed a ton of wood. It turned night, so I stopped chopping more trees because I still needed to save up ender pearls. It was also worse because I lost my previous pearls in the chunk area, but I did get 2. After that, I returned to my bridge to start on the next section of the bridge. At this point, I was doing bridge sections in around 6 segments per section, since that's the most I can get from a stack of wood planks. Throughout the rest of day 48 and into day 49, I continued to build that bridge section and gathered even more wood. Actually, chopping those trees served dual purpose. Not only did I get more wood out of it, but also cleared out more area for the bridge. When I got back home, I actually did some organization in my chests because they weren't too appealing. Then I went out to get some pearls and do some XP gathering. I got some experience and loot, but most importantly, I did get a pearl. On day 50, I did some inventory cleanup and took some food with me. I was at this point trying to get more Eyes of Ender, and that's why I was trying to get those pearls. There was this trade for Eyes of Ender that was completely unaffordable, and a wool trade that was completely unfair. I made some shears and got some leaves for decoration, but not wool for some reason. Probably because I didn't find any sheep. While I was doing that, I wanted to get the stuff from those chests in the jungle house, so I did. I grabbed the stuff from the disc chest and left for home. I put all the stuff into a chest and then decorated the outside of my house with some leaves. I thought the greenery would look good on my house. Then I hit the sack. Minecraft 1.6, aka the Horse Update, was released on July 1st, 2013. Horses were inspired from the mod Mo Creatures by Dr. Zark. To tame a horse, the player would have to keep getting on the horse and getting thrown off until hearts appeared. A saddle is required to control the horse, and horse armor can be worn for protection. They can be healed with bread, sugar, hay bales, wheats, apples, golden apples, and golden carrots. Max health, jump height, and speed vary among horses. Horse armor is uncraftable and has 3 variants: iron, gold, and diamond. They can be found as loot in dungeons, nether fortresses, desert temples, and jungle temples. Donkeys are like horses but smaller and gray. They can carry a chest that holds 15 slots. Mules are breeded from horses and donkeys. They can wear a chest like a donkey but can't be bred. Skeleton and zombie horses were introduced using the normal horse code but couldn't be obtained. Hay bales are made of 9 wheat. Carpets are made of the 2 same colored wool. Hardened clay is made from smelting clay. And stained clay is made of 8 hardened clay and a dye. A block of coal can be crafted from 9 coals. It is actually more efficient than using 9 coals individually. Charcoal got retextured to differentiate from coal. Golden apples require ingots instead of nuggets and give regeneration 2 for 10 seconds. And both apples give absorption for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Health boost gives the player 4 extra base health and goes away after a while. Absorption gives the player 4 absorption hearts that cannot be regained or naturally regenerated. It goes away after the effect is gone. Saturation 1 replenishes 1 hunger per tick, and after it's full, nothing happens. Leads are used to string mobs around and leash them onto a fence. Name tags can be found in dungeon chests and can be named in ambush to be used on mobs. Mobs that are named Dinnerbone or Grumb are upside down. Spiders have a chance to spawn with potion effects. Baby zombies and baby zombie pigmen cannot spawn naturally. The original pigman texture has been removed, and player heads no longer turn on the minecart. Nether fortresses now have chests. When riding a mob, the health appears on the HUD, taking up the hunger bar. Experience is no longer displayed in creative, and breaking blocks with a sword is no longer possible. Resource packs replace texture packs. It contains textures, sound, fonts, language files, end credits, endpoints, and splash text. A new launcher was added and improves performance and stability. On day 51, I wanted to get a horse, and I had a saddle, so perfect. For some reason I got some wheat. Maybe it would have helped to woo the horses to me. I don't know. I traveled near the end of the bridge and then went left from it. There was a forest and I saw a mountain that looked pretty scenic. I passed the forest and mountain and just swam in the water instead of making boats. It was a short swim and I would have to make boats every time I got out, so it wasn't worth it. Why are there so many forests? After the forest, there was a desert and a chunk area which was cool. It was cool to see the different terrain between versions. I went through the swamp next to the taiga and made a boat to travel through the ocean. At this point, the day was soon closing and there was no horse in sight. This was outrageous! Where's my horsies? The ocean was pretty big, but at the end of it, there was a plains biome, but at that time, it was night. I found some sheep to make a bed so I could sleep and maybe some horses would spawn. I continued and continued into hopefully new terrain, hoping to find a horse, but it was looking bleak. I'm pretty sure horses spawn in plains, but the previous plains had no horses in it. Something that scared me was that there was a boat that I apparently left. I didn't realize it then, but that boat shows that I've been in those chunks before. I couldn't really tell if this was intentional because I quit searching for horses or if it was accidental because I ran back to the castle somehow. So either I circled back or I had enough. I cleaned up and remembered that coal could now be made into blocks, and then proceeded to blockify my coal. After that, I wanted to reach 30 levels to enchant, so I chose to go to the nether for blazes. Not only did I want more blaze rods because I lost all of them, but XP at the same time. This time I went to the safer fortress and then spent the rest of day 52 and some of 53 killing blazes. It wasn't the most entertaining thing, especially the fire. When I returned to the overworld, the portal spawned me back at the castle, and that was not what I wanted. So I broke the entire portal, but it was more bearable because of my fast pickaxe. Then I ran back home and then put away all my nether loot and cooked my raw meat. I made another diamond pickaxe, and with 3 clicks of luck, I got the same enchants. Since I had 2 of the same pickaxes, I want to see if I can combine them, but it was too expensive. I was pretty sure I was trying to kill mobs for XP, but spent the majority of the time just running around. The next day, I returned home and then prepared to go strip mining again. It was only for around a day, but I got a good amount of ores. Look, I don't know what else to say in these times. It's literally just me mining away my life. Mine, ooh, ores. After I finished mining, I went back up to put my things away and smelted my ores. While that was being smelted, I went around to kill more endermen. It was going well until I got cornered by a zombie, an enderman, and a cactus. And I do mean that, a cactus. And apparently my spawn was reset, so I spawned back at the original spawn point. Hunger was an issue because soon enough I was almost out of drumsticks. It took forever, but I got back to the second alpha house and was literally scrounging for food. I found one raw pork chop, but didn't eat it, instead making bread out of my tiny farm. The food surprisingly did last me through my journey back to the castle. I tried to find more food, but that failed. I tried to reset my spawn, but that failed even harder, so I had one chance to get my stuff back. I got all my stuff. Well, I probably forgot a few items, but I had to set my spawn because I did not want to spawn back there again. Running back home, I killed a skeleton and slammed into my bed at 1,000,000 miles per hour. Now that my spawn was reset, it was all good now. So I saw an enderman, and without any second thoughts about death, I killed it. It didn't drop one. Now I'm sad now. Well, no time to be sad when you got wood to chop. Chop, 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 chop. It's nighttime now. I killed another Enderman after another wild goose chase, but it still resulted in nothing. At this point, I still needed a lot of pearls, and I was nowhere near to the amount I wanted. When I got back home, I flushed out my inventory and prepared to go on another mining trip. This time was more cave-oriented, which led to the inevitable of more mobs. But I did find more diamonds. It was shorter than the previous one, lasting within the same day, so I got less ores and other stuff. But I did compact my items while mining for ease of transportation, and that it would take up less space. I returned home and finished smelting. Before the night went away, I ran around on my bridge in the hopes of fighting more Endermen to kill. Day 59. I wanted to explore again, this time went past the direction of the treehouse. I wasn't expecting much and basically just killed and sheared animals through my journey. But the more I traveled and killed throughout the plains, I saw another village. I went closer and harvested their crops, this time with less sympathy. And look what I found! A horse! I actually ignored it for some reason and then went back to it after. This was the first horse and I love him, so I tried to befriend him and it worked. Sadly, I didn't have a saddle, so I put him in a hole. I know. Great first impression. And went back to get a saddle. I made it back within the same night and got a saddle for my chest and some wheat, for some reason. I was so eager to ride my horse that I neglected to realize that there was a ravine here. The same ravine I almost fell into earlier. But I got out with little scarring. By day 60, I made it back to the village. I was reunited with my horse and then saw another one. I was curious whether that horse was faster than my horse, so I befriended it and did a little experiment here. I brought both horses and then set up a start and end to see if they're quicker. Now keep in mind, this is the loosest experiment and I couldn't do side-by-side testing. From what I could gather, I couldn't really tell a difference, so I just went with the first horse. I traded my wheat and beef to get emeralds, but it was not a good trade. After trading, I tried my best to bring my horse alive and unscathed through a taiga biome, which was not the best biome to ride a horse in. I got back home and saw an Enderman and just had to kill it, and it dropped the pearls, so it was worth it. I pushed my horse up the stairs and onto a bridge and blocked up the stairs going up to it. When I entered my home, I found all my dogs unsat and at no health, which was kind of scary. I also couldn't sit them down, so I relogged and then they were all fixed. Yay! I felt bad for my horse, so I made a little pen for him, which is arguably not that great, and I named him Spirit, my beloved steed. For the rest of the day, I cleaned up my house. I know, boring. Minecraft 1.7, aka the update that changed the world, was released on October 25th, 2013. A lot of new biomes were added, such as mesas, savannas, sunflower plains, roof forests, birch forests, flower forests, mega taigas, and deep oceans. M variant biomes are rare versions of the same biomes and sometimes a little bit different. Biomes are now categorized in snow-covered, cold, medium, and dry/warm. Temperature determines if they have snow, rain, or nothing. As elevation goes up, the temperature decreases, which would affect weather. The world boundary is now solid in directions with X or Z higher than 30 million. A new world type, Amplified, scales up all world generation rules and makes every biome more extreme. Huge mountains spawn and get to be very resource intensive on the device because of how worlds generate. Two new trees were added, Acacia and Dark Oak. Acacia trees are very tall and skinny trees with logs that are gray on the outside and orange on the inside. They spawn in savanna biomes. Dark oak trees are big dark trees that require a 2x2 sapling formation to grow. The logs are dark inside and outside. Along with these logs and saplings, they come with planks, slabs, and stairs. Potso is a dirt variation that doesn't spread and spawns in mega taiga biomes. Red sand was added and it's just red sand, but it spawns in mesas. New flowers are added, red, orange, white, and pink tulips, blue orchids, alliums, azure bluets, oxeye daisies, and poppies, which replaces the old roses. 2-block high flowers are also added and include the sunflower, peonies, rose bushes, and lilacs. They can get bone meal and drop a copy of itself. Unlike the single block flowers, they are made into 2 dyes. Stained glass and stained glass panes were added and have versions for each of the 16 dyes. Large ferns and double tall grass can be made from bone mealing grass and ferns respectively. Packed ice doesn't break into water, doesn't melt, and is opaque. Cauldrons now put out mobs if they go in them while on fire. Doing that takes a level of water. The color of sugarcane is now dictated by the biome it is in. More fishes were added. When eating a pufferfish, it gives poison 4 for 1 minute, hunger 3 for 15 seconds, and nausea for 15 seconds. It can be brewed for water breathing and cannot be cooked. Water breathing stops the breath from going down while the effect is on. Salmon and clownfish can be eaten, but clownfish can't be cooked. Written books cannot be cloned with an unsigned book, and when maps are on item frames, they cover the whole block. Minecarts with command blocks were added and can be activated with activator rails. Chicken jockeys were added and consist of a chicken and a baby zombie, or sometimes a baby zombie villager or a zombie pigman. Achievements and statistics are now stored individually between worlds and servers. Fishing cannot get items other than fish. They are categorized as fish, treasure, and junk. Nether portals cannot be made in any size but has to be 2x3 vertically. On the dev screen, the player now has an option to go back to the title screen. Item IDs cannot be referred by their names instead of their numbers in commands. F3 plus B now show hitboxes with a thin outline instead of opaque boxes. In the creative menu, the decoration block tab is now a peony. The resource pack menu has been overhauled to have 2 columns, one for the packs that you have and one for the packs that you have on. Multiple resource packs can be turned on at once. The top one in the menu takes precedence on the application. Servers can offer default resource packs which can be enabled or disabled or prompted. The settings menu has also been overhauled. There are more customizable binds. Music and sounds are now divided into different types of sound. Video settings has more render distance and FPS settings. Super secret settings go through different random shader options that change how the game look. The Mojang splash screen has been changed from orange to red and black. It's day 61 and now I have Optifine. Now I can finally run Minecraft more smoothly and zoom in. Now I can spawn people. But it's only me though. And I can see more because more chunks. We're past 2/3 of the video, but the bridge is still kinda wimpy. I haven't been building the bridge as much, so I wanted to continue it. This was the largest mistake I've ever made in this world. Bigger than ruining my treehouse with a jukebox. Like every section, I start to build a girder, but unlike most times when I end, I saw something blue and wet. I turned around and I saw an ocean the size of which I could never comprehend. And this was just the teaser for what's to come. So instead of confronting the water, I just wanted to finish the sections first. While I was building the supports, I was like, there's no way it could be that big. Maybe it was just a funny joke, a guffaw even. After the supports came the pillars. I tried to do it without dying and I didn't. At this point, I didn't even care about conformity of wood type and just used whatever wood there was. Good thing I brought ample coal because I was going to need it. Once the last of the torches were placed, I took another good look at the ocean. I even extended my running distance and my heart dropped. As the chunks kept loading, I saw in the watery expanse was more ocean. I was kind of curious and scared at the same time on how far this actually went. So I rode on a boat to see how far it goes. A squid broke my boat on the way, but I made another one. It went for almost 1,000 blocks when I saw an island, a flower island. I thought it was safe, but it was not, as this was only just an island. I kept going and saw a root forest, which was good because I want to see more of the new terrain. But that also means that this bridge had to be built this far. When I made my way up to the beach, I built my way up onto the canopy of the forest and saw how far we were. We were around 1,500 blocks from the previous point of the bridge. It was very clear to me that this would be the biggest project I would ever do on the bridge. I did some extensive math to find a somewhat exact amount of materials I need with the estimated length, and a little extra in case something goes wrong. I had calculated for both wood and stone variants, but the obvious option, though it was still expensive, was stone. The number I got was around 150 stacks of stone in total. I kid you not, even with a good pickaxe, it took me from day 63 all the way to day 67 to gather all the cobble I needed and smelt all the stone. Having no stone touch definitely made it way worse. I grabbed my whole coal supply because of how costly this would be. It's not the most realistic thing, but let's just assume that they have infinite strength so those stone supports don't break. And here starts my 1.5 day journey of not even getting all the way through. All that time was just placing the stone bricks to the flower island and not even to the roof forest. After the stone brick supports were done, I started on the thing that would hold the path itself, the horizontal beams. But again, I made things hard on myself. Instead of making just solid blocks, I used stone walls to connect the bridge path. What made it even more sucky was that I had to count each 10 block section manually, because I had no demarcations to where each section was. But building the actual beams wasn't as annoying, because they were just, build and forget. By day 70, I was starting the path, which was good, but even with 150 stacks of stone, I was still trying to be cheap. The path was actually reduced to half the cost by using stone slabs, because I didn't want to spend more time mining. It was cheaper, but it was still harder to build because slabs are harder to build with in general. Minecraft 1.8, aka the Bountiful update, was released on September 2nd, 2014. There are new stone types, diorite, andesite, granite, and their polished types. Prismarine blocks can be crafted of prismarine crystals and shards and can be found in ocean monuments. Guardians are the protectors and mobs that spawn on the ocean monuments. They drop prismarine crystals, prismarine shards, and fish. They can attack the player either with his spikes or the beam that they can shoot out. On land, it doesn't die like other marine mobs. They for some reason have an unquenchable vendetta against squids. Elder Guardians also spawn in the monument, but only on generation. Only 3 spawn per monument, and when killed, they drop a wet sponge. They can be smelted to turn back into regular sponges to keep absorbing more water. Sea lanterns are blocks that emit light and can be also found in ocean temples. Slime blocks can make entities bounce, though items don't bounce on them when falling onto it. Slime blocks stick to most blocks, and when pulled with a piston, it pulls the block stuck onto it. Players can also bounce, and to stop, all you need to do is to crouch. Banners are like signs but have wool on them. Using different dyes, the players can make different patterns on the banner. Banners are 2 blocks tall, but physically they're only 1 block. They can also be worn as helmets, but only with commands. They can also be cloned with the corresponding base color of the original. Barrier blocks are creative command-only blocks. They are unbreakable and are completely invisible. To see them, the player has to hold the block out. The barrier blocks will start popping up with a big red cross out symbol. Red sandstone is like regular sandstone but with red sand. Iron trapdoors are like wooden ones but need redstone source to open. Coarse dirt replaces the grassless dirt in the mega taiga, mesa, and savanna. Can be crafted with dirt and gravel. Fences, fence gates, and doors now have variants for each wood type. Fences now require 4 wood planks and 2 sticks instead of 6 sticks. Doors now stack up to 64 and crafts 3 instead of 1. Chisel stone bricks can be crafted with 2 stone brick slabs, and cracked stone bricks can be smelted from stone bricks. Mossy cobblestone and mossy stone bricks can be made from the regular type and a vine. Cobblestone stairs have been renamed from stone stairs to avoid confusion. When furnaces run out of fuel, progress on smelting rolls back at 2 times the speed of smelting. Beacon beams can have more specific colors when there are multiple stained glass on top and can go through all blocks that don't block out all the light. Buttons can now be placed on the ceiling and ground. Daylight sensors cannot be reversed by right clicking, so instead of a max at noon, it can be max at midnight. Mob pets are now obtainable when a charge creeper kills the mob. Mob spawners can be changed with a spawn egg. When wearing a jack-o'-lantern, looking at Enderman doesn't aggravate it. Sheep now drop a food source, mutton. Mutton can be cooked and restores 6 hunger. Rabbits were added and drop rabbit hide, raw rabbit, rabbit's foot, and can be cooked and restore 5 hunger. They are similar to horses and have different colors of color. Giving a rabbit the name Toast gives the rabbit a special skin as a memorial of XYZ TV's girlfriend's rabbit, Toast. Killer rabbits have a rare chance of spawning and are hostile to players. It is a reference to the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Rabbits can be bred with carrots, golden carrots, and dandelion. Potions of leaping can be brewed with rabbit's foot. Brim books now say whether it's an original or a copy. Ender mites sometimes spawn when a player uses an ender pearl, and has the same size of a silverfish but cannot enter stone blocks. Armor stands can be placed and made to wear armor. They can also ride minecarts. To take back an item that you place on an armor stand, just right click it. The AI for giants and humans have been removed. Tamed wolves will attack skeletons without provocation. Pets will display a death message when killed if they're named. Enchanting has been overhauled. It requires lapis to enchant and corresponds to the tier of enchantment. Levels consumed also use the same system as lapis, though you do need the level displayed on the enchant to unlock. Enchants no longer change when switching in and out the same tool. Instead, only enchanting tool will change the enchants. Greeter flares can now control middle click a block to get the block and all the MBT values of that block. Spectator mode is a new game mode that lets the player fly through blocks. Scrolling the mouse wheel will change the speed of the player. The player can also view from the eyes of a mob. Spectators can also be seen by other players in Spectator but with a translucent head. There's also a teleporting tool built into Spectator mode. There are more F3 functions. F3D clears out the chat log, F3T or F3S reloads the block models. Difficulty can now be locked to prevent the temptation of switching in dangerous situations in hungry fills and peaceful mode. A new default skin has been added, Alex. The Alex skin is slimmer than the Steve skin by a couple pixels. By day 71, I was barely done with the path from the bridge to the Flower Island, so I started on the next part of the bridge. The mountain wasn't too high, so it wasn't too thick, and it was where another mistake came. I miscalculated and put the 2 support blocks 1 block too high. But I didn't realize it and started to build the supports. Yeah, sorry. Even when I got to the roof forest part, I still didn't realize my mistake. After I finished the support beams, I wanted to see if there were any endermen. There was, and I did get 1 pearl, but I almost died while doing it. On the morning of day 72, I returned back to the bridge and started on the second bridge support. Once I got back to the Flower Island, I began to build the bridge beams but also recounting so many times I wanted it to be exactly 10 blocks each section. I'm pretty sure there was at least 1 section not 10 blocks long in the entirety of the bridge, but still, I needed more walls so I dug for more stone. Continuing the beam construction, I finished it and then went over back to the beginning. I completely finished building the path and lighting for the first part. After half of day 74, I actually finally finished, but then I realized about the stone support. Well, no, what actually happened was I made a boat and then boated home because I wanted to see how the bridge looked like from the bottom. I ran back home to cook the meat I got from the many days of building, and while that, looked for some endermen. Once the food was done being cooked, I returned back to the bridge to finish off the section of the part of the transoceanic bridge. I built 1 section and then realized I completely messed up, but since I was already so far in it, there was no point of fixing it. Actually, this was way easier to build with because the path was lower and with the support beams. Before continuing the path, I made sure to light up because I probably wouldn't finish it before night. I still needed stone bricks, so I ran back and then not paying attention went straight off. Look, it was infuriating for me to see myself do that. Like, why did I do that? While getting the stone bricks, I saw an enderman and then killed it, but no pearl drop. And then on day 76, I finished the transoceanic bridge. Finally! After so long, it's finally over. My life can probably go back to normal. The curse has been lifted. I traveled back to the house and got whatever valuable stuff I had and rode my horse to the new lands. I set up a little temporary platform to hold my stuff. Since it was still nighttime, I explored around the countryside to possibly find some more endermen. Never did, but I did bring more stuff over to the new base. And at this point, my armor was basically gone, so I made some more. I went back to the old home with white wool and got the white wool from my old chest to trade for some emeralds, which went to an eye of ender. I really needed these. And I did try to get more pearls throughout the night. On day 78, I harvested all the wheat and then went over to the village past the jungle house. I probably went there to get more emeralds, but there was no wheat trades, so I just went on the plains to get more ender pearls, and got 2 more actually. I stayed in the vicinity of the village during the day and actually found endermen. It was just walking peacefully in the cave, and here I come barreling down my horse and just absolutely slaughtered it. Once the sun went down, it started to rain, which completely thwarted my plans of getting more ender pearls because they just kept teleporting away. Since my old home was in a desert and thus no rain, endermen just didn't teleport around every millisecond, so I got another pearl, but not 2. Also, my dog's collars got glitched, and I didn't bring them over because I didn't know which one was the broken collar one. I don't know when I crafted my ender pearls into Eyes of Ender, but now a grand total of 15. I made sure just to have some extra, just in case some broke. Since the stone bridge is done, I wanted to change the temporary wooden platform that I built. I changed it back to the old bridge format and then put a sign signifying that it was probably going to be the end of the bridge for this part of the series. Since I haven't gotten any type of this wood, I got some. Or a couple stacks actually. I also made another enchanted golden apple to replace the last one that was destroyed. The night was almost over, so I didn't get to clean the chest off the bridge, but tomorrow will be a good day. I hope. Minecraft 1.9, aka the combat update, was released on February 29th, 2016. 1.9 is one of the most controversial updates, probably second only to Beta 1.8. The combat system before 1.9 was basically spam click and the player could block. Now, weapons have varying cooldowns after swinging and blocking was removed. Shields can be held in the offhand, which can hold anything by pressing F. It blocks attacks from weapons except axes, which have a chance of disabling the shield. Arrows bounce over shields and protect from creeper explosions. This update split the community because of the PvP. This fundamentally changed the PvP styles and strategies, and some people didn't like the new cooldowns. Spectral arrows are arrows that give the enemy a glowing outline that is visible through blocks. Tipped arrows are arrows that are tipped with potion effects. Enchanted golden apples are no longer craftable. The end had a massive overhaul. Some end crystal towers have iron gates around them at the top. And the dragon does a dragon breath attack which shoots purple particles and do a lot of damage. But they can be collected in bottles, resulting in an item called dragon's breath. They can be used to make lingering potions, which when thrown, the potion's effect lingers on the ground for a while. The ender dragon can also be respawned with end crystals. End crystals cannot be crafted and is exclusively placed on obsidian and bedrock. After the ender dragon is killed, an end gateway spawns and up to 20 of them can spawn on the main island. Entering it will teleport the player to the end islands, which are thousands of blocks away from the main island. On these islands, huge plants called chorus spawn. When breaking the bottom of the plant, the whole thing breaks. Chorus flowers spawn on them and is required to grow more plants. To harvest it, you need a silk touch tool. Chorus fruits are dropped from these plants, and when eaten, it will teleport the player. There is a cooldown for using it, like ender pearls. Chorus fruit can be cooked to craft purple blocks. End cities are a new structure that is randomly generated and have rooms with loot in it. They are composed of the new endstone brick blocks, purple blocks, and end rods that emit light. A new mob called the shulker spawns and shoot white balls that give the player the levitation effect. When shulkers are closed, they are immune to arrow and resistant to melee, but they can be killed while opened. Shulkers can also teleport, and shulker is actually short for shell lurker. One substructure that can spawn in end cities are the end ships. They hold the ender dragon head and an elytra, which are wings and can let the player glide. Elytras are equipped in the chestplate slot and uses the player's cape texture if they have one. When flying into blocks, the player takes damage and it can be very lethal at high speeds. 128 strongholds spawn now, as opposed to the old 3 per world. They spawn from rings from the origin. Grass paths cannot be made by right-clicking grass with a shovel and cannot be silk touched. Structure blocks have been added, but for now, they can't be used. Brewing stands now need a blaze powder to work. New command blocks have been added, repeat and chain. The old one is now called impulse. Repeat variants will run commands every tick that is powered, and chain command blocks run when another command block that is pointing at it runs. Conditionals has also been added and can be toggled. Conditional means that if the previous command block that is pointing at it runs successfully, then the conditional command block will work. Unconditional means that it doesn't have to run successfully for it to work. Dispensers can now put pumpkins on armor stands and players. Doors and fence gates have different sounds. Trapdoors no longer need a support block. Boats for different wood types have been added and now they have paddles. They no longer break when crashing into a block, and the player can use items when the boat is in motion. Boats can now hold 2 entities, and they travel extremely quick on both ices. Falling onto hay bales causes 20% of the normal fall damage. Without armor, the player can survive 100 blocks. Beetroot has been added and can be used to make beetroot soup. This used to be a Pocket Edition exclusive. Chickens cannot be led and bred with any seed. Rabbits are now smaller, and color depends on the biome they spawn in. Igloos spawn in ice plains. They are made of snow and have some decoration in it, but in some of them there's a basement. In the basement, there are 2 villagers, one zombified. It also contains a splash potion of weakness and golden apple that can be used to cure the zombie. Superflat has a new preset, the Void. All there is a stone platform, and that's all. Treasure enchants are a new type that can only be obtained from chest loot, fishing, or trading. Frostwalker and Mending are the first 2. Frostwalker is a boot enchant, and when the player walks near water, the water turns into ice. But the ice made from the enchant melts over time. And it's also different from actual ice. Different tiers make different sizes of ice. Mending is applicable to all tools and armor and repairs the armor when gaining experience. But the item with mending has to either be worn or held out. The player doesn't gain experience when the armor is being repaired. F3 plus N switches from creative and spectator mode. When killed in hardcore mode, the player now has an option to respawn in spectator mode instead of deleting the world. F3 plus Q shows all F3 combinations. F3 plus F now increases the render distance by 1, and F3 shift F decreases by 1. In the options menu, the player can choose which hand is their dominant hand. In the world selection menu, worlds made before 15W32A will display unknown version. A thumbnail for each version is generated and becomes the icon of the world. Older worlds will have just a grayscale version of the default texture pack icon. An error pops up when hovering over the world and clicking it will load the world. Super secret settings and Twitch integration has been removed. Today's the day I've been hinting for months, is here. All I have is some diamond weapons and no bow. I didn't even bring a water bucket, but it's fine. And I didn't ride my horse to the portal because I didn't want to lose him if I couldn't find him. All these factors compounded into the most botched assassination ever. As I traveled through the different terrain of the Minecraft world, I lost many Eyes of Ender on my way. It was pretty scary because I wanted to have enough, and it would have been very embarrassing if I ran out while having extras. The journey continued on the water, which landed me on this island, but the eye would keep pointing me in different directions, which wasn't helpful. It would point in one direction, I would go there, and then when I threw another one, it would point in the complete opposite direction. This happened far into the night until one eye actually pointed downwards instead of in the air. I marked the spot and then made a shovel to dig. It took a little bit to mine down, but I couldn't find it, so I just mined in the direction of the bat, and I found it. I mined directly into the portal room and broke the spawner. I explored a little bit outside the room, but that was not what I was there for. So I set my spawn in the stronghold. The stairs were dark, so I lit them up so no mobs would spawn. These are the worst stairs to climb up and down. When I looked at the portal, I realized there was already one there, only needing 11. I had 11. Realizing this, I was relieved because that meant I didn't have to get any more eyes. I made a chest and stored some stuff in it. Since I didn't get a water bucket from my house, I made one and went up my stupid stairs to get some water. I was now ready and jumped in. Immediately, I realized it was totally out of my league. The gated crystals to me were the hardest, so I tried to break those first. But oh, I was so wrong. The main problem was I kept getting hit off the towers. I didn't have a bow, which was my greatest shortcoming in this battle. I tried my best with the stuff I brought, but I died many times. This was the most botched Ender Dragon I've ever done because it took me around 40 whole minutes to kill it. There were many times I would get up the tower just to get knocked back down. But eventually, after so much hard work and stupidity, I got all of the however many end crystals there were. I have to say, this wasn't my best moment, but I did it. Now all I had to do was kill the Ender Dragon, which took a little bit because I had a crappy sword. Finally, it was over. The dragon has been slain. Now, time to claim my egg. What the heck? Maybe it's at my spawn. Oh, where is it? Oh no, did I just lose my egg? I tried looking under the portal on both ends, testing with another item, but to no avail. I lost my ender egg? Are you kidding me? After all that fighting just to lose my one and only egg? So, I just snuck one in. Don't say a word. Keep this little secret just between us, okay? Alright? And I did make sure to take everything before I left. Now that everything's over, it's time to go home. If only I knew. While trying to avoid every mob possible, I ran straight into a ravine and died. Not only did I lose my totally legit egg, but all my levels I got from the dragon. Since I didn't want to run back from home, I broke my bed and then died, only to realize that I would spawn all the way back in the Alpha Lands. I don't know anymore. And how was that creeper so fast at killing me? What the heck? Why does nothing go my way? Needless to say, the journey was nothing but boredom, walking thousands and thousands of blocks. By the end of day 86, I got back to my temporary home at the end of the bridge. I slept, and on day 87, I took some food and then rode my horse to find my lost stuff. Even on a horse was annoying to get there because of the mountains, but I did find the ravine. Because I wanted to get my stuff quickly, I became impatient and then fell in and died again. But this time, with water bucket in hand, I was determined. But I didn't have my horse anymore, so I had to run my way back. Suffice to say, I got my stuff back and found my horse. And by the end of day 87, I got back home. On day 88, I started to build my next home, my second to last home. I wanted this to be like a bowl, but elevated above my bridge. The circle turned more into an oval instead of a circle, but it was still good enough. I ran out of wood, so I had to chop more to build the curves of the bowl. The curves were kind of hard to build because I had to use placeholder blocks for them. They turned out okay, and like every build, it looked different in my head. More like it looked better in my head, and in reality, it looks like a piece of crap. I placed torches around the bowl and added stairs on the curves of the bowl to make going up it easier. By day 89, I could start the moving process. I added some chests and then a spot for my ender egg. I had even less stuff now, so sorting through all the stuff didn't really take too long. On day 90, I went back home to retrieve my dogs. To find out which dog was which, I looked back at old footage to see who was who. I brought them over my perilous bridge and they all made it out with no deaths. Minecraft 1.10, aka the Frostburn update, was released on June 8th, 2016. In the nether, magma blocks spawn in clusters on low Y levels. When standing on it, mobs and players will take damage. Only some mobs spawn like magma cubes, zombie pigmen, and squids. While sneaking, wearing armor of Frostwalker, or having the fire resistant effect, the player will not take damage. Netherwart blocks can be crafted but can't be crafted back. With Netherwart, you can also now craft red nether bricks, a fusion between nether bricks and nether wart. Bone blocks are crafted of 9 bone meal and can be found in fossil structures underground. They resemble giant extinct creatures and generate in deserts and swamplands. Structure blocks has had their purpose revealed, and it's basically a way to save and load different structures. There's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo that I don't understand, so you can just look it up yourself. And I probably couldn't really explain it to you. Polar bears and strays spawn in snow biomes now. Polar bears can drop fish when killed. Strays are a type of skeleton that when shooting the player gives the player the slowness effect. Husks spawn in the desert and do not burn in sunlight, like a regular zombie, but applies the hunger effect when damaging the player. Mine shafts that spawn in Mesa are now different. The new variants use dark oak and gold ore spawns more frequently. Villages in taiga biomes and savannas spawn with their respective wood type. When on grass, it will spawn path blocks, and when it's on water or lava, it will be replaced with wood planks. Auto jump is an option that makes the player automatically jump a block without pressing the jump button, and F3G shows chunk borders. On day 91, I wanted to build my first permanent farm, an Enderman farm for infinite amounts of experience. First, I had to make an easy way to get the end because I didn't want to sell the 7 seeds when trying to get experience. So, nether it is. I made a nether portal and then looked back in the footage to see where the end portal was. I also had to calculate the overworld coordinates to nether coordinates, so they would be correct. It wasn't the safest thing to build over a lava pit, but I got to the coordinates. And then on the return trip, I widened the path by 1 block, for safety. After the bridge was done, I went back to the old temporary home and got the enchanting station from there. While I was there, I also went down to my old mine and mined some obsidian for the destination portal. I got all the obsidian I needed, and also some of the stuff left over from the chests, and then rode back to the bowl. Once I returned back to the bowl, I put away all the garbage and then went through the portal to place the destination portal at the end of the path. When I built the portal and went through it, I was teleported into a spot that seemed familiar. I broke the portal and then went down the stairs I made previously to build a new portal. I lit the portal and then got teleported back to the same portal in the nether. At least finally one thing goes correctly for me. I began to gather resources from my Enderman farm, so I got a bucket of water and mined a bunch of netherrack for some building blocks. When I got to the end, I made sure to stow away my important stuff in a chest so if I die while building the path, I would not be mad at myself. I probably still would have been mad at myself. My strategy was to build 128 blocks off the mainland so I can isolate the spawn area. But that was just the bridge. The construction of the farm hasn't even begun. I made an anvil and then repaired my diamond pickaxe. I also made 4 shovels to dig sand for the falling portion of the farm. Glass is not strictly required, you can use any block, but I just want to see them fall. Once I finished digging, I ran back home and I didn't even have furnaces at this point, so I had to run back down, get some stone for the furnaces, and then smelt them. Now I needed blocks for the spawning area, so I decided to use stone slabs because they were the cheapest. Since slabs are cheap, I didn't have to mine for too long. I also needed to recraft the bookshelves because I didn't have Soak Touch. At the end of the day and into day 94, I started to ride back through the bridge for some reason. But then I stopped and then started going back the other way. I have no idea what I was doing, but while riding my horse back, I fell, and I swear that all these falls are accidental. I have no idea what my hand does to swing my camera off the edge this suddenly, but it happens. To be honest, I don't really pay attention when I'm riding on the bridge. So I just used a boat and learned that horses didn't go in boats, so I left. I'll bring you back, Spirit, I promise. There are also these weird air pockets. Don't know what Minecraft was on to make these. I got back home and then took my glass and stone with me to go to the end. The construction of the shaft was first, but I realized pretty quickly that I did my math wrong. I accounted for a circumference of 6 blocks and not 8, so I was short. I had to return back to the overworld and get more sand. It was also nighttime, so it wasn't the best time. On day 95, I had this epiphany. How would I make the endermite not despawn? And apparently, boats didn't do it until 1.16, so I couldn't use boats. So my only other way of doing it was using a name tag. But I didn't have a name tag, so I had to scramble to find a way to get one. And then I remembered, I can just fish for name tags. So I did, for the entirety of day 95. But a miracle came. The first thing I got on day 96 was a name tag. And then I named it. Don't make fun of me. I named it Ender. Might I kill you? I know it's the world's best pun, guys. Right? I went to the end and then realized that I didn't bring the glass, so I had to go all the way back to get the glass. Finishing the shaft, I began to build the spawn platform in a triangular shape because that's just how I built it. Look, I know this works, so I'll stick with it. After completing the spawn platform, I made a luring platform where the endermite will be housed. To get endermite, I had to kill many endermen for their pearls. Throwing these pearls dealt a lot of damage, which sucked because I had to wait to heal. And I didn't even get one. but instead of going back down, I used my farm to my advantage and got some more pearls at the farm. Eventually I got an endermite, named it, and then trapped it in a minecart. Then I tried to trap the minecart in one block so it stayed in one spot. The enderman couldn't see through slabs, so I replaced it with trapdoors, and it worked! They started to fall down really quickly and I got the first tastes of the experience. This was better than drugs! Should I be saying that? And I also expanded the platform to house the enchanting station. I also realized that enderman could pick up the netherrack, but just ignored it for the time being and hoped I wouldn't fall. Well, spoilers, I didn't. I don't know if lighting actually does anything to the path, but I did it. Now that I have this great XP machine, I wanted to make some godly armor with the little material I had. I spent the rest of the day and day 99 for enchanting a bunch of stuff. What I did was make diamond tools, but for armor I just used iron. I had lots of iron to enchant, so it was the best idea, and tools were cheaper, which is why I used diamonds. And because iron tools suck. I also changed the floor to wood so the enderman wouldn't pick it up and make me fall. When I was done, I made some truly OP armor. It was amazing to be back up on the top. Almost. Day 100. The final day. Well, not really. I didn't really do much. It was just kind of a wrap-up day to prepare for the next part. I killed plenty of mobs and cooked plenty of food. And now, it's over. For now, at least. And now, it's over. For now, at least. Minecraft 1.11, aka the Exploration Update, was released on November 14th, 2016. Shulker boxes are like chests, but keep their items when broken. It requires shulker shells to craft, which drop 50% of the time from shulkers. In the inventory, hovering over it will display up to 5 slots of the box. When in creative, it drops itself with the items instead of totally destroying it. They break if a piston pushes it. Shulker boxes can be placed in different directions, which affect how they open. They can also be dyed and placed by dispensers. Observers are a new redstone block that takes a block update and outputs a signal. They're reported from the MCPE and Windows 10 edition. Some blocks like chests or furnaces that have a custom name retain it after breaking. Iron, gold tools, and armor cannot be smelted into nuggets. Iron nuggets can be crafted into iron ingots and vice versa. The durability bar of tools is now more vibrant throughout the whole life instead of fading as durability goes down. Illagers are hostile relatives of villagers. There are 2 types: Vindicators and Evokers. Vindicators hold iron axes and drop emeralds upon death. When named Johnny, they will attack any nearby mobs. Evokers have more unique attacks. They can summon Vexes that hold the iron sword and deals a lot of damage. Their second attack summons Fangs from the ground, dealing 6 damage regardless of armor. Totems of Undying drop in Evokers. When the player takes lethal damage, it resurrects the player, giving them regeneration and absorption. Explorer maps are traded by cartographer villagers, and are used to locate ocean monuments and the new woodland mansions. Ocean monument maps are bluer. On the map, an icon of the structure will appear, and once the player gets close enough to it, it will start to fill in. Woodland mansions generate in roof forests. They are huge structures with many rooms and multiple floors. Illagers are housed in them, and chests with loot spawn. All the rooms are randomly generated. Fireworks can be used when elytra to make the player fly. Making fireworks with more gunpowder makes the duration longer. Fireworks that have explosions at the end deal damage. Llamas are kind of like donkeys and mules. They can carry items. They attack by spitting and are always aggressive towards wolves. The player can put a carpet on them for decoration. Leashing a llama can get up to 10 llamas following the original one, making a caravan. Tame llamas can be bred with hay bales. Blazes and endermen take 1 damage from splash potions of water. Entity cramming is a limit of mobs in a block. The default amount is 24. If the entity count exceeds the limit, then mobs will start to suffocate, dealing 3 hearts of damage per tick. This also affects the players, so watch out. Curse enchantments are negative enchantments. Cursive binding makes it so the player cannot take off a piece of armor and only drops upon death. Cursive vanishing causes items to disappear upon death. /locate is a command that locates different structures. They include end cities, fortresses, mansions, mineshafts, monuments, strongholds, temples, and villages. Some structures don't specify a Y coordinate, and the command is dimension specific. The structure you're looking for has to be in the same dimension as the player. Sweeping edge increases the damage of the sweep attack. Some warnings now appear above the hotbar instead of in chat. Mending is not incompatible with infinity on bows, but existing combinations still work. A new day, a new beginning of the end. And that's no pun because I was preparing to go to the end. After killing the Ender Dragon, I was yearning to get an elytra and shulker boxes, but I wouldn't get to use an elytra for a pretty long time because I refused to use anything but fireworks. I gathered a bunch of blocks and pearls so I can go to the End Islands. Once I got to the end, I went to the End Island gateway and made a way up there. I teleported through the gateway and thought I was gonna die. It was just that the chunks didn't load. I made sure to note down the coordinates so I didn't get lost. To see more and make sure I wasn't missing anything, I increased my render distance and found an end city. Whenever possible, I forgo bridging because I don't want to fall off. Though low chance, it could still happen. I wouldn't be able to retrieve my items if I fall into the void. Well, for this one, I had to bridge, and I held on the shift button for dear life. When I got to the other end, I saw another end city, but it was so tiny. I began to start the raid of the city, and these annoying things just wouldn't stop levitating me. I don't know why, but the stuff in the chests were already on the ground, and by the time I killed all the shulkers, they already despawned. At least I brought wood so I could make shulker boxes during my raids and store some of my stuff. This city didn't have much, just a bunch of shulkers, which is still nice because I still love shulker boxes. They make life just so much more easy. After I finished raiding this city, I started to find a way to go to the tiny one, but there was just one vast void in front of me. So I buckled and then just made a bridge. Out of netherrack, the worst block to build, especially with endermen around. This city, however, was just one of the big tower ones with a bunch of shulkers inside. It was extremely infuriating to go through one of them because I kept getting shot. I killed some of them on my way, and when I got to the top, I looted the chests. The rest of the time was for cleaning up the tower and my inventory. I walked up to the roof and then turned my render distance to 64 chunks to maximize my chances. While I was panning over the horizon, I saw a huge city and it had a boat. Then I turned down my render distance so I wouldn't lag and went in the general direction of it. It did kinda suck that I make so many dangerous bridges, but eventually I made it to the humongous city. It took forever because of the countless amounts of rooms full of shulkers, which is nice but freaking annoying as crap. After clearing out most of the city, I got ready for the ship. I tried portaling up to the bridge, but that failed spectacularly, and that could have resulted in far worse than just looking at endermen. So I decided to use the tried and true method of blocking up, and then ender portaling. I stole the brewing stand and then killed the shulker guard. Finally, I got myself an elytra and made sure to get the ender dragon head. Once I was finished, I just launched an ender pearl down and got back onto the island. While I was on the ship, I saw another end city with a ship. I ran over there and this would be my last end city raid. It was relatively easier than the previous city, but there was still a huge tower. The main reason was I wanted 2 elytras so I had an extra one. If I died tragically and I couldn't retrieve my elytra for whatsoever reason, I had an extra one to use. And if I lost that one, then I guess that's it. When I tried to use a firework on the elytra, I was disappointed to see that it didn't work. So I tried my best to retrace my steps back to the end gateway and get back home safely. As I got closer to the gateway, I got a chorus flower and some fruit. I went through the gateway and then through the exit portal. It is already day 4 and I have barely been in the overworld. I firstly cleaned out my shulker boxes and then combined some armor and tools because there were some actually good items in the cities. But the bridge needs feeding. So I went back to work killing more of Mother Nature to keep the bridge satiated. I started to use my shulker boxes to my advantage and store my wood in the box. Now moving lots of things at once is so much easier, especially when I'm on the move building the bridge. Like every section, I have to build the supports and then pillars before the path. But as I finished the path and lit the bridge with torches, the bridge was approaching a mountain and it's been a while since I've made glass protection. But screw that, I wanted to explore the new lands and also find some sand on my way. And I did, a vast desert just full of sand. I also found a desert temple which had some good loot in it, like a diamond horse armor. That was basically it. I guess it was gunpowder too. As I continued, I wandered to the savannah biome to get some stuff there. But sadly, my inventory was limited because I only brought 1 shulker box. Hey look! Llamas! In the savannah biome, I also found a village. Their trades are pretty so I kept moving on. I actually found another village, this time in a different desert, but I was still disappointed to see that there was no mending trades. But I did find another desert temple and a bunch of gunpowder. I wanted to stock up for when I started using fireworks for flying. After that temple though, my inventory was on the verge of exploding, so I went back home. Home did take a little to get to because I didn't use a bow. I still really wanted to test out my depth strider and wanted to use it wherever I could. When I did get home, I cleaned out my stuff and got 2 shulker boxes. Since I still needed glass, I went back out to the desert and dug a ton of sand. I wanted to avoid digging during the night because I didn't want to get exploited by creepers, but it was a lot of sand so it took a while. I dug all the sand I needed and then returned home to sleep the rain away. On day 10, I descended the canopy into the forest for wood. I needed more wood because I didn't have enough coal to smelt all the sand I brought. While that sand was smelting, I went to the end of the bridge to clear out some of the trees in the way of the bridge. After that, I returned home to watch my sand smelt and continue smelting some more. Minecraft 1.12, aka the World of Color update, was released on June 7th, 2017. Beds can now be made in 16 different colors. Concrete is a new building block that is like wool but has more of a solid color. Concrete powder is made of gravel, sand, and dye, which is turned into solid concrete when touching water. Glazed terracotta is smelted terracotta, previously called hardened clay. They have cool new patterns that can be tessellated, but they don't stick to pistons though. Beds now bounce like slime blocks, but not as much. They reduce damage to some degree, and without armor, the player can survive a 41 block fall. The color of blocks like wool are now more vibrant than they used to be. The illusioners are a new type of illager that can give the player 20 seconds of blindness and shoots the player with a bow. They can also spawn a duplicate of itself. They are currently unused and have no spawn egg. The only way to spawn one is through the summon command. Illusioners are also a Java exclusive. Parrots are mobs that spawn in jungles. They fly around, but when tired, they sit. Parrots are tamed with seeds, but if fed cookies, they will get poisoned and die. When mobs are nearby, they crowd around and imitate the sounds of those mobs. Walking over to a tame parrot while crouching will make the parrot sit on the player's shoulder and flies when jumping. The recipe book is a book in the inventory that shows crafting recipes. When a recipe is clicked, the items will go in the crafting grid if materials are available. If not, ghost images will appear. A notification pops up when the player unlocks new crafting recipes when the player obtains the necessary materials. Tutorial pop-ups display once per device but can be broken in Java by going back and forth from older versions. There's subtle hints that help new players, I guess. When closing the crafting menu, the items in the crafting grid doesn't drop on the ground, instead places them in the inventory. In creative mode, save toolbars are a new function that saves the hotbar of the player. They can be saved with C and loaded with X. Using those keys in conjunction with the numbers will select the slot to save and load. There can be up to 9 slots. Advancements replace achievements. There are different tabs that have different advancements that pertain to different parts of the game. Like achievements, they pop up when a player gets one. There are 2 different types of advancements, normal and challenge. Normal advancements are yellow and are normal. Challenge advancements are purple and gives the player experience when achieving it. The narrator can be turned on with Control B and automatically reads chat messages including names if they're from a player. In the main menu, the subtle but also unsubtle Java edition has been added for the Java edition. This change caused some controversy because of what people thought it implied. To many people, it implied that Java Minecraft wouldn't be the main version because the Bedrock edition of the game was just called Minecraft. The message that is sent out was that Java was just another edition. From what I remember, it also worried people that Java would be on the back burner and eventually phased out in favor for Bedrock, but that never happened and it was never planned to do that. On day 11, I was done waiting for glass, so I wanted to do something productive, so I went mining for 3 days. And now since I had fortune, mining ores that didn't drop the ore itself dropped way more items. Coal is one of my main needs because of how much smelting I do, and I got stacks of blocks of coal and redstone, but who cares about that? Psh. I got a good chunk of iron, gold, and lapis, but diamonds. This was the jackpot for diamonds, resulting in 39 diamonds, over a half a stack of diamonds. My pickaxe did take a hitting though, but it was worth it. My philosophy with mining is that if I'm gonna go through a pickaxe, I should get enough to replace it at the very least. And I can replace multiple with this one. When I mined out the mine shaft, I was greeted by water. I mined so far that I was far off the shore of the swamp. I was taken aback a little bit. Once I got back home, I organized my chests and shulker boxes. After that, I took out the glass and then smelted my ores that I got from mining. I spread my ores a lot more, which required me to make more furnaces. By day 15, all my stuff was done smelting. I wanted to make a potato farm. My food supply at this point was just whatever I can get my hands on, but a potato farm would give me a more permanent way of getting food. It wasn't too big, but it was still respectable. After that farm, I continued to bridge into the mountain and build some glass protection. It's one of my favorite parts of the bridge, but the most annoying to build. I lit up my bridge and I made way too many trips back and forth from the bowl and the bridge end. This part of the bridge is cool to see, but also weird to build. Sometimes it's hard to gauge whether glass is required, and also sometimes the bridge just barely gets covered by the mountain. I finished my quota for the bridge and I want to see whether my horse can ride in my boat. And he couldn't, which made me a little bit sad. At this point, my horse has been in the water for weeks. But I'll get you. So I went back up and then went through the portal towards the end portal, which is a weird sentence to say. I still wanted to get mending, so I got some obsidian for a portal if I find a village that has a mending villager, and some experience for my only mending items, my shovel and helmet. I went through around 4 villages and still no mending books. There were so many cartographers around that made me so mad. So many times I was like, why can't you just sell me books? But I did find another desert temple and got some good stuff, I guess. I might just have to wait for when villagers get their update. What a bummer. I sailed the 14 seas to get back home, and once I finished putting my stuff away, I had some nice sweet dreams. Minecraft 1.13, aka Update Aquatic, was released on July 18th, 2018. Update Aquatic was first revealed at Minecon Earth 2017 on November 18th, 2017. It was originally supposed to be split into 2 updates. 1.13 was supposed to be about technical changes, and 1.14 was the actual Aquatic update. The release date was also supposed to be on May 30th, 2018, but was delayed because of critical bugs. Blue ice is a new ice that generates in icebergs. They can be crafted with 9 packed ice and are more slippery. Packed ice can now be crafted from 9 regular ice. Trapdoors and pressure plates now have variants for each wood type. Carved pumpkins take the old pumpkin texture and can be gone from shearing regular pumpkins. Bubble columns are made from having source blocks of water above soul sand or magma blocks. When the player is in one, they don't lose air. Soul sand pushes the player up while magma blocks pull the player down. Magma blocks now spawn naturally at the bottom of ocean ravines. Conduits are a new block that can be activated with a 5x5 open square of any type of prismarine blocks or sea lanterns. They are crafted 1 Heart of the Sea and 8 Nautilus shells. Hearts of the Sea spawn in buried treasure, and Nautilus shells are gotten from drowns or fishing. The conduit will give the player water breathing, night vision, and faster mining speed. Prismarine can also be made into stairs, slabs that come in all variants. Coral, coral fans, and coral blocks spawn in coral reefs in warm oceans and have many variants. They can only be obtained with soak touch and placed in water. Otherwise, they will die and turn gray. Bone meal can be used to grow corals and coral fans. Strip logs, including six-sided logs, are a barkless version of the logs and can be obtained by right-clicking logs with an axe. They can be converted into planks like regular logs. Six-sided logs now have an item form and can be crafted from 4 regular logs, making 3. Turtles are a new water mob that lays eggs when bred with seagrass. The eggs attract zombies, zombie pigmen, and drowns who step on the eggs until broken. As time goes on, they start to crack and eventually a baby turtle will spawn. Turtle shells are helmets that give 2 armor points and water breathing for 10 seconds. They are made from scoop, which is dropped when a baby turtle grows up. Kelp is a new plant that spawns underwater. They can only be placed underwater and can grow many blocks tall. Seagrass is like grass but spawns underwater. Seagrass is also dropped from turtles. Sea pickles generate in warm oceans, especially around coral reefs. There can be up to 4 of them placed in a single block and adds 3 lead levels per pickle when underwater. Smelting them will result in lime dye. Kelp can be cooked in a furnace and be eaten for 1 hunger, and it can also be crafted into dry kelp blocks for smelting. Dry kelp blocks can smelt up to 20 items. Watercolor depends on the biome. It gets darker the colder it gets and greener the warmer it gets, but swamps stay the color. Shipwrecks can have up to 3 chests of loot, one of which has a map that leads to buried treasure. Buried treasure has 1 heart of the sea along with other stuff like iron, gold, etc. Dolphins are a new mob that spawn in oceans. They are neutral and will attack in groups if one is angered. They play with nearby items by picking them up and dropping them. They can be fed raw cod but don't breed. Dolphins can jump above the water and suffocate if outside for too long. When the player swoops through a dolphin, they will get Dolphin's Grace that makes the player swim faster. Drowns are mobs that can spawn in all oceans, rivers, swamps, and underwater ruins. When zombies go into water, after some time they will morph into drowns. Chests cannot be placed together without needing a block between them. Placing a chest next to a single chest by shift-clicking an existing chest will try to make it combine into a double chest. Fish now spawn as mobs. Cod, salmon, and pufferfish. There are also tropical fish that drop clownfish and come in many different variants. Fish can now be captured in buckets, and when the water is placed, the fish goes with it. Salmon now have a 5% chance of dropping bone meal when killed. Dispensers no longer need a full durability bow to craft. Phantoms are added from the mob boat from Minecon Earth 2017. They spawn in the overworld at high altitudes and swoop down in groups of 3 to 4. Phantoms only spawn when the player hasn't slept for a couple days. They burn in sunlight. Phantom membranes are dropped from phantoms and can be brewed into slow falling potions. Slow falling prevents all fall damage and crop trampling. The potion of the Turtle Master gives slowness 4 and resistance 3 for 20 seconds. It is obtained by brewing with a turtle shell. Petrified oak slabs are now the old wooden slabs required a pickaxe to mine. Tridents are a new weapon that can be thrown or be used as a melee weapon. It deals 9 damage and can be obtained by killing a drowned. Elytras now require phantom membranes to repair instead of leather. Buffet is a new world type that allows the creation of worlds that consist of 1 biome. Many more enchantments have been added. Channeling is applied to tridents, and when the trident is used during a storm, it spawns lightning bolt. Impaling deals more damage to water mobs. Loyalty makes the trident return to the player when thrown. Riptide is not compatible with loyalty or channeling. When it is raining or the player is in water, throwing the trident will launch the player in the air. The player can actually swim now when, quote, sprinting in water. Oxygen levels don't immediately regenerate after getting out of water. Waterlogging blocks is when the player places water in a block. Those blocks include chests, stairs, slabs, fences, walls, iron bars, glass panes, trapdoors, ladders, and signs. Water flows out of the block as if it was a regular source block but doesn't flow in. The flattening was a process that changed all numeric metadata of blocks to block states. The IDs of blocks are now names instead of numeric IDs. The menu screen panorama was changed for the update and the details are here. On day 21, since the villager run was a horrific failure, I want to go mining again. It worked last time, so it should work this time again. I repaired my pickaxe and took even more shulker boxes this time for more storage. We started this strip mine off of some gold. This might mean some good luck. And it did! I excavated a whole whopping 17 diamonds off the first vein of diamonds. This mining adventure was even better than the previous one. I mined for 3 days from day 21 to the end of day 23. In one of the caves I got lost because I couldn't tell where I came from, but I did find my way back out. In the end, I mined over a stack of diamonds. So many diamonds! And I got so much of everything else. From redstone, to iron, to gold. Even though there's not much use for all this stuff, especially iron, but it's good to have. And look at all that coal. We have so much coal. I need so much coal actually. After one of the best mining sessions I've ever had, I ran back through the strip mine and back home. On day 24, I cleaned up the stone box and then processed my other ores. All of the items that didn't need smelting, I just put them in my precious items chest. I went to my potato farm to see if anything grew, but nothing did, so I chopped down a tree. My gold finished smelting, so I made them into blocks and then went to make another sugarcane farm. And then while doing that, a creeper came up to me. Are you trying to sabotage me, creeper? Are you kidding me? I had leftover sugarcane, so I decided to make more fireworks to see whether I can fly with them. It still didn't work, and at this point, I don't even know if I was doing something wrong. My iron was done smelting, so I made them into blocks. Then I got some of my bones for bone meal from my potato crops. I cooked my potatoes that I netted and then went out to the bridge. The bridge was still underground, so I finished digging through the mountain. On the outside of the mountain passage, there was just too many trees around, so in preparation for the next parts of the bridge, I cleared out as much forest as I could. The tall oak trees were especially hard to chop because of how the trunks generate. I was pretty done with chopping trees and trying to stack up to see how far this forest goes. It went pretty far, but I did see a plains at the edge of my render distance. I returned back to the bowl to see if my potatoes were done, but since I was out of render distance, they weren't even loaded. I took the potatoes that were cooked and then repaired my iron armor. This is why I use iron armor. It's also cheap to repair. The oceans were updated and I wanted to find some coral, and also the warm oceans always look the coolest to me. When trying to find the new terrain, I somehow went back into the ravine where I lost my levels and my egg. Bad memories. I kept running and then found an ocean. It was the old one, but I rowed a boat along the shoreline and then saw a kelp in the distance. It was kind of weird to see the sharp divide in ocean color, almost like those pictures of the seawater and freshwater touching. I actually got pretty lucky because right around the same area, I found a warm ocean with coral. I collected some sea pickles and some coral, but when I tried to collect coral blocks, I got nothing. I couldn't really do much, so I kept boating around until I saw a sunken ship. My first one. The first chest was easy to find, but the remaining ones were not as easy. I hate how they're all hidden, but I found the map eventually. On day 27, I went to find the hidden treasure. It wasn't that far away. At first, I tried to find it by eyeballing it and then just resorted to the 9-9 trick. The treasure had some good loot in it, but it was pretty boring. While finding the island, I also saw an ocean monument and wanted to loot it. But I wasn't prepared, so I went back home. I organized my stuff for my trek and then made 1,000,000 buckets for milk. It's probably too much, but who cares? Mining fatigue sucks. I found a cow and then milked it. A bunch. After filling my shulker box of milk buckets, I continued on my trip back to the monument. On the island that had treasure, I set up a little outpost just in case I died. I mined directly from the top of the monument and found the first Elder Guardian. What luck! Killing the Elder Guardian was a pain, but after I finished, I put away some of my milk because I had too much of it. And then, I got my first mining fatigue. Great. But you know what? That's what milk is for. As I continued to swim around the monument, this time the Elder Guardian was surrounded by its goons. I had to drink more milk to stop the mining fatigue, and with the empty bucket, I found out I can regain air that way. Once I finished killing it, I went to find the next and last one. During that search, I also found the gold core, which was neat. The last Elder Guardian was in possibly the worst spots. It was in a huge ruin that spanned around the whole structure, and had plenty of spots for guardians to spawn. It was the most dangerous one because they kept hiding and swimming around these pesky guardians. Eventually I killed it, but now I wanted to find the sponge rooms. I swam around for like 5 minutes, inside and out, trying to find this elusive room, but to no avail. I literally couldn't find it anywhere. So I left in sadness with my 3 sponges I got from the Elder Guardians. But on my way out, I found another shipwreck and I had to loot it. I found the treasure map and then made my way to the treasure. I used the 9-9 trick again, and this time the treasure had TNT in it. Like I have any use for TNT. I don't want to blow up. Probably. For most of day 29, I continued to find and loot shipwrecks, but it wasn't too eventful. The map I got led me to the same frickin' island. Come on. While riding my boat, I saw another village in the distance and then ransacked it. There was no villager of mending though, so the search was still on. After that, I walked around the shore and started swimming around. I saw an underwater ravine and decided to go into it. It was a pretty good idea because after some mobs were in my way, I found some diamonds. I made sure to safeguard my diamonds and then got 9 out of the ores I mined. Before I left, I looted one more shipwreck and I didn't even check the map this time. When I got back home, I started to organize all my stuff and clean out my boxes. And since I haven't slept in a while, I got my first taste of having the phantoms annoy me. They would just keep nagging me and stop me from sleeping. Eventually I got to sleep so these things would stop attacking me. Minecraft 1.14, aka the Village and Pillage update, was released on April 23rd, 2019. 1.14 was also called the Texture update because of the massive update of all the game's textures. It was not a complete change, more of a subtle style change. Bamboo is a new plant that spawns in bamboo forests in jungles. They can grow up to 12 to 16 blocks tall and be fed to pandas. In a furnace, they can also be used as a fuel source and be planted in a pot. They can also be crafted into sticks and scaffolding. Pandas have 20 health. Some are weaker, which have half the health. They have varying traits and are breedable. Scaffolding is a new climbable block. Depending on which direction the player is facing, the scaffolding will place in a different direction. When the bottom block of the scaffolding is broken, the whole structure is broken. Bells spawn in villagers and can be bought from villagers. Players can right-click it to ring it. When ringing it, it will generate village meeting points and apply the glowing effect to pillagers if they are within a 32 block radius of the bell. Pillagers are hostile mobs that spawn in groups, raids, or outposts. They're like opposites to villagers in some ways. Pillager patrols spawn in packs of 5. There's a pillager that's wearing a banner which is the leader of the pack. When killed by the player, it will give the bad omen effect. This effect will start a raid when close by a village. The raids can get more intense the higher the bad omen level the player has. It can also be increased by killing more pillager leaders. Waves of pillagers, vindicators, witches, and ravagers will spawn. A progress bar will appear at the top of the screen that shows the amount of mobs left in a wave and goes down as pillagers are killed. New waves start after all have been killed. The player will get an effect, Hero of the Village, and trade prices will decrease. Ravagers are beasts that have 100 health and don't get knocked back. They destroy crops and leaves as well as killing villagers and iron golems. Pillagers can also ride them. Pillager outposts are structures that spawn pillagers and pillager leaders. There are loot chests that spawn in the building. Pillagers spawn with crossbows. They charge up and then can be shot at any time. Fireworks can also be launched by having them on the offhand and then charging it. There are 3 enchantments that can be applied to crossbows. Multi-shot fires 3 shots at once and is incompatible with piercing. Piercing allows the projectile to pierce through mobs. Quick Charge decreases the reload speed by 0.25 seconds per level. Wandering Traders have a random chance of spawning within a 48 block radius of the player. 2 Trader Llamas also spawn the trader and drop 1 lead when killed. Wandering Traders have 6 traders that are randomized and are limited. They will despawn after 2 in-game days and drink invisibly potions to hide from mobs. Villagers have different clothing not only for their profession but also the biome they're in. If the player is holding an item that the villager is trading for, they will hold up the item that they trade. All villagers spawn unemployed and take the job that is nearest with an open job block that hasn't been taken yet. Trades are resupplied twice during every working period and if a work block is available. Depending on the demand for trade, the price will fluctuate. Villages in different biomes have different looks and architecture. Villages are no longer based on doors but instead of job sites, beds, and meeting points. Blast furnaces are a new type of furnace that can exclusively smelt ores at 2 times the speed. They can be crafted and generated in villages. Villagers can be armorers when taking the job at this block. Smokers are a new furnace type that can cook food exclusively. Same as blast furnaces, they work at twice the speed. They can be crafted and generated as the butcher's job block. Cartography cables allow the cloning, extending, and locking of maps. They can be crafted or generated in villages as job blocks for villagers. Composters are blocks that convert plant material into bone meal. They can be crafted and be used as job blocks for farmers. Fletching tables don't have any use other than as a job block for Fletcher villagers. Grindstones remove enchantments that are not curses on any tool, armor, or book. They can also repair items by combining them. They spawn in villages as job blocks for the weaponsmiths and can be crafted. On the topic of enchantments, in some versions of 1.14, the protection enchantments became no longer mutually exclusive, allowing for god sets to be made. They were then made mutually exclusive in 1.14.3. Lecterns are podiums that hold books. Right-clicking it will let the player put a book in it. It will then display the book to be read. They generate in villages as work blocks for librarians. They were actually from a scrapped idea from 2012. Looms are blocks that make the process of decorating banners easier. Patterns can be crafted for repeat use with more banners. They also act as the shepherd's workstation and can be crafted. Smithing tables generate in villages and can be crafted. They are the toolsmith's worksite. Stonecutters are used as a simpler way to make stone variants like slabs, stairs. They can be crafted and generate in villages as the job block for masons. Stonecutters were originally added in Pocket Edition. Brewing stands now generate in villages for clerics and cauldrons generate in villages for the leather workers. Campfires are a decorative block that doesn't cause fire to spread. They can be crafted and generate in taiga villages. When cooking food, they cook 3 times slower at 30 seconds than a furnace. Campfires don't have an inventory, instead placing food directly on the campfire with right click. They emit smoke particles that can be seen from a long distance. They deal damage when standing on it. Using a water bucket or a splash potion of water will put it out. Sweetberry bushes are found in taiga biomes and can be planted from sweet berries. Sweet berries give 2 hunger. They are harvested from right clicking. When walking through one, it slows the mob down except foxes. And in the fully grown stage, they deal damage to mobs like cactuses except foxes. Foxes have 10 health and spawn in taigas. They are nocturnal and run away from the player. They can be bred by using sweet berries. They can hold items in their mouths, and in snowy taigas, they can spawn with a white coat. Cats have 10 health and spawn as strays in villages. Black cats spawn in witches' huts. During Minecon Earth 2018, another cat skin was added by Vogue. The cat skin was made after Jelly, good time with Scar's cat. Tame wolf kills now also count as player kills, meaning what players can get with killing mobs, a tame wolf can also do as well. With the addition of the cat as a mob, ocelots and cats are now 2 separate mobs. Ocelots can no longer be tamed. Iron golems not only spawn if enough villagers meet, have worked, and slept, or if they were hurt by a zombie. A brown mushroom was added, but does not spawn naturally. 3 new types of flowers were added: cornflowers, lilies of the valley, and wither roses. Cornflowers can be crafted into blue dye. Lilies of the valleys can be crafted into white dye. Wither roses are obtained through a wither killing an any undead mob. They can be made into black dye and deals 1 second of wither effect on any mob that stands on it. It only works in difficulties above peaceful. Blue, brown, black, and white dye have been added. They are made from the old M that previously was the dye. Leather horse armor is a new type of horse armor that can be crafted. It can also be dyed. Lanterns are a new light source that can hang off blocks. Crafting it takes iron nuggets and a torch. Lanterns were originally supposed to be released during the Halloween update. Signs have new variants and can be dyed all 16 colors. Sheep cannot be sheared with shears through a dispenser. Nether brick fences have changed in recipe. The old one now makes the walls. And stone blocks have been renamed to smooth stone slabs because of an actual stone slab. Explosions now have a 100% drop rate, and vines can be climbed without supporting blocks. In shipwrecks, suspicious stew is a new food that can spawn. They are crafted like mushroom stew but with a flower. 6 hunger is restored and gives the player a random effect. Depending on the flower, the player gets a different effect. Here are the flowers and their corresponding effects. When the player crouches, the player is now 1.5 blocks, allowing them to move under slabs. The panorama art also has been updated, and these are the details. When worlds are being created or loaded, a loading animation will run showing the chunks. When the game is loading, a progress bar was also added. In the resource packs menu, a pack called programmer art was added. It changes the new textures into the original textures. On day 31, I started to chop a ton of wood because I had a strategy for getting mending. My strategy is to trade sticks for emeralds. I know it'll take a long time, but it is the easiest thing to trade that's easy to get. I also got plenty of fletching tables and lecterns so the villagers will have the trades I wanted. I also brought food and bed, so in case there wasn't enough villagers, they could do the, I made 3 lecterns in case I got a trade I wanted besides mending. On day 32, I began my journey to find a village so I can get my books. I wanted to find a new village that had all the changes in the update, but that wasn't going too well. I took the whole day running around and boating around the world. In the end, I did find a village, though it was an old one that I did explore. I'm pretty sure it was a blessing in disguise because the old villages don't have workstations, which makes the job acquiring part a lot easier. Then I slept so the villagers will start accepting professions. The first villager that got a job was a Fletcher, and what I did not realize is that not all Fletchers buy sticks for emeralds. So I just wasted my emeralds on leveling up a villager for no reason. It took me until day 36 to get all the mending books I needed. In fact, when counting how many I needed, I forgot that some of my tools already had mending, so I got extras. Throughout most of those days, it was repeatedly breaking and replacing lecterns. There was one mending villager in the early stages, but I passed it off in the hopes of getting a cheaper price. Which I did, but it did take a lot of time to get another mending villager. When I finished getting the books, I brought it back home and installed another temple. I still had a lot of shulkers that were full, so I literally spent the rest of the night cleaning out like 7 boxes, including the villager ones. After finishing that, I wanted to play some music for my dogs. But if you guys remember what happened the last time I did anything with a jukebox, I lost all my stuff, so this time I was a little bit more cautious. I made the jukebox and then tested it away from the bowl so it wouldn't destroy the bowl if something went wrong. Once I knew it was safe to play my music, I played some near my dogs as the sun rose. It was pretty nice, but it was a little bit too loud. Now that grindstones are a thing and can disenchant my armor, I can make my diamond armor now. The only reason up until now was that if I were to brute force armor, the enchantments would be permanent. Now, if I had an enchantment that I didn't like, I could just scrap it. It did take a little bit and a good number of diamonds because I was combining armor pieces. Even with an enderman farm, getting experience was still not the quickest, and it didn't help that I had to re-enchant my armor so many times. But with making my sword, I was a little bit worried. Swords usually have the most enchants, and doing it wrong can make combining it too expensive. But thankfully that never happened, otherwise I would have lost my mind. Since I changed my spawn and then removed it in the mending village, I was teleported back to the Alpha Lands. And what I found was shocking. I finally found my legit ender egg, but with company that I didn't want. So I got the egg and then flew back home with my fireworks that now actually work. Even with flying, it did take a couple minutes of just straight flying to make it back to the bowl. When I arrived at the bowl, I made sure to replace the fake egg with the new egg. And I made sure to put away the real egg to avoid confusion. Then I renamed the egg to mark that it was the fake one. And at last, the real egg was back at its rightful spot. The bowl. Minecraft 1.15, aka the Buzzy Bee update, was released on December 10th, 2019. Bees are a new flying mob. Bees have 10 health and live in nests or hives in groups. If it doesn't have a home, it will wander until they find one. Up to 3 bees can live in one hive or nest. Bees are neutral mobs, so when attacked, they become angered. It angers all the bees of the same hive. When attacking the player, it will give the player poison for 10 seconds, and after around a minute, they die. They can be bred with any type of flower. When outside the hive, they will go to the nearest flower to gather nectar. Beehives are blocks that house bees. After bees gather nectar and return to the hive, the amount of honey increases. It can be harvested with shears and glass bottles. They can also be collected using those items in dispensers as well. Glass bottles result in honey bottles and shears result in honeycombs. If the player breaks the hive, the bees will come out angry and try to attack the player, except if it was harvested with silk touch. Then the bees will stay inside. Also, if honey bottles or honeycomb were harvested with a campfire under the hive, then the bees won't get angry. Otherwise, they would. Honeycombs can be used for honeycomb blocks, which are completely decorative. Honey bottles can be consumed and restore 6 hunger and also removes the poison effect. Bee nests spawn in trees and flower forests with a 2% chance and a 0.2% chance in any other forest. When growing a tree near flowers, there's a 5% chance of a bee's nest spawning. Honey blocks are like slime blocks, but can be crafted with 4 bottles of honey. They are stickier than slime blocks and work like slime blocks when pulling blocks with it, but they don't stick to each other. Entities touching the side of the block will slide down slowly. Honey blocks are actually a little smaller than a regular block, so they can walk on the side of one. Bells will now ring when powered with redstone. Campfires cannot be put out with shovels. Wet sponges dry in the nether when placed down. Iron golems cannot be healed with iron ingots. When attacked, they get cracked slowly. Iron ingots heal 25 health, and 4 is enough to heal from 1 to full health. All food is now edible and creative. Players can set the spawn point even when not sleeping. It will show the message, respawn point set. If a villager is in the bed, it will kick out the villager when the player attempts to sleep. Sneaking and sprinting cannot be held or toggled in the accessibility settings. The panorama screen has been updated to include the new features. Here are the details. Now that all my tools and armor are basically done, I can continue my other projects. Well, when I mean other projects, I mean the only other project I have. The bridge. But this time I want to see the new stuff in this version only through the bridge. The problem with this strategy is that 1.15 didn't have any world-shaking terrain updates. So the only other way I could tell that we were 1.15 is that if I saw a bee. But bees are not that common. Nevertheless, I still tried. Throughout day 41, I chopped out a bunch of trees for more bridge. Hint hint. It wasn't enough. The roof forest that I lived in was actually getting visibly smaller, so I moved to another forest that I would care less for. On day 42, I brought the wood plus more coal and glass at the end of the bridge. But as I was constructing the girder, I hit a tree. Turns out that I didn't clear out the forest that much. I tried my best, even with the trees in the way, up until I met the river. Night was here, and since I didn't sleep, these jerks are back. Somehow I killed all of them even while building the pillars, so I had some time without annoyance. The bridge at this point wasn't actually that high from the ground, so a witch threw a potion up onto the bridge and poisoned me. I finished the supports even with the mobs and began on the path. Before the night ends, I made sure to sleep so I would have a couple of peaceful nights without phantoms. On day 43, after I went back to the bridge and moved my boxes over, I had an idea. Instead of chopping trees manually, why don't I just burn them? And I know what you might be asking. Then you won't get the wood, or what if your bridge burns? It's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. First of all, the oak trees don't even give that much wood to begin with, and I did make sure to leave a buffer around the bridge so it won't get burnt. When I arrived at the forest, I started to burn the forest. It was actually very therapeutic to see all the trees burn down. It wasn't the cleanest burn, leaving some remnants, though it did do most of the job. As I finished the path on the previous portion and started on the next, I quickly realized how much glass this would take. Since this part was actually so close to the ground, actually just touching it, I would have to cover this whole portion so it wouldn't be a hazard. But you know what? I'll deal with that once I finish the bridge portion. This portion was the worst to build at night, and it's pretty obvious why. Day was here, and since the pillar and supports were easier to build because they were basically on the ground, I could finish up the path. I also made a little bit more that hangs off but uses the mountain as an anchor. It was half because I was lazy and because I thought it looked cool, but I can't forget about lighting. That's very important. Now this is where I got a little bit worried. As I kept going on, I didn't see any bees, which made me thought these chunks were already loaded. But I pushed on building, and also burning without burning my own bridge. I spent all of day 45 and some of 46 continuing the bridge up until another mountain. Then I kept on building the supports and pillars and then finished up with the path. Now that all of the bridge portion I was building was finished, I began the glass protection part. It was going to cost me dearly because of how many parts of the bridge required that. All of the mountain entrances and the part of the bridge that were too low to the ground. I flew back home again and then got 3 shulker boxes for sand. All of the sand after smelting will equate to around 57 segments of glass protection, and each segment is around 10 blocks long if you forgot. I think this might have been the fastest I've ever dug sand because I wanted to be punctual, because I was actually kind of running out of time, even though I was only doing like one thing, and that was building the bridge. Before I went back to make a bridge, I made a ton of furnaces and then brought a bunch of coal. I set up the furnaces at the end of the bridge and then started to smelt all of the sand. While the sand was being smelted, I began to build the arches for the glass protection. Not you again. Really? You guys are coming back for seconds? After the arches were done, I got the glass and then started to build the protection. The first parts were finished during the day, but the last parts were at night. But this isn't the end, as I continued to mine through the mountain until the other side. Since I still haven't seen a bee once, I flew around in desperation to find one. I found one, but it was so far away, and the fear that these chunks were already loaded were not getting any better. Since this bridge portion has already taken long enough, I'll just cut it short and just say I finally stopped building the bridge when I arrived at the mega taiga biome. But when I was nearing the end of building, I was building like my life depended on it because I was actually about to run out of time in the 10-day allotment. And you know what? These phantoms were not even helping. They were just flying around and annoying me ever so often. Minecraft 1.16, aka the Nether update, was released on June 23rd, 2020. The Nether got a huge overhaul and is way more diverse now. Biomes are added to the Nether. Other than the default biome of Netherrack, now renamed to Nether Wastes, Basalt Deltas, Crimson Forests, Soul Sand Valleys, and Warp Forests were added. Basalt Deltas consist of pillars and large pockets of basalt and blackstone with lava spawning between the basalt. The air is filled with ash particles. Basalt can be placed directionally and be polished. When lava is flowing over soul soil and touches blue ice, it will generate basalt. Blackstone can be made into many variants and blocks, and it can also be used as an alternative for stone. Crimson Forests and Warp Forests are kind of similar to each other, except for color. There are grass blocks called nylon that spawns on the floor of these biomes. Netherrack can be bone mealed if there's a nylon block next to it. Crimson trees and warp trees spawn and have their respective wood types. Vines also grow off them. The leaves of these trees are warp blocks, and the crimson trees actually use the nether warp block. Logs are called stems and can be made into planks. Those planks can be made into the same derivative blocks like any other wood type, though the wood does not burn. The fungi are like saplings and can be grown into the trees. Warp roots are like the grass of the nether. Hyphae are the six-sided versions of the crimson and warp stems. Shroomlights are like glowstone that spawn on the crimson and warped trees. Hoglins spawn in crimson forests and are hostile. They are like ravagers but the pig version of them. When killed they drop pork chops and leather. They have 40 health and can be bred with crimson fungi. Hoglins avoid places with warp fungi, respawn anchors, and nether portals. If traveled to the overworld or end, they will turn into zoglins, a zombified version. Zombie pigmen have been replaced by zombified piglins. You will be missed. Or not. Piglins are the unzombified versions of zombified piglins. Piglins spawn in nether wastes and crimson forests. They have 16 health and spawn with golden swords or crossbows. Baby versions are not hostile, but the adults are. If the player is wearing gold armor, they will not attack, but they do become hostile when breaking gold related blocks or opening chests, even when wearing gold armor. Players can borrow gold of piglins, and in return they will drop blocks or items. On occasion, they will attack adult hoglins and will attack the wither skeletons on sight. Like hoglins, when in other dimensions they will turn into their zombified versions. A new enchantment called Soul Speed was added. It's only obtainable through piglin bartering or bastion loot chests. It applies to the boots and makes the player walk faster on soul soil and soul sand. When walking over soul blocks, the boots will have a chance of losing durability at around 4%. Striders are a new mob that spawns and walks on lava. They have 20 health and are passive. When killed, they drop string. Striders can be ridden with a saddle. If they're outside of lava, they will turn a bluish purple and shiver and will walk slower. When in rain or water, they will take damage. They can be bred with warp fungi and can spawn with a zombified piglin sitting on it. Bastions are a new structure that spawn in all nether biomes. There are 4 different types of structures: the bridge, hoglin stable, housing unit, and treasure rooms. A new music disc called Pigstep has been added and is composed by Lena Rain. It is only found in the chests of the Bastions. Piglin brutes are stronger variants of the piglins and wield golden axes. They do not get fooled by golden armor and are always hostile. Brutes have 50 health and only spawn in Bastions on generation. Soul Sand valleys are huge open areas composed of soul sand and soul soil with the occasional fossil. Soul Fire is a blue variant that requires soul sand or soil to be made. It does not get extinguished in rain and does more damage at 2 health per second instead of 1. Soul Soil is considered a full block unlike Soul Sand and can be used to summon the Wither. Soul Campfires, lanterns, and torches are blue versions of their regular versions that emit less light, but soul campfires deal more damage and repels piglins. Piglins don't spawn in soul sand valleys, instead skeletons do, along with endermen and ghasts. Ancient debris can spawn at any level in the nether, but is commonly found between a Y level of 8 to 22. It can be smelted into netherite scrap and crafted into netherite ingots. They always spawn with blocks around it and is completely fire resistant. They are used to craft netherite armor and tools with diamond items in the smithing table. Netherite items are better than diamond. They not only have more durability, but deal more damage for the weapons and is faster for the tools. They also do not burn in lava or fire. An advancement can be achieved when the player makes a netherite hoe. Chains generate in bastions and can be crafted. Crying obsidian has been re-added and are used to craft respawn anchors. They can be obtained from ruin portals, bastion loots, or bartering with piglins. In the programmer art pack, they use the old 2011 crying obsidian texture. Nether gold ore is a new type of gold ore that spawns exclusively in the nether. It drops gold nuggets when mined without soak touch. It is affected by fortune and drops experience. Gilded blackstone is found in bastions and is like the nether gold ore. It has a chance of dropping gold nuggets and is affected by fortune. Lodestones are blocks which can be used as compasses. Right-clicking one with a compass will make the compass point to that lodestone. Respawn anchors are used to set spawn points in the nether. They can have up to 4 charges which goes down after respawning. When used in the overworld or end, they will explode like how beds explode. It has its own advancement, not quite 9 lives, which is given when fully charging an anchor. Quartz bricks are new decorative quartz block. Ruin portals are now broken portals that spawn in the nether and overworld. They can spawn underwater and underground as well. A loot chest spawns right next to the shattered portal. Targets are blocks that when hit by projectiles, they emit a redstone signal. Redstone can be isolated by right-clicking. It turns from a cross to the dot version. Hoes can now be enchanted with efficiency, fortune, and silk touch. They mine these blocks faster than using any other tool. Customized worlds can be made with many parameters for world settings. It can be exported into a JSON file for future use. Data packs can also be added to worlds. A new graphics option called Fabulous, which uses per pixel blending layers for some transparent elements. The main menu has a new panorama screen that shows the nether and its new features. Here are the details. After the whole boring bridge building bonanza, it was time for some mining. But first, I had to return home and make some fireworks because we were mining in the nether. For netherite. I mean ancient debris. You don't mind netherite. And I made some fireworks because obviously we didn't spawn in new nether chunks. I also went to the enderman farm to return my tools. Isn't mending just an amazing thing to have? To keep food stocks up, I made sure to harvest my potatoes and then cook them. Since I don't spawn in new nether chunks with the existing portal, I mined some obsidian for another portal. But in the distance from the bolt, I saw something. When I got closer, there was a raging fire going on which burned a bit of the bridge and the surrounding forest. I quickly put out the fire because the bridge is made of wood, and I don't want the whole goddamn thing to burn. I wasn't going to fix the bridge now, especially with the phantoms bothering me every like 15 seconds. But since the fires were out, I was just going to leave it until I got the netherite I needed. I saw a bee, wanted to see where it goes because I don't remember a beehive near this area. I followed it for a pretty long time but never found their hive, so I continued my original objective of going to the nether. I built the portal and then went through, only to realize that I was nowhere even close to the new terrain. In fact, I spawned right next to the portion of the bridge that goes to the portal that goes to the stronghold. Talk about disappointing. I started to fly around to find the new terrain and then found a fortress in the basalt deltas. That biome is the last biome I want to find because basalt is not an instant mine block, and that will make getting ancient debris even harder than it already is. But I found a soul sand valley which was perfect. Once I got on land, I mined down and then began my search for ancient debris. I mined until day 56 trying to find 36 ancient debris to upgrade all my diamond things. And a couple of days of just straight mining is one of the most boring things you could do. Even more boring than building the bridge. Now, I had TNT I could have used, but didn't because I didn't really feel like it for some reason. But in retrospect, I should have used it. Even though it wasn't that much TNT, it would still have helped a lot. During the middle of it, I took a repair break so I can fix my 2 almost broken pickaxe. After mining for all that time, I finally got all the ancient debris I needed. Then I went to go repair my tools and then returned home right after. I made a block just to feel the greatness of a netherite block. And now, my armor is now finally netherite. And my tools also. Now my armor is finally finished. For now, I guess. Then I celebrate my achievement with some music discs. And dance my dogs. You know, after mining for like 4 days, it does feel really good to finally reap the rewards of your hard work. Now that I had some time, I can clean out my shulker boxes. And that hole in the bridge? Yeah, it's a hole no longer. After that, I went around the new land searching for more beehives. I found a witch's hut during the night and then accidentally killed the cat. Sorry, I didn't mean it. On my way back, I saw another beehive that was close by and decided to harvest its honey. I made some bottles and then a fireplace so I can pacify the bees. And got some honey. I don't think I ever used the honey, but it's still honey. Then I continued the bridge until the mountain and through it. I just wanted to make a little progress for this version. And with mountains, come glass. It's nice to have big trees around because it makes wood readily available. When I finished, I still have some time in the night, so I wanted to get my horse back. I boat it back out there and still he won't get back in the boat. So I boat it all the way back and then made a lead. The lead has a 100% chance of working, but these drowns want to lower that. My horse is finally back after so many days of being in the water, and I gave it some dazzling armor. I'm so sorry, Spirit. I probably could have brought you back earlier, but I didn't. I guess I have no excuse. Minecraft 1.17, aka the Caves and Cliffs update, part 1, was released on June 8th, 2021. Amethyst geodes are new structures that spawn underground. Geodes are encapsulated in calcite and smooth basalt. Inside is a hollow sphere surrounded by amethyst. They can also be crafted with 4 amethyst shards. These blocks make some cool ringy sounds. Amethysts are crystals that drop amethyst shards. There are multiple stages, the first 3 of which being buds and the final being the clusters, which actually drop the shards. Azalea trees spawn on the surface and indicate where a lush cave is. A lush cave is as of right now only available in custom worlds or buffet worlds. They are filled with flora like moss, spore blossoms, glowberry vines, and drip leaves. Clay is ubiquitous in these caves. Directly under the tree is rooted dirt which cannot have grass or mycelium spread onto it. Using bone meal will cause the hanging roots to grow. Hanging roots can be placed on the bottom of blocks and can be obtained through shearing. It can also be obtained by using a hoe on rooted dirt, which makes the rooted dirt into normal dirt. Azaleas are bush-like blocks that can be bone mealed into azalea tree. Mineshafts now spawn with wooden pillars or chains if in the air. Cave vines are vines that generate in lush caves. They drop glowberries which restore 2 hunger. Copper is a new metal that has many uses, but most seem pretty useless to me. It's somewhat of a good building block, I guess. Copper can rust over time in stages. Rusting can be stopped by waxing the copper block. To remove the wax or rust, an axe is used. There are many variants of the copper block, including the rusted versions. Lightning rods are made of copper ingots, and when lightning strikes within a 32 block radius of the rod, it will be redirected to the rod. Spyglasses also use copper as well as amethyst shards and is used to zoom on wherever the player is looking. When in third person, there is an animation for looking into the spyglass. Raw metal is a new item that drops from iron, gold, and copper ore. Instead of dropping the ore block itself, which now requires silk touch, they drop an item that's affected by fortune. They can be made into blocks to be stored more efficiently, but cannot be smelted into the smelted block form, which is kind of a bummer. Candles are a new light source that is made from honeycomb and string. It has to be lit by something, and 4 can be placed in a single block, like sea pickles. Candles can be placed on cakes only if they're full, otherwise it breaks. Deep slate is a new stone block that spawns in blobs from Y level 0 to 16. It is hardened in stone, meaning it will take more time to mine. When mined without silk touch, it turns into the cobbled version, which is interchangeable with cobblestone and crafting. There are many variants to this block. Deep slate ores are variants of the default ores that generate in deep slate. Functionality wise, the ores act the same as stone ones but do take longer to mine like regular deep slate. Tuff is another stone type that generates on the same level as deep slate. Drip leaves are blocks that when stood on top, tilts down and the player or mobs falls through. Projectiles can make the drip leaf droop as well. Dripstone blocks are blocks that look like pointed dripstone. They generate in dripstone caves. Dripstone caves are large open areas with stalactites and stalagmites in them. As of right now, these caves don't spawn in default worlds and need to be customized. Pointed dripstone can be placed on the floor or roof to make stalagmites and stalactites. They will break if they're not attached to some block. Falling and jumping on dripstone deal damage. They are also affected by gravity, so if they fall on you, it still does damage. Damage is relative to the falling or jumping height. If there is a water block or a lava block above the stalactite, then it will drip off the stalactite. Glow item frames are item frames that look brighter, though they don't change the light level. Glowing light chain are vine-looking blocks that spawn in caves. They don't spread naturally, only with bone meal. It emits a light level of 7 and can be waterlogged. Though they look like vines, they cannot be climbed. Moss blocks are like grass blocks that can be bone mealed to spread. When bone mealed, it will spread moss, grass, and azaleas. Moss blocks can be used as an alternative to make mossy variants of blocks. Moss carpets are like moss blocks about 1 pixel thick. Spore blossoms are blocks that emit green particles in the air. Powder snow is a variant of snow which when stood on, the player will sink. Wearing leather boots stop the automatic falling, and the player can also go up and down as they please. When the player is under, they will start to get a frosty vignette and start freezing. Any leather armor, including horse armor, can stop the effect. To obtain powder snow, you need a bucket. Skulk sensors are blocks that detect sounds. It doesn't generate naturally right now, but can be obtained through commands. They sense vibrations from block placement, footsteps, and projectiles. After sensing a vibration, it will emit a redstone signal. Placing wool blocks around the sensor will stop it from listening. Tinted glass doesn't let light through, but it can be mined without silk touch. Bundles are a command-only item that is used to store items. It can hold 64 items. Right-clicking an item into it will store it away, and right-clicking it again will take the first item out. Right-clicking it while holding it will throw out all the items in it. Bundles can be placed inside each other. Axolotls are new aquatic mobs that only spawn in complete darkness when there's a natural stone below them. They have 14 health and can also be caught with a bucket like fish. There are many different variants of them, blue being the rarest, only obtainable through breeding with a 1 in 1200 chance. Axolotls are bred with a bucket of tropical fish. They attack drowns, guardians, squids, and fish. Hostile mobs are prioritized over passive mobs when attacking. Glow squids are a new type of squid that drops glow ink sacs. Glow ink sacs are used to craft glow item frames and make text glow on signs. They spawn like axolotls in complete darkness and near natural stone. They do glow but doesn't affect light levels. Goats spawn in mountain biomes and can ram mobs. They are bred with wheat and can be milked with a bucket. Screaming goats are more hostile and have a 2% chance of spawning. Skeletons now turn into strays when they're in powder snow after 7 seconds. We are starting to near the end and I haven't even done much. I explored a lot and worked on my items, but not many builds. Except for the bridge, of course. But now I'm going to start on my next and last house. But it's not going to be built until a couple versions down the line. The plan for this base is going to be like a modern tower, kind of like the Seattle Space Eagle. And I actually built a little test to see how it would look. It's not completely made in this, but it helped me to envision how the final product would look. And with any build, it comes with calculating how much of everything you need. So it came out to around 6 stacks of gray concrete, 40 stacks of white concrete, 20 stacks of light gray concrete, and 6 stacks of light gray glass. But it doesn't end there. To travel up it, I'll make a water elevator, but I didn't test build that. I will need a ton of raw materials, so I just cleaned out my full boxes and then used them. It made some more fireworks with the grown sugarcane, for convenience. I actually had a lot of the sand from the glass protection portion, so I could use that in this project. My first idea to get a ton of gravel was the ocean, but it was only 1 block thick and they would float. That made it really difficult to effectively gather a ton of gravel. So after swimming around and trying to get as much gravel as possible, all that resulted is like a couple stacks. It was too painfully slow, so I resorted to finding gravel in a mountain. I first found a tiny pocket of gravel and then thought this would fail. And then not too far from that, I found a huge swath of gravel. It was like I won the lottery because I used to have a lot of trouble finding gravel. Getting gravel was pretty quick because I also had a silk touch shovel, so that means I wouldn't get the problem of flint. There were the occasional mobs. I mean, there were more than I would like, but I still got the gravel. Now that the gravel is finished, I flew directly to the desert since my shovel wasn't that broken. Since I had the majority of the sand from the previous projects, I didn't need to dig that much. Now that the bulk of the materials was gathered, comes the dye. I chose simple dyes that didn't require that much work, except black dye. The only way to get black dye was squids. Even with looting, it still took a while because squids don't spawn that close together. They spawn like groups of 4, but every so often. For white dye, I used most of the bones I had, but for light gray, that's where my plans went kinda awry. My first idea was to get flowers, but I quickly found that there was not as many flowers as I thought, and I didn't want to spend too much time on just flower picking. What I resorted to do was make those dyes. I needed more white dye and didn't want to use my bones, so I went to the nether. The Soul Sand Valley had fossils that can give me a lot of white dye. I mined around a stack of bone blocks, which is overkill, but having a little bit more wouldn't hurt anyone. And then I died. Made my dyes. But for some odd reason, I want to get more black dye. I forgot the reason why, but it was probably because I made too much gray dye, and I was probably trying to account for mistakes. After that fiasco, I made all the concrete powder and stained glass for the build. For the water elevator, I had all the parts except for the kelp because for some dumb reason, I didn't get any back in 1.13 when I was exploring the new seas. So I flew all the way to the ocean just to get some kelp. But now here comes the boring part. Actually transforming the powder into solid concrete. Changing stacks upon stacks of concrete powder was the worst because I had to do it all by hand. No automation. I finished at around the middle of day 65. The thing is that this was just all for the base. You thought I forgot the bridge, right? The bridge was not even finished. Along with the base comes the final leg of the bridge. I planned the base to be at the end of the bridge, and for the rest of day 65, I chopped a lot of dark oak trees. On day 66, I repaired my tools and then went to gather the next thing I need for a bridge: sand. Just in case if there was a mountain or something. When I was digging for sand, since I had no sense of how long this would take to gather all the resources, I was digging like a madman. Look at how sporadically I was digging on the sand. And now that the sand was finished, I can smelt them. But while placing furnaces, I was rudely interrupted by phantoms. Even in the face of adversity, I persevered and eventually got most of the sand in. Then I became sick of it and then moved my bed down so I can finally sleep the night away. And then on day 67, I finished putting in the sand. For the rest of day 67, while my sand was being smelted, I continued to chop more trees. Because in the back of my head, I knew that this bridge was going to go for a long time. I mined the furnaces to get my glass because they were temporary to begin with. Then I slumped on my mattress and then came the next day. On day 68, now that I was done gathering resources, I wanted to see what was new in 1.17. Like copper and geodes, and that's basically all. I flew around the world in search of the new stuff and found a little stony part. When I got closer, I found some copper and tried mining it. And then realized that I was using my silk touch. Oops. I actually found more copper around the area and then kept flying. What I found was a village, but not just any village. It was the village I had been before, so I tried flying back in the opposite direction to find more stuff. At this point, all I wanted to find is a geode, so I started to mine down and hope to find something cool. I did find emerald ore, but it was the mountain biome after all. There was also a ravine and I actually found some diamonds, which was a nice plus. Wandering through the many cave complexes here, I found some blocks that were on the outer coating of a geode. I mined through it and I was ecstatic. I was curious to mine a crystal bud, which was probably a mistake because it dropped nothing, because it was not fully grown. I got some amethyst crystals and blocks and then smelted my copper. I collected a lot more and also the white calcite blocks because I thought they looked cool. Now that some of my copper was smelted, I could make a spyglass. I never made a spyglass before and using it was completely underwhelming. Then I made a lightning rod. Well, I had no lightning to test it out, so it was pretty useless as well. I took the copper with me and then left to the surface. It took an abnormal amount of time, and come to find out, I was still in the mountain. I looked around the area of a spyglass and it was cool, for like 10 seconds. When I returned home, I made another rod because I left the other one and then placed it in the wooden bowl. Don't worry guys, it's completely safe. Day 70 was just another wrap-up day. I cleaned out my inventory and then went to the end to repair my stuff. But once that was finished, I had nothing else to do. So I just sat in my bowl watching the sun go down and then sleeping so I can save some disk space on my computer. Because these videos take a lot of space. Minecraft 1.18, aka the Caves and Cliffs Update Part 2, was released on November 30th, 2021. A new music disc Other Side by Lena Rain was added. It is found in stronghold chests and some dungeon chests. Hostile mobs now only spawn in areas where the light level is 0. The world height is now 384 blocks, increasing each direction by 64 blocks, meaning 64 more blocks going up and down. Caves have been completely changed. Stone types now generate based on height. Normal stone spawns above 0 and deep slate spawns below 0 all the way to bedrock. Lush caves and dripstone caves now spawn in default worlds. Aquifers are bodies of water that spawn in caves and sometimes will be lava instead of water if lower than 0. Caves are now more extreme, spanning from huge open caves to claustrophobic spaces. Mountains now come in 6 subbiomes. Meadows are grassy hills that are filled with flowers. Groves are snowy areas that generate on the sides of snowy mountains. Snowy slopes are sheer sides of snowy mountains. Jagged peaks spawn on the top of the mountains and are composed of spikier formations of stone and snow. Frozen peaks are jagged peaks but less intense and has snow and packed ice. Stony peaks are on mountains and covered by stone and gravel. Ore veins can now sometimes spawn in bigger variants. Iron and copper can spawn with raw metal blocks in these types. Old worlds with old generation get updated with the new generation. Chunks are seamlessly blended, which prevents the jagged chunk borders from before. Blocks are below bedrock generate new caves and blocks. And the old bedrock will no longer be there. Ore has been redistributed from its old distribution. Ore is now spawned in ranges of Y level instead of from a beginning Y level to bedrock. There's a lot more to this, but here's a picture that would probably describe it a lot better than I could ever. New options have been added. Chunk builder determines how chunk sections are updated synchronously in a single frame. Simulation distance changes how far entities, blocks, or mobs are updated. The panorama screen has been updated to show the new terrain generation. On day 71, I flew to the end of the bridge and dug down to see the new stone blocks. It was cool to see, but I had other stuff to do, like building the bridge. After that, I scouted the area where the tower would be made, but another huge body of water was there, but at least it's gonna be the last one. Thankfully. I found the new terrain, but I didn't really want to build it in the savannah, so I flew further and found like a foresty area. The spot wasn't the best, but I didn't want to build any more. It was at around the 10,000 block mark, meaning this bridge may or may not be around 10,000 blocks long. That is the biggest build I've ever made. Now that I know where I was aiming for, I can start building the part of the bridge. Finally, it's going to be complete. The final extension will be cut into 3 parts, one in the mega taiga, one on the ocean, and one in new terrain. During the first day/night, I built the girder and supports while being swamped by mobs. Some of the pillars I built by connecting them to existing spruce logs. Nearing the second day, I had to get some cobblestone for the water parts of the pillar. Throughout the day, I continued to build the pillars and supports, but some, like the last couple of pillars in the water, those took a lot of wood because the water was pretty low, around 30-ish blocks. The only reason I didn't burn the forest is because it would be pretty hard to take down the floating remnants, and because they were kind of useful because who doesn't like big trees? For most of night 72, I built the path for this bridge section, and then at the end, I started the glass protection. On day 73, I continued and finished the glass protection. But before starting on lighting, I went back home to get stone for the next portion of the bridge, and coal to light up the place. When I got back to the bridge on night 73, I lit up the place, which concludes this portion of the bridge. For the ocean portion, I will use the same design as the previous transoceanic bridge. Unlike previously where I had to smelt the stone, this time I can just directly mine for stone because I had silk touch. And this time, while building the 2 supports of the stone section, I won't make the same mistake as last time. But also, the only reason why I messed up is because the other one was split by an island. This wasn't. On day 75, I finished building the 2 supports and then went back to the outpost to make walls and get more stone. Once I finished, for the rest of the day, I built the actual bridge path supports. And again, I had to count to 10 every single time, which was annoying as crap because I probably recounted way too many times. But to make it even worse, they're back. Even flying back didn't help, they still came over there. So to stop any more unwelcome company, at least for now, it's sleepy time. For day 77, I began and finished the path, and then at the end of day 77 to 78, I completed the lighting. After that, I returned to my shulker boxes to move them forward to the last section, the new terrain section, the last one. I built the girder until the mountain, but during that, I saw a huge cave opening, and man, building a pillar there is going to be expensive, because it was very far down. After I mined through the mountain and then made a tunnel, I placed down the stone bricks. Keep that in mind. Next, for the rest of night 78 and through 79, I finished up the portion of that bridge, and only to realize that when I got back to the tunnel, I had made the stone brick part 1 block too low, so I had to build over it and spend more time filling in the gaps. Not to mention mining out the tunnel more. On day 80, I wrapped up that portion with some glass and then started the last part of the bridge that goes into the mountain, and also scouting the actual end of the bridge where the tower will live. I tried my best to finish this as fast as possible, but there was still too much to build in one day. It didn't help that I made some huge mistakes, and the stickler I am wanted the bridge to be level, because otherwise it would be a block too high. But we were almost there. Minecraft 1.19, aka the Wild update, was released on June 7th, 2022. The Mangrove Swamp is a new swamp biome that spawns mangrove trees. Mangrove wood has its variants like any other type of wood. Mangrove propagules are the saplings of the trees. They also grow under naturally spawning leaves. When the tree grows, it grows roots that are see-through and can be waterlogged. Frogs come in 3 different variants: temperate, warm, and cold. They can croak, jump, swim, and slowly walk. Frogs can jump over 5 blocks and prefer to jump on lily pads and drip leaves. They are faster on water and can be bred with slime balls. They can eat small slimes and small magma cubes. Tadpoles are the baby frogs and take 20 minutes to fully grown. It can be sped up with slime balls, and the frog type depends on the biome temperature they grow in. Froglets are a new block that is dropped from frogs when they eat small magma cubes. Depending on the frog type, it will drop different types of froglights. Frogspawn are the eggs that appear after the frogs are bred. They hatch into tadpoles after some time. The tadpoles can be captured with buckets. Mud is found in mangrove swamps and can be cured using a water bottle and any type of dirt. If a dripstone is placed below it, it will start to dry out and turn into clay. Packed mud is used to make mud bricks, which can be turned into more variants. Muddy mangrove roots can be found naturally and crafted, and is a full opaque block that cannot be waterlogged. The Deep Dark is a new biome that tends to spawn under mountainous areas on Y level -1 to -64. The Ancient City is a new structure that can generate in the Deep Dark. It is very large and always generates at Y -52. It is made of many variants of deep slate, basalt, wood, and wool. It also contains soul flower, soul lanterns, and candles. There are many substructures that resemble wall ruins and building ruins. Chests spawn in the city which contain exclusive loot, like echo shards and disc fragments. Echo shards are used to craft recovery compasses, while the disc fragments are fragments of music disc named 5. They are extremely rare and used to craft music disc 5. Music disc 5 is by
Samuel Åberg.
A new enchantment, Swift Sneak, was added and is exclusive to chests in the ancient cities. It is used on pans and makes the player move faster while sneaking. It allows the player to walk up to 75% faster. Underneath the portal frame-like structure is rooms containing redstone mechanisms requiring different strategies to solve. Skulks spawn in the deep dark realms and ancient cities. They drop experience when broken. Skulk veins are a glowing light gem and spawn only in the periphery of skulk patches. Skulk catalysts spawn in the deep dark biome and will change the block into skulk when mobs die near it. Skulk sensors are now used and spawn in deep dark biomes and ancient cities. Skulk shriekers shriek when it picks up sound or by a nearby skulk sensor. When it is activated, the player gets the darkness effect and the warning level goes up by 1. Once the shrieker has been activated 3 times, a warden will spawn. The warden is a new boss mob that is fully blind. It senses the player by sound and the skulk sensors. Sneaking, however, though, will stop the warden from sensing the player. When the warden is summoned, it emerges from the ground, and after a while, if you don't hear any sound, they will go back into the ground. The warden has 500 health and does 30 damage. Other than the melee attack, it has a range attack. The range attack is a sonically charged attack that penetrates through walls, armor, shields, and enchantments like protection. It deals 10 damage and the range is 15 blocks. It is immune to lava and knockback. As a consolation prize, you do get a skull catalyst if you kill it. Reinforced Deep Slate is a new block that spawns in the unlit portal frame looking structure. It is not obtainable and when broken drops nothing. Goat horns are dropped when goats ram into stone, ore, or packed ice. They can be used to play a loud sound. Spawn eggs for the Ender Dragon, Iron Golem, Snow Golem, and Withers have been added, though the 2 boss eggs are only available through commands. Olays are new mobs that were decided during Minecraft Live 2021. They have 20 health and pick up, drop items from the player, and follow them. They spawn in cages next to pillagers and in wooden mansions in jail cells. When a no block plays, that block becomes their favorite block for 30 seconds and attempts to drop items there instead of to the player. Potions no longer have the enchantment glint. Boats and chests were added and are like minecarts of chests. The chest acts as another passenger, which means only one entity can ride on the boat. Minecart combinations now drop the combination instead of the components. The creative inventory has been overhauled, making relevant blocks more findable. In the control menu, a new option was added, Operator Item tab. Turning this option on will add another tab onto the creative menu to players with Operator. It shows that items are only available through commands. More options were added, but one of which, Directional Audio, uses HRTF-based directional audio to improve the 3D sound. One of the most controversial updates that don't actually pertain to the core gameplay, but with the multiplayer, is the reporting menu. The new menu was added to let players in servers report players based solely on chat. Reported players that get banned after a moderator reviews it can no longer play on multiplayer servers or realms for some time. More accessibility options were added with quality of life features for people that have a harder time playing on the regular settings. One of which is a high contrast resource pack that enhances the contrast of the UI. The Create World menu has been changed massively. The first tab, Game, is for the world name, difficulty, and cheats options. The second tab, World, sets the world type, seed, and structure options. The third tab, More, lets the player turn on game rules, experimental additions, and data packs. Panorama screen has been updated to show the features from this version. Experimental features were added that gives a peek into 1.20. Time is running short and I still want to do more after building the tower, but I still had to fix the mistakes I made before. When I was building this, I just had to forget that the girder and supports are supposed to be 1 block lower. I didn't even have enough wood to make the path, so to go out and get more. I think acacia would look good. I've probably used every wood type on this mess of a bridge. Now all it needs is a sprinkle of lights, go away phantoms, and some glass to finish it off. All of the outside portions of the bridge were officially finished. The only thing is left is to make the end of the bridge in the mountain. I first had to mine out the tunnel itself and then add some minor details plus lights. But I think that's it for the bridge. After a year, the bridge is finally over. Bridge haters rejoice! And for bridge lovers, all good things must come to an end. Now that the bridge is over, comes the actual last build, the tower. I had to return back to the bowl because the tower building set was still there. To set the center of where the tower would be, I placed soul sand and marked the water elevator. And being too lazy to cut trees, here comes the fire. Watch out, Canada, I can beat you in how many trees I can burn. Or you, California. I made spacers over 10 blocks so I can get the circle correct. I know the surroundings look ugly now, but that can be fixed later. But by day 83, I got the base of the tower constructed. And now comes the actual tower. It was a hastily made design, so don't make fun of it too much. The slope was supposed to be more sleek, but I guess with an incomplete test build, I couldn't really tell. On day 84 came the habitable space of the tower, but the pictures I took for reference weren't too good, so I couldn't really tell if I was building it correctly. With some guesswork and trial and error, I got the outer ring done, which actually helped me a lot in filling the slope supports. And honestly, it didn't look half bad. I went down to get the light gray concrete to build the first floor. And instead of building the floors and walls sequentially together, I built the glass walls first and then the floors. It felt faster, but I don't know. For the roof, the plan was to make it slope inwards and then put an antenna-like structure on top of it. I should put lighting rods, but I didn't think of that then. The exterior of the tower was basically all done, and looking back, I don't think it looks that bad. It certainly looked better than what I thought was going to happen. Then I tried to make a simple floor at the base of the tower. I never made a plan for this, so I just chose blocks that I had. For the elevator, I had to make 2 holes because I forgot to make one for the trip down. Originally, when I realized this flaw, I was going to use a magma block, but then realized that was completely unnecessary. And while building this, there were some close calls. But after the elevator was finished, I started to move my stuff in. First, I would place many chests, and then put away all the things in my boxes into those chests. Over the next couple of days, 87 and 88, I would continue to bring stuff over in my last move. On the first trip around, I brought Spirit and my dogs. On my second trip, I made sure to make a pit stop at the Enderman farm and bring my stuff, because that was probably the last time I'd be able to repair my tools and armor, which hint it was not. Through day 88 and into 89, I took that time to organize everything. For the way to go up to the second floor, I didn't really have any good ideas, so I just made a lame staircase. That's all I could think of. And with the special items, I did remember them. I made a spot for the egg, head, and enchanted golden apple. I had a lot of fun naming these chests, or as much fun as you can have with naming chests. And I think it's time to give my dogs names, because I actually have name tags this time. At least the important ones. Now Buddy and Ukulele have names. Sorry Sonia and Lavender, it is what it is to be the slackers of this family. I forgot to mention I got other side from the dungeon and the last leg of the bridge. There's a lot of things I probably missed, but that's one thing I did remember. On day 90, almost forgetting to record, I cleared out some of the floating tree parts. Not all of it though. And then I wanted to explore more of the new lands. There was a huge jungle next to my tower and some bamboo, but past that was a mesa biome. I think mesa biomes are cool on paper, but when I get to one, I never actually do anything in one. On my ocean pass, I also saw another coral reef but gave no attention to it. While on this adventure, I also wanted to get some materials for more fireworks. I need fireworks. I need more. I can't live without them, and I swear they're not drugs. Once I was in a savannah, I saw my first new village, all the way in 1.19. There were also some weird crops on the path. That confused me a lot when I looked at them. Just didn't make any sense. I found many creepers along my way, but they kept blowing up. I'm not that ugly, am I? But realizing that it was about to turn daytime, I tried to fly back home as quick as possible, but I was still really far away. And even with fireworks and an elytra, I can't fly that fast. Minecraft 1.20, aka the Trails and Tales update, was released on June 7th, 2023. 1.20 was originally announced on Minecraft Live 2022. The name was later revealed on Minecraft Monthly on March 2nd, 2023. One of the most visible additions, the Cherry Grove, was added. The Cherry Grove contained cherry trees that are located on mountains. The cherry tree bends or fork at the top of the trunk and are covered with round canopies of leaves. The new cherrywood has the usual derivatives like slabs, stairs, and saplings. Pink petals are a new surface block which generates in cherry groves. It can be bone milled on the ground of the biome to grow more, and it can be made into pink dye. Like sea pickles, they can be placed 4 in a block. Blocks of bamboo is like a log type, can be stripped and made into bamboo planks. Bamboo planks can be crafted into derivatives like wood, but there's a special block that's called a bamboo mosaic which can be crafted into stairs and slabs. Rafts can be made of bamboo and have the same functionality as regular boats. Chiseled bookshelves can store books, making the first functional bookshelf that can actually store. Hanging signs are more expensive signs that can be placed in different orientations. Suspicious gravel and sand look kinda like their normal counterparts. Suspicious gravel generates in cold ocean ruins and trail ruins. Trail ruins are structures that are buried from a lost culture. They generate in a large assortment of biomes and contain these suspicious blocks. These suspicious blocks have a large array of loot that can be obtained. Suspicious sand generate in warm ocean ruins, desert temples, and desert wells. When broken, nothing is dropped, even with silk touch. Brushes are a new tool which are used in the new archaeology system. They can be used to brush suspicious sand and gravel to get loot. After brushing fully, they turn to the regular form. Decorated pots can be crafted with any 4 pottery sherd or brick, which gives it a different style depending on the material used. Pottery sherds are found from suspicious sand and there are 20 different types. A new music disc was added called Relic and can be rarely gone from suspicious gravel and trail ruins. New decorations for armor and a new way to upgrade diamond armor to netherite were added. Most of them can be found in loot chests of the respective structures, which I don't know. But here are some of the places that were listed, but there are some exceptions. One-tied armor trim is sometimes dropped by an Elder Guardian. Host, Razor, Shaper, and Wayfinder trims are found by brushing suspicious sand and gravel in trail ruins. Trims and upgrades can be copied but not crafted without a copy of itself. These upgrades can be used in the smithing table, which has been overhauled. It has a new slot to hold the new upgrades and trimmings to be used. Camels are a new mob and can be ridden by 2 players. They have 32 health and spawn in desert villages. They can be bred and tempted with cacti. When riding it, mobs are 2 blocks or lower, except spiders cannot reach the player. Camels randomly sit, but while sat down, it's hard to convince them to move. They can walk or sprint and can dash forward, but it takes up stamina. Sniffers are the new mob that was voted on during Minecraft Live 2022. They were considered the first ancient mobs. Sniffers are large and have 14 health. They cannot spawn naturally. Sniffers often sniff the air and sometimes dig for torchflower seeds. The digging has an 8-minute cooldown, and they can be bred with torchflower seeds. A pitcher plant grows from pitcher pods and can be crafted into cyan dye. Pitcher pods can only be obtained if the sniffer digs it up. If a piglin is killed by a charged creeper, they will not drop their heads. Calibrated skulk sensors are artificial skulk sensors that are crafted. They allow the player to filter certain vibrations based on frequency. It detects vibrations farther and lasts longer. Torch flowers are a type of flower that doesn't emit light, weirdly enough, but they can be crafted into orange dye. Like pitcher plants, they have a seed and can only be found by a sniffer and can be used to breed chickens, parrots, and sniffers. Signs cannot be edited after placing it. Beds, carpet, and wool can be redyed from other wool colors. The panorama screen has been changed to show the Cherry Grove biome. Fun fact, 1.20 was released exactly a year from 1.19 and 6 years from 1.12. The last 10 days. Wow, we're already here. Every build that I had planned is now done. Now it's time to go out and breathe some fresh air, something that I've not been doing while making this video. I planned a little itinerary of where I wanted to see and explore. A bastion, ancient city, and the Cherry Grove. and some archaeology stuff. So first things first, the Bastion. I brought some shulker boxes and some materials to make another portal, since I didn't have one here. When I went through the portal, I marked the spot once again, trying to be smart, and then I saw that I was right above another fortress. I ran through the tunnels a little bit and then was like, this wasn't why I was here, and I just flew out. I flew to so many biomes that I got the advancement for it, but no Bastion. I was so tempted just to use /locate, but I didn't, because not too long after, I saw the Bastion as I descended to land. To this day, I still have never raided a Bastion. I just never thought it was necessary, and the threat of death was too high for me. I made a little outpost so I could make some gold boots and then walked over to the menacing building. The brute was a lot more difficult than I first thought. I was trying my best not to hit the hive mind pigs because that would cause some major problems. After that incident, I ran to get some blocks and gold nuggets. And turns out, they don't get fooled by just nuggets. So that plan just went poof. Opening my first chest was terrifying. I knew that opening chests will anger them, so I covered every opening possible so I won't get ambushed. I got more blocks after that and then went back cautiously, having my eyes peeled for any more brutes. I saw this gravel bridge and then was immediately suspicious. And I was right because it was floating. Rest in peace, Piglin. You will not be missed. I lured another brute onto a spot where I could deal damage but not be damaged myself. As I went to the center of the Bastion, I saw a chest but I had no blocks to build with, so I scrambled for blocks to place around the chest. It was pretty anticlimactic, and I needed more blocks again. As I blocked up, I saw the jackpot, guarded by brutes. The first one came out and I killed it, but the other two I had to shoot over and over again. I went there cautiously, and in the single chest was kinda okay, but the double chest had all the stuff. Not really. It was another ancient debris and another upgrade, but I don't need those since I already have netherite stuff. Now that the Bastion has been cleared, I think, I peeled out of there, grabbed my shulker box, and then flew the crap back home. I encountered the stronghold path and wanted to see if those armor trims spawned in an already existing stronghold. When I got to the stronghold, I ran around and found a library. What surprised me was that it was actually there, in both chests. I knew that one was guaranteed, but in hindsight, I never opened those chests, so maybe that might have done something. While I was in the stronghold, I seized the opportunity to go to the end and repair my stuff. I returned home and then stored my loot in separate chests, which I labeled. I don't know why, but I just like it that way. Once I finished, I made a miscalculation while falling down and then killed myself. And I'm so thankful that I set my spawn, otherwise I would have no idea where I spawned. And now for the next thing, the ancient city. I didn't really understand how and where they spawned, and only had an inkling that it was related to mountains. So I mined directly down through a mountain and found nothing, which was not surprising. Suffice to say, I did not find anything and then went back home to sleep. On day 94, I flew around in search of a valley with some big mountains. Or at least that's what I found on the interwebs. But I didn't want to keep wasting fireworks and time, so I used something to aid me, and then magically I just knew where the ancient city was. Huh, I wonder how I did that. While flying in, there was a cherry grove which basically knocks two birds with one stone. I flew to the spot and then mined down. As I mined down into the cave, I saw the city and was in awe and fear. I never actually went through a city legitimately with the goal to loot it, so this was basically my first time. For the rest of day 94 and 95, I slowly but surely explored not even a fraction of this place. I did crouch, but when there was chests, I opened them instead of breaking them, so it did double sound, but thankfully it was just usually skulk sensors. But the occasional not skulk sensors were a little bit frightening. The smarty in me brought shears because there's a lot of wool in this place for me to take advantage of. I found many things which I'm not going to say, because I'm just too lazy. There were actually a lot more diamonds down there than I thought. After I felt like I did enough and alerted enough of those creepy things, I made a pull and then tried to spawn the warden. It worked too well, and since I didn't want to die, I think that wraps up the ancient city on this itinerary. The last thing on my list was the cherry grove, and there's already one here. So convenient. Once I got up there, I put away the city loot and then chopped some of the cherry trees, with some saplings and those flowery things. Now that my trip was finished, I was basically done. When I got home, I put away all my stuff in the spoils chests. I got swift sneak during my raid of the city and wanted to put on my pants. Then I put away the cherry stuff into another spoils chest and then went out to get XP for the enchantment. I got that enchanted, but I also got some name tags and I needed more experience to name them, so I went out to get more experience. I named Sunny, Lavender, and Spirit, but he wandered pretty far. I guess he's pretty restless to be standing in a tunnel. On day 97, I took out some materials and then tested out the trims, but I never made any permanent changes, because I was pretty indecisive. I wanted to explore more of the 1.20 updates, specifically trying to get more trims and try the archaeology thing, so I made a brush. While flying, I encountered another jungle and saw a temple, and I got another type of trim. But now I was done with trims, and now time for brushing up treasure. I had to look it up, but the only thing I was on the lookout for was sniffers. I wanted a sniffer so badly. I found a tiny well in the desert, and while trying to find the pottery, I broke something and I heard a sound, but I never got anything out of it. While in the desert, I also found a temple and found some suspicious sand. I guess there's also other loot in it, and a trim, but who cares about that? There was also the world's smallest mushroom biome. I don't know how it can spawn like this, but I did take some mycelium with me. For the rest of day 97 and into day 98, I brushed through the sand to find an egg. It was mostly boring stuff like wheat and coal, but then suddenly, I found a weirdly detailed object and it was the egg. I immediately flew back home and then put away all my stuff into a new chest. Then I went outside to place the egg because I didn't really know the proper spot. During night 98, I went to pretty up the outside because it wasn't looking too hot after construction. I did some terraforming and then changed the stone to grass. And then after reorganizing some stuff, I slept. On day 99, I thought it would be a good idea to make a hole through the glass so I can fly in. At first it was too small, but then I widened it. After that, I spent so much time just going through the trims and materials. I didn't really like any of the materials, but I ended with iron. It wasn't that good looking, but I thought it looked okay. I was looking for some contrast that was not bright diamond blue, and amethyst crystals were just too subtle. When I went outside, the egg was still hatching, so I chopped more of the floating trees. But on a random trip back to check the egg, it hatched. I leashed it back and then was trying to find a name for my new sniffer. I was looking for old people names because I thought it would make sense. I don't know if Bernard is strictly an old name, but I picked it and I liked it. After naming Bernard, I slept and then the last day was here. The very last day. Day 100 was just a day to relax and reminisce. I increased my render distance to see a lot more of the terrain and it lagged a lot. It was really cool to pan around and see all the biomes. Since this was my last day, I kissed goodbye to my dogs, Spirit, and my new pet Bernard. It was kinda sad. I listened to some tunes with my dogs and then watched as the sun went down. And then, it was all over. Well, there you have it. That was Minecraft, all the way from alpha to now. It was really cool to see Minecraft grow from a simple sandbox all the way to an almost completely different game, but not quite. And now, the series is over. This was a long time in the making, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. 4 videos in 1 year. But now, this is where we part ways. Who knows what I'll do in the future. But for now, farewell. So that was a year of work, culminating into 4 videos, and now into 1 video. I hope you enjoyed it while it lasted. And maybe a sub, like, comment, or bell, and if you're feeling a little charitable, I do have a membership that you can join. It's $5 a month, not necessary. Also, you don't really get that much. It's just if you want to help me out a little bit more, but only if you want to. Alright, well that's it. I'll see you in the next video.